My brother.
Let me just real quick 1 second.
Yeah. Take your time, my bro. Did you hear there's like a Mockler thing happening today? Mockler versus...
I did.
Redacted?
Is that going to be live?
I'm not sure. That's what Josiah said. He might be spreading fake news though.
Was there an announcement about this? Because someone in my stream was saying the same thing.
Josiah with super chat is like, "Are you excited for the Mockler Hassan showdown?" I'm like, I didn't know that was happening, but fuck yeah, we'll be wearing our Mockler jerseys.
Some people in my chat were saying
like
that they heard about it. Is it going to be streamed, guys? Is this going to be live?
Tell us, please. We want it.
Did you see Brian Tyler Cohen going?
Oh, yeah. I retweeted him.
Yeah.
I retweeted that shit because, listen, you all are so cringe about the chorus shit. I do think that there's one aspect that I agree with Taylor Lorenz always have, which is disclosure. I do think that chorus members should disclose when they get income streams related to their political content. That's always been a thing, but I have no problem with chorus existing. And I think that people who do need to realize what moment they're in. And yeah, so I retweeted that.
What I think is wildly cringe about that whole thing was that during the Hassan Crash Out stream last week, he was like, there was like a 5-minute exchange that he had with his audience where he was telling them, like, they were, I guess, pushing him to go scorched earth on chorus and Brian Tyler Cohen. And he did this whole rant for like 2 minutes about how he needed to repair with Brian, basically. Because Brian knows a lot of fucking political consultants, or I don't know what language he used, like Democratic Party political consultants. So he had to like repair that relationship, but he said it, you know, like live to his audience, and he still continues to accuse Chorus of paying creators to do Israeli propaganda. So it's like he wants it both ways. Like he wants to be able to use Chorus as like an Alex Jones boogeyman, but then he thinks he's being sly when he just tells his audience, like, no, we got to like play politics with Brian. You know, that's kind of fucking insane.
I think it's to the heart of our critique. It seems like pragmatism is available for everything except the voting decision. This is kind of like voting exceptionalism attitude that people seem to have, where they understand pragmatism in the context, for example, of resolutions on Israel-Palestine, for example, in terms of making alliances. I think even a lot of people like the Mamdani Hochul situation. I understand not everybody, but I think that lefties are willing to abide, or at least a lot of them are willing to abide pragmatism or sort of, I don't know what to call it. Super
nothing yet.
Political moves that are beneficial, but aren't necessarily ideologically based in any other context except for the vote itself, which I always find odd. And that's another example of it. I think like withholding criticism of Chorus or withholding going hard on Brian Tyler Cohen because of trying to make an alliance. Well, great. I mean, maybe that's the right move to make politically. Then why aren't you consistent with that framework of pragmatism in other contexts where it clearly applies?
No way.
Like the answer is very obvious, but I don't know how Brain Broker Pisco goes on this issue. The answer is because Hassan is only trying to maximize for his clout. Right? Like that's the obvious, easy answer that explains every single thing here without needing to bootstrap on 20 million other things.
Hold on, I think you missed the point of what I was talking about though. Like I don't think it's that deep. Like I think Hassan wants it both ways, where he can do literal Alex Jones level analysis. Like you would agree that him baselessly accusing people of being paid by Chorus to do Israeli propaganda is like fully Alex Jones, right? Like pretty much right.
What do you mean by? I think it's not based in anything. And
no, but Alex Jones, it's just like fully Alex Jones, right? Alex Jones will come up with the craziest conspiracy theories you can think of to explain 9/11 or, you know, like election results. You know, he'll do like Zog kind of stuff. Is this really any different? If Hassan is,
I'd be careful there unless Alex Jones has changed recently. Alex Jones was part of that older generation of Americans. I think Alex Jones was a big Jew lover or Israel lover. I don't think Alex Jones generally did the neo-Nazi Zog shit or whatever.
He did it in the past. Now he's not so much anymore.
What did he say in the past?
Jew. Like a lot of that stuff. He was definitely anti-Semitic in the past, but now he changed.
What was the Jew thing in reference to?
There's like 10 of them.
Can you name a single position or whatever?
Well,
like when
well,
Kanye came on with Fuentes, like Alex Jones was staunchly in the other camp on that.
I will get you.
Like, yeah, Brandon just said the
I'll
Jew
search.
thing was him talking about anti-Semites using it too much. Because that's what I thought the reference was. Is he's like, everybody wants to blame Jew, 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 or whatever. So it's like these, yeah, but.
You know, just randomly accusing creators of being paid by Chorus to do Israeli talking points.
For some Alex Jones conspiracy, 100%. I'm sorry, I just when I hear Alex Jones conspiracy, I think of like Sandy Hook, because that's
Yeah,
my
this is
heart.
but this is right next to it, is what I'm saying. You don't think it is?
In terms perhaps of the brazenness of saying something without evidence, but in terms of like the material harm, no. But I do understand what you're saying. It's a brazen claim without any evidence, and that's like what Alex Jones does.
Like if I told you Alex Jones baselessly accused, some random medium-sized influencer of being paid by Israel to do propaganda, you would be like, oh yeah, that's like typical Alex Jones.
Yeah. I would also say that Hassan oftentimes makes brazen claims without any evidence.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
JDAM
I'm
stuff
saying,
and-
yeah. Well, no, this is beyond JDAM stuff though. This is like fully conspiracy-brained Alex Jones level analysis.
Agreed. I just know what you mean, like, because sometimes the lies of Alex Jones often happen in the context of active debunking when things have already been debunked, or that deal with areas of like just the most depraved damages. So, for example, like there are situations where Alex Jones has continued to spread things after they've been debunked. Now, in this course case, I think it hasn't. There's no evidence for it, right? And there's certainly
Who's in this house at
statements
17 minutes?
course,
What
people
the
who
fuck?
contest it 100%. But sometimes there are like a factual underpinnings to what Alex Jones will say that that are like so obscene and offensive beyond the level of the kind of these kind of negative innuendos that were made by Taylor Lorenz and by Hassan. But in general, I agree with what you're saying. That's what I was thinking about Alex Jones with like Sandy Hook shit, Jan 6 stuff.
See, but
I like that one.
I don't know if I agree with that. I actually think they're just as bad. You want me to explain?
Yeah.
So Hassan's whole thing is talking about the Palestinian conflict and using the language of genocide, right? That's been his biggest sort of like focus for the last couple of years. He will say things like a live stream Holocaust, these kinds of things. He is very casually, very baselessly accusing just random influencers that show up on his feed of being paid by Chorus to do Israeli apologia, like genocide apologia. That to me is just as disgusting as accusing parents of like faking their kids' murder. It's like it's like right next to it. It's not, a layer above it. It's just, that is just Alex Jones level of disgusting smear.
I think that I agree that it's Alex Jones like, as between the Sandy Hook comparison and these kinds of accusations. I find that Sandy Hook one to be more reprehensible and shocking of the
We're about to
conscious.
debate
and
Alex
these,
Jones for the next 30 minutes.
Perhaps you can
I don't know why every single thing with Pisco takes like an hour to get through every single. You have to be so careful. Like I just already fucked up. Like this is like asking like at the beginning of a debate with Pisco, like, oh, what'd you have for breakfast or whatever, and Pisco's like, well.
Which breakfast?
Or what do you
Define
mean by
breakfast.
breakfast? So, like between the time periods of 7 a.m. and 11 a.m., or are
'Cause
we
some
going to
people
include
have their breakfast
brunch?
at noon.
Like somehow every single possible question ever. I don't know how he hasn't become aware of this, or nobody's made him aware of this. Every single possible question for him becomes like a 1 hour like side tangent. We might never actually escape the Alex Jones topic. Maybe we might be listening to this for the next 2 hours. It might be that.
Accusing someone,
like what Alex
which
Jones does.
time
accusing
zone?
someone of being
Yeah.
paid to do genocide apologia. I mean, that's pretty fucking disgusting.
I don't know. I feel like I'm granting your characterization.
I feel like you're saying it's like a
I'm
step.
just gonna-
It feels like you're saying it's like a step above. I'm saying it's just as bad as Alex Jones. Like that is on the level of you faked your kid's death. It's the same level.
I am taking exception just with the Sandy Hook comparison one specifically, and I was just wanted to clarify what you meant by the Alex Jones type thing. If you just mean like these kinds of baseless conspiracy theories without evidence, I grant that.
I
But
mean,
don't have the same intuition about the Sandy Hook children. I just find that to be more reprehensible.
I mean a baseless, disgusting smear is basically what I mean. Like a completely baseless, disgusting smear. So when I compare the
I
two that
totally
we're talking
agree.
about,
That's why I totally agree, and that's why I retweeted Brian Tyler Cohen and him responding to Hassan, because I found that to be a baseless, disgusting smear.
yeah, but I'm so yeah, sorry, not yet, but I'm saying that Hassan wants it both ways. Like he wants to be able to do these because I know he doesn't actually think that these people are being paid to do Israeli propaganda. Like he's just lying. Like he knows that whatever he says to his audience, he can get them to get on board with, and he has literally, or figuratively shock trained them into just believing what he says. But at the same time, he's also telling his audience, I need to repair with Brian. Like why is that? Why do you think that is, by the way? Like it's because Brian is one of the biggest creators on the platform. I
Yes,
looked at his
there it
monthly
is.
views and it's fucking insane.
Yes.
Like Brian, do you know how many views Brian Tyler Cohen gets every month?
He gets a month. I don't know. He gets hundreds of thousands of views on his like main
What?
news videos.
It's tens of millions,
Brian
isn't
gets
it?
like over 100 million views. a month,
Okay, yeah.
I think.
that doesn't surprise me.
That, but there
That's
might
a
be
lot.
shorts wrapped into that as well. But still, it's a
You had a
ton.
question there. It was like, what? Why would he do that? Why would he at once claim Chorus, a project that Brian promotes, is doing this kind of genocide stuff, and also be willing to try to like mend bridges? I don't know. Is that your question? Is like, what is the explanation for that?
Not a question. I'm making an observation. Like, he's trying to have it both ways. If Brian was just like a medium-sized creator or a smaller creator, he would not try to have any kind of, he said, the way he described it is, I need to do a little bit of repair with Brian. And this was like moments after he accused somebody of being paid by Chorus to do like Israeli propaganda or something like that. And it's because Brian in the last 30 days, Pisco, has gotten 178 million views. This fucking guy. Can I just have some of his money? He doesn't need all that money. He could just give me.
He's
like,
doing big
I think
things.
that's 20 bucks,
He's
right?
doing big
You know.
things.
No,
It's
fucking pathetic is my point.
Is like unprincipled.
Yes, that's not the word I'm looking for though. First of all, I think it's fucking
Club-driven?
hilarious that he could just announce his master plan.
Yes,
to
it's
his
so
audience
fucking annoying, and
of
nobody cares, and nobody
basically,
calls
like,
him out on our catches on
manipulating
it.
Brian. That's what we were talking about. Like he's just like,
He's doing the same
"Chat,
thing with
you gotta
mainstream
trust me,
media
okay? I
now.
gotta do some repair with Brian because he knows all these DC consultants, and they're all like on my ass this morning because I said I would vote third party. So I got to do some repair with Brian, but also in the
Why is that
same
manipulation?
breath, because in the same breath he's
Oh
saying,
my god.
in the same breath he's saying Chorus is paying influencers to do Israeli propaganda. So what he's telling his audience is like, oh, I need to like manipulate Brian basically. Like I need to like manipulate I need to have like a good relationship. I have to like play politics with him to have a better relationship with him. But I also want the ability to
And before
you know,
Pisco, but isn't that good? Don't we want to be
baselessly smear
political?
creators as Chorus paid Israeli
Don't we want him to
propagandists.
support us?
It's fucking ridiculous. Like it's actually kind of crazy that he said that out loud to his stream. As if nobody with a direct line to Brian wasn't going to reach out to Brian and be like, just so you know, this is what's going on. It's fucking insane.
Is the point that like strategically it's fucking stupid? If his goal was to do X, why would he do Y?
It's actually, it's more that it's hubris. It's hubris that he thought that he could tell his audience of like 30,000 people that he needs to play politics with Brian. And that no one was going to be no one was going to like reach out to Brian and warn him that this is what, first of all, this is what Hassan is like saying about Chorus every other fucking week.
You know what I just realized? Pisco's like a 4-year-old where it's like, you have to go to bed. Why? Because you're going to be tired in the morning if you don't sleep. Why? This is like the Louis C.K. bit. Like, this is like, Jesus.
On his stream, but also he's telling his audience that he wants a better relationship with you so he can get these quote-unquote DC consultants off of his ass. Like, it's kind of wild that he didn't think that someone was going to reach out to Brian.
Wouldn't it be more fake to like withhold your criticism of Chorus while trying to mend bridges with Brian? I feel like wouldn't it be more fake to be like, if you felt that something was wrong with Chorus, assuming he did, and you like withhold that, wouldn't that be like fake?
Like, this is such a stupid, syntactically correct question. Like, if you really genuinely believe that there Israeli paid propaganda for genocide apologia, and Brian Tyler Cohen is like the head representative of that, why would you want to have anything to do with that organization? This is like the evilest of all evils. This is what genocide is. Why would you want anything to do at all with it? So you can't pretend on one side, oh yeah, I need to build this bridge, blah, 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 while also saying they're getting paid by Israel to do genocide apologia. That's such an obvious, I don't know why you have to spell this out. Ugh.
I mean, just don't. Is there an inconsistency in saying his belief about Chorus and also saying he wants to mend the bridge with Brian, except for the fact that it would probably make it less likely that you'd be able to mend bridges with Brian?
But why would he not assume that somebody would just reach out to Brian and give Brian a heads up? It's crazy to me, right?
Maybe the answer is, and I'm not saying this is true, is because he believes both things, right? He is willing to say what he says, even though it will incur some reputational cost with Brian.
Oh my God.
Or maybe he's stupid and didn't think of it, or maybe I don't know. How else do you explain it? That he's just hubristic and
I don't think
dumb and not calculating.
Yes, I mean, I think it's hubris, like I said, but like, I don't think he actually thinks these things about these creators. Is my point. I think he doesn't actually think that they're being paid by fucking Chorus to do Israeli propaganda.
Wait,
I think he
then
just
why would he
lies.
say that, then?
Because Pisco, he just lies. Do you understand this about him? He just lies. He does not give a fuck. He will lie about you.
But it's not even a self-serving lie, because you're saying it's counter to his goal. Of,
Oh
It's
my
serving in his broader
God.
goal of like turning people against the libs. Like that's his biggest project right now. It's less like being anti-Trump and more turning people away from the lib establishment or whatever. That's his number one goal. And so in service of that goal, he will very casually, with no evidence whatsoever, just accuse people of being paid by courts to do Israeli propaganda. Like, he knows that it's bullshit.
Maybe he believes it.
He doesn't, though. Like, I don't know why people are... I was like you at one point, Pisco. So naive. You know, so full of youthful optimism about people. And the more...
Isn't this the Trump thing?
There are
Maybe he
deranged
believes
people who
that the
believe
event
deranged
was
things
or
without
the
any
election was
evidence.
stolen.
I mean,
True, but there's also
that's
like
true.
people that lie about things, like just baselessly, shamelessly,
Sure.
consistently lie about
Collargate,
things.
how long he said for global entry, other shit. Like, yeah, no, I totally grant that. I'm just like, here's an example where it almost feels like either he's impulsive or he has integrity, perhaps in this instance, because notwithstanding, unless you think he's lying about trying to mend bridges with Brian, notwithstanding that, he went out and said something that was directly counter to that goal. And the response, well, he's just lying because he lives to lie. I'm just like, well, I don't know. Like, maybe he's lying. I don't have a strong view there, but
So what I think is that he views his streams as these like big old bubbles. Usually it's only like the super viral stuff, the super kind of more sensational stuff that goes viral. But he streams like 6-8 hours a day for basically like 7 days a week. And the vast majority of that content doesn't go viral. It's just, you know, there's just a lot of kind of filler content. And I think he was, in his mind, he was like being kind of Machiavellian and scheming and shrewd, but it's just kind of wild that he looks at it.
you really think that he
in
gets
this kind
clipped
of
a
way.
lot, man?
Yeah, I do.
You
I
think
really
that he
do.
was going to say something and then
Wait,
he's
can I-
very, very dumb.
Wait, can I show you the clip? Can I just show you the clip?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're too important to be. What did you say? You're too important to be having a conversation with these course people? No, I need to do a little bit of cleanup here. I think you guys don't understand. There needs to be a cleanup here. Okay? There needs to be a little bit of pushback here because these guys do speak directly to the fucking consultant class. That's why Trey Easton of the Searchlight Institute joined it on the fucking pylon. Okay? Can we just trust my judgment here every now and then? Can
So
we
good.
have a fraction of confidence?
Piece is going to be like, what's the problem?
So good.
Wait, was that Mooten speaking?
Yeah.
Oh, because I can't. Pisco should be kicked off of Live and Learn. I'm sorry, I know that sounds aggressive, and maybe even soy pill. It should be a lib show, like with liberals. How is it so much talk about these tanky fucks? Like, let them do their own thing, let them build their own thing, let them have their own spaces. It's so fucking annoying how much of the discourse is captured by talking about these people that hate Democrats, right? What Hassan is talking about is Hassan had this whole thing blow up recently where he was a little bit too mask off about how he would vote for a third party over Newsom versus.
Oh yeah, that was retarded.
Yeah, but Hassan has been trying to play with his little PR firm and everything else. He's been trying to play politics and clout chase recently, where he's like, I need to get in good with all these like media people. That's why now you'll hear him say for the first time ever, he's like, the mainstream media is really important. They help what I do. I couldn't do without the mainstream media. I wouldn't have anybody to report on. You know, I'm just a political commentator. So he's telling his audience like blatantly, like, yeah, we got to get in good and we need to do some reputation repair because you know our shit's kind of fucked right now. And it's just kind of funny to say that, because you're like blatantly admitting that you don't give a fuck, or you're not like principally aligned with any of these people. You're just using them to like rebuild your reputation. Like that's a retardedly crazy thing to say.
You fucking questioning my judgment? It's such a good clip.
Pisco's going to pretend not to
underappreciated clip.
understand. Pisco's going to pretend that it's not a big
All right, are you there? Can you hear me?
Loading.
You're still muted.
Loading.
I don't know.
He's loading.
My bad. Yep, saw the clip. Just give me 1 second to restore.
It's so good.
Honor.
That's such a
It's-
good clip.
Okay. So he said, let's do a cleanup here. And then he immediately proceeded to go on Twitter and like talk shit, right?
Well, it's not really the point.
So
but
not immediately. No, this was like a few days later. There was some creator. The context of the
just
post from
took the
last
wrong
night was there was
thing
some
away.
creator that Here, let me just follow the thread here. It's right here. So like there was a guy named Zachary Kirk, who is looks like a liberal creator that likes Jasmine Crockett. And,
Loner would be a
he
good
posted
addition.
like a pro
Loner
Crockett,
Box would be good because Loner Box, I think, is like wherever he is on the political spectrum, he's like he's right there. Like he's a good backstop to people being retarded. I feel like Loner would be like the furthest left person I could ever like see myself politically aligned with. But the most important thing about Loner Box is like he won't let any fuck shit get away. Or get away from him, or anybody get away with any fuck shit around him. Like he knows exactly the games that are played with some of these people. Probably doesn't. Oh.
Hey, Raider.
It probably doesn't help that everybody's killing me in these cases. But it probably doesn't help that Hassan personally went after Lunderbox for like a year too. But
video down here. And then Hassan quote retweeted this person and said, "Chorus-funded creators need to stop doing shit like this. Straight up Israeli-esque."
no, but if I see one, I'll let you know.
Yeah, here, I got one. Right here, do you want it?
Oh no, I know it already. I just don't have one. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Does anybody need a snapping blueprint?
This fucking
Kill that
guy.
motherfucker.
First of all,
Here to this,
where is he getting that this person is a chorus creator? Like, where did he get that? The fuck is that all about?
I have no idea.
Alex Jones is my point. I mean, and he tied it to Israel. He tied it to Israel.
Unless
You know?
there's a basis to know that. Yeah, I would agree.
He tied it to Israel, and then Brian called him out, and then Hassan said what he said. But like, this is my point where it's like hubris and stupidity. So like, he does think that he can have it both ways, or he can just deploy this, chorus attack anytime. I guess anytime a creator posts something that he doesn't like, I guess is what's happening here. And then at the same time, he's like, but chat, you gotta trust me. I gotta repair. I gotta repair with Brian. He's got too many DC consultant friends. They're all fucking jumping in my mentions this morning. The whole thing.
I just thought it was the best example of like an inconsistency on that thing. Like I totally agree that it's Alex Jones-esque to assert that they're I don't know, chorus funded if there's no proof of that or no basis to believe that it's done to avoid Israel criticism. I agree with that, but like it doesn't seem to be inconsistent with trying to repair relationships with Brian Tyler Cohen. If anything, it would show like integrity if he actually believed it, right?
But he doesn't, though. This is my point. Do you think he actually believes it?
God.
I'm not sure. That if you mean
I
if he's
don't
actually lying about
know.
what he thinks chorus
Yeah, I mean,
is
do you
with
think
respect to Israel?
I
do you
didn't
think
know
that he
that.
thinks that he can just call people,
Oh, I
chorus
didn't see
created,
that.
chorus,
That's the first time I'm
Israeli
hearing of it.
assets, and he knows that just a big chunk of his audience will discredit those people. Like in their minds, that person will have been discredited. Therefore, ... you don't have to like listen to their criticism or pay attention to anything they have to say. They're just chorus Israeli assets. Like that's what he's doing. It's all a big effort to discredit people. This is like his MO.
Knowing that they're not chorus funded.
No, but specifically like tying it to like Israeli propaganda, which is
Why is he acting so fucking retarded? What?
Hey,
Wait.
triple
So
as he is.
when he ties it to Israeli stuff, you're saying that he's trying to like discredit their opinions broadly? Like, really? Are you saying that? Oh, so like, can you explain that? Like, what? So like, wait. Do you mean like Hassan doesn't trust Israel as well? Like, or he thinks that they're all lying about that stuff? Or like, what do you like? Oh my God.
But that's what he does. Like the chorus thing is just for him a vector to tie it to like the broader kind of Israel stuff.
Got it. But like, can I just take this one at a time? So this guy Zachary Kirk, is there a basis to believe that he's a chorus funded creator?
Well, there's somebody in my chat that's
Why
saying
are we
that,
talking about chorus?
Taylor said he was in chorus. But that's
Because Pisco at his heart. And this is why no matter what he does, and no matter how many mean things I say about him, this is why Pisco will always be my boy, okay? He's a debate lord, okay? And I respect it. He's a debate lord, and he could do this.
He's a debater.
He's a debate pervert. He's a debate pedophile, and he could do this for 12 hours. And I could too, and I love it. But holy Christ. Oh my God, double Rocketeer, please no.
I'm losing on this. Let me pivot. Let's talk about something just completely irrelevant.
Something like that.
again, that's not the point though. That's not the point. Like he's using chorus again as he's framing them as a organization that is doing Israeli propaganda.
I would say the framing there is implying that like there's a broader pattern of chorus apologia for Israel. Although
Oh my God. So when you say that they are being paid for by Israel, the implication is not that they're doing Israel apologia. The implication is that they're being paid by Israel to do it, and they're concealing it. What are you talking? These are two totally different claims.
I want to say that that's like a level removed from what I would like. I thought that there was no basis to conclude this guy was in chorus, but I'm happy to say that like that part of the framing, as you know, chorus is in the tank for Israel. Without additional evidence, I don't agree with that framing. But I would put that at a different level removed than like just claiming people are chorus funded because of their Israel takes. You know.
Dumb that down for me. Dumb that down for me.
Okay. So if there's a basis legitimately to believe that a person is chorus funded, and it seems like in this case there might have been a basis to believe that he's chorus funded, then saying things like chorus funded people need to stop doing X, Y, or Z, or chorus funded people need to do, you know, with reference to a specific purpose, it starts to feel less of Alex Jones like, except to the extent in which he's playing in this framing of chorus, kind of implicitly, this framing that chorus is a Zionist project, which I will grant you that has been the narrative that a lot of leftists, including
my
Hassan,
God, bro.
promoted. But it doesn't feel as Alex Jonesy, that example.
Well,
We're back on the Alex
I think,
Jones
even
shit.
above, even at a more meta level, above like the Israel stuff. I think like the broader claim about chorus is that they are a slush fund to pay creators to push the Democratic establishment like party line. And so they use Taylor. I say they, I mean like the populist left or whatever will be just like very broad. They use Chorus as a way to sort of get people to dismiss anyone whose opinions they don't like. But, like I disagree with this creator that Jasmine Crockett is the better candidate. Okay, that's fine. That's not a big deal. But like Taylor takes it further, right? So like, you know, I'm just pulling up a tweet of hers on the screen right here.
Yep.
You know, she quote
You
retweeted
watched
the same
Rick
thing.
and
Said
Morty,
this guy
right,
was in the
Steve?
Chorus 16.
Just like the first 2 seasons. Why?
Do you remember the episode where they had like caught Rick and then they were in the Shonies and then they go on like a whole thing and then you find out that you're still fucking in the Shonies? That's how I feel about fucking Pisco debates. It's like, stop, we're still in the Shonies.
30 dark.
What are the Shonies? I don't know what you mean by Shonies, but you're talking about the one where he was, where they're in the
It's like-
simulation
it's
and
like
the
the
simulation and the
restaurant.
simulation, right? Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Money
Yeah.
funding program, by the way. Content like this is certainly profitable. So like I think the obvious inference there is that this creator is being paid to, you know, like stifle the populist left, which in this case would be Tallarico, right? Like they've you know, the populist left, they've caught on to kind of Tallarico in the last week. I don't know if you've noticed, but like Emma Vignett's been talking about him positively and Hassan's been talking about him positively. And so a creator,
I'm getting prepared to make some endorsements myself. I'm guessing it's like Israel positioning, that Tallarico is more openly against Israel funding than Crockett is.
I don't know if he's even spoken about Israel yet. I think it's more that he's a populist. He's like it's not about left or right, it's about up and down, and it's because he's a populist.
Okay.
He's like, you know, anti-corporate.
Also, leftists really don't like black people that aren't socialists. Woo! Leftists are so mad that they let the N-word get away from them, and the right claim that, because god damn, would they sling it hard.
Anti-billionaire.
I have gotten the sense that more lefties are starting to catch on to Tallarico and support Tallarico directly. I do get that impression.
Right. And so, you know, in the context of that, you have this one kind of, how many followers does Zachary Kirk have here? It's 14,000, you know, not like a huge creator or whatever, but he comes out and he's like pro Crockett. And then Taylor reposts him and says, this guy's a part of the fucking dark money slush fund. And then Hassan, I don't know if you posted that after or before, then Hassan jumps on it and adds the whole like Israeli element. It's their way of like trying to discredit people. That's his entire MO. Yeah. So like I think Hassan has figured out that he can sort of condition his audience to take his lead. And if he tells his audience, oh, you can't listen to this person, and there's like 1,000 like fill in the blanks.
Pedophile.
And it's usually like a lot of times it's like a straw man argument.
Personal.
Or, you know, he's done it to me a number of times where he'll take a clip like with no context whatsoever and then pretend as though, you know, I literally want to like court segregationists into the party, for example. So it's usually some kind of straw man attack or some kind of baseless smear. But like this is how they operate. It's not new. Like this is not like a new strategy for propagandists to do. This has been like an established thing that works for like hundreds of years. But yeah, that's what I see is happening there.
So, would you have a problem if Hassan said something like this? I hate it when left-wing influencers or liberal influencers repeat Israel talking points and act as surrogates for Israel. Would you have a problem with him saying that in the same level of like disingenuousness and bad faith? Presumably not, right? If he just said,
I would have less of a problem with that because that's less of a smear. Because at that point you're just saying, oh, you agree with Israel. But as soon as you start attaching like a financial incentive, oh, you're getting paid to do Israeli talking points,
way
that I think
different.
puts it in a new tier.
It does.
Especially in the context of the language of genocide. Because his whole thing was like the libs.
Also, why is Pisco working so hard here to clean up Hassan's language? Like, he's a big boy. He's done, if you believe him, politics his whole fucking life. Like, if you have to do so much work to workshop and clean up and ameliorate the things he's saying.
I'll call it a genocide, live stream Holocaust, As soon as you add like, oh, he's being paid to essentially do genocide apologia, then I think it takes it down to a level that is right down in the mud with Alex Jones' fake school shootings situation.
Got it.
It's just like this, you know, there's no depths that he will not sink to in his dishonesty. He will use any smear
About liberals.
that he thinks will give him some kind of a tactical advantage. He has no fidelity to the truth at all. Like he does not give a flying fuck.
True.
This is what I'm trying to say. But I don't know. We can this isn't really what I wanted to.
Oh, now we can start the
spend my time with you
conversation.
this morning talking about.
No, but
30
I
minutes
think it's
in?
interesting. We can move on, but I just have like a few other things. Like, I'm about to give you like a different scenario, which isn't the same, and there are ways that you can distinguish it. But for example, for the tenant media thing, right? There are absolutely, you know, a closer connection between Edward Gregorian. I mean, was essentially a shell entity for Russian government actors. No doubt about that, right?
Yeah.
No doubt about that. In that context, if there were a clear money link where it's like, is like some sort of Israeli interest group has contributed large amounts of money to the Chorus Fund. In that context, let's try to make it more applicable. Or hell, let's even say Israel is making some sort of illegal, FARA-violating contribution or something, or some other.
That's still not the same as tenant.
Into the fund itself. Would you be okay with them making these same kinds of comments? In other words, because I don't think that we would have like, we don't really care about saying Tim Pool is just Russian propaganda. Tim Pool. Now they maintain we weren't influencing our content at all. This was hands off. Is it? You don't have a problem with that, correct? It's just like the lack of, or the presence of attenuation between the source of funds and the lack of any evidence of government involvement.
Oh my God,
I think it's more the
bro.
fact, Pisco, that the idea that Chorus could be some kind of a paid Israeli propaganda effort was utterly and completely annihilated within days of that reporting. I feel like you would have had to have gone out of your way to not see the many receipts that creators were dropping in the days that followed that article. Examples of Chorus creators that were not only outspoken about Israel, but they were using the same language. Like they were using the same really strong, harsh language for people like Chuck Schumer. They were calling it a genocide, these kinds of things. Like you had to have gone out of your way to miss those things. But the whole point is like these creators that have this influence, they will head off that kind of stuff by discrediting these people in the way that I just told you about. So it kind of makes perfect sense that a lot of people in Hassan's audience didn't see those receipts because he and all of that whole ecosystem, they just like smear and lie everybody. And as soon as you tell your audience, oh, this person's being paid to apologize, to do apologia for
Jesus,
a genocide, then of course it makes sense that they didn't see any of those receipts because in their minds they're like, oh, this guy's a genocide. Why would I even watch a 10-second clip when they're doing genocide apologia? And so like the whole thing, Pisco, the whole thing is intentionally dishonest. That's my point. They know they're lying. It is a conscious, deliberate effort that they're doing to try to discredit people that they think represent a threat to their populist left movement. That's what this is all about. That's what I think.
Got it. I think that it runs the gamut between people who are intentionally deceptive and making false implications or leaving enough question marks, and people who genuinely either are hoodwinked that there's some additional evidence of like Israeli influence or Israeli aligned influence in some of these creators. So I'm not sure that I'm going to label that all these people, whoever the denominator is, are all lying. I don't think I
Notice how he broadened it now to all these people on the strongest claim, so he can always like make a non-statement of like, well, I don't think every single person was involved in the craziest conspiratorial mislabeling of people ever. And it's like, what are we even saying at this point?
justify that claim. But surely I think that you have a responsibility if you've accused people of being.
And now we get like a general
paid
harm reduction
Israel
statement,
shills or
like,
something
oh,
like
don't do
that.
a bad thing.
There
It's
should be
obviously
substantiation.
bad.
I have
Pretty
less of a
serious
problem
allegation.
I think it's a super serious allegation. That's one of the reasons why I think disclosure is important, not just because I think it's the right thing to do in terms of your audience, but also because I think at times it can inoculate you by showing that you're upfront about, that you're getting money from this particular place. And almost like the lack of disclosure on that, I think it hurts a lot of these creators. That said, it might also put a target on their back for like bad faith actors or whatever. That said, like, thing is, people can draw conclusions based on money in politics, money in this or that, the source of money. Everyone does it. And I would absolutely take issue and do take issue with people turning Chorus into something that it's not when there's no evidence of it. That's why I retweeted Brian Tyler Cohen. That's why I take the stance that I do. That's why I'm in support of Chorus existing. That said, like, if it's funded in a particular way, there are going to be criticisms of it that way, and not all of the criticisms are bad faith criticisms.
Oh, what a oh my God. That's just the most
Not every
retarded shit
criticism is
ever.
No, I feel like you're kind of doing gymnastics here, buddy.
He is.
What?
He is.
What's the gymnastics?
It's so
What did I say
much
that's unreasonable?
gymnastics. This is a very crystal clear thing. There is no evidence that Chorus or that Chorus creators are shilling pro-Israel talking points because they're getting funded by Israel. There is no evidence whatsoever of that. To broaden that, like, well, maybe some people there might be a donor to the 1630 fund who might be Israeli, and maybe that money makes its way to Chorus, and it's possible that it may be somebody. Like, what the fuck? What are we even talking about at this point? What a nonsense line of argumentation to shill or cover for an obviously bullshit claim.
So I just learned about a Mott and Bailey. I feel like this is like a Mott and Bailey.
Oh,
where,
true.
Like, the
It is.
Bailey would be, like trying to defend. Not that you made this argument. Like trying to defend the idea that you can just like casually accuse people of doing Israel propaganda. It feels like you retreated to a more defensible position of like, well,
Anything
there are
could
some
be
issues
anything.
With, the idea of like any kind of dark funding and disclosure. Therefore, I can understand like why people have those complaints. But I'm not talking about that. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand that that's like. I somewhat agree with you. I think that disclosure is good. So, for example, 16, 15 years ago, when major companies first started sponsoring YouTubers, it was kind of like the wild, wild west because the FCC wasn't really monitoring that space in the same way. And so I would get contracts for sponsored content, and it would specifically say in the contract, don't disclose. So like these advertisers knew that, at least for the time being, FCC was not paying attention to that space because it was like burgeoning and new, and there were no, there weren't the same kind of regulatory eyes on that space. And so I would send the contracts back and say, no, I insist that I'm going to tell my audience that this is paid. Like it feels dishonest. So
that's good.
I do understand that is a defensible argument. I agree with that argument. I think disclosure would be better. I'm also sympathetic to the idea that these creators could be targeted by this fucking psychopathic online populist left who are completely deranged and unhinged. And so I'm a little bit sympathetic to that as well. But I'm not talking about these kinds of like reasonable critiques of the structure and the non-disclosure. Like, okay, that's fine. I agree with you on some of that, or maybe even most of that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the idea of if a creator shows up on your feed and you just want to discredit them in the eyes of your audience, you just baselessly accuse them of being paid by Israel to do propaganda. Like that is so far removed from the critique that you just gave.
I don't have any intention of doing a Mott and Bailey or anything like that. I would condemn reflexively or knowingly, maliciously accusing people of taking money without any evidence. I hope that you didn't get the impression that I would think that that's like good or okay or justifiable or whatever. All I'm saying is like, I think what you were asking for was like a broader set of condemnations around quote unquote like these people and their different problems. And I just like, some people are lying for sure. Some people are delusional. Some people have what I take to be good faith criticism, even if I don't agree with it. And that's all I'm saying is that all criticism of Chorus is not illegitimate. Some of it is. And when you point to specific examples by specific people, 100%, I'm there. But like, for example, if APAC gave money directly to this fund or whatever, or to creators, I don't think we would have a problem with them. They're paid Israel shills, right? Even if they're like, but no, APAC doesn't influence what I do. Now in this case, I think the evidence is not strong that there's any sort of content regulation, any kind of specific ideological other than pro-Democrat that is like tailoring content of any kind. But I just think that there's like different contexts and different criticisms, and I'm not sure what I'm signing up to when you ask me to condemn certain things or call them lies. I'm happy to do that for specific critiques, but I don't think that all critiques of Chorus are like that. I don't think that's unreasonable or a Mott and Bailey.
I guess this feels like it is relevant in the context of the larger conversation that I've been having with like you a lot in the last like 9 months or however long it's been, where I feel like I'm trying to get you to see like a larger issue that's at play here, which is that I think that the goals of the lefties, like the bigger creators that I talk about, are not in line with what I thought you and me are trying to do. And I guess that's why that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. Because
I agree with that.
I want to figure out if we actually do have the same
realizing Pisco's crazy
goals. So I wanted to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah, me.
Okay, so when Josiah reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to do a podcast with other liberals, I don't know if he pitched it in a way that made me think that it would be framed as, for liberals as opposed to, like for lefties or populist lefties or whatever. Like, but in my mind, when he asked me if I wanted to come on the podcast, I took it to mean like an alternative liberal podcast in contrast with what I think is like the more dominant kind of left-wing politics online, which is more populist left and fuck the Dems flowchart and all that kind of stuff. Was that your understanding when you started the podcast? Yeah.
There've been some changes where it's like Midas and these other people who I think are more unapologetically, pro-liberal, pro-democracy, that kind of stuff. But in general, no, I think that Josiah viewed a kind of like a niche for lib content creators who like enthusiastically will support.
I feel like Hutch is about to break up with him.
Comes to vote and be a kind of bulwark, for lack of a better.
I think a big issue with Pisco too, because a lot of his stuff, I think a lot of this is like psychologically rooted. It's not like he hates Democrats or anything, but like This sounds so mean, I guess, but I feel like Pisco keeps a lot of really bad company. Like the fact that I think he legitimately considers like Rob Noor to be either a close friend or like a friend, and then he goes to like all these Ryan Mullally debates or Mullany, whatever that guy is. Like he has all of these people that are like in his orbit that are like the worst types of horribly bad faith debaters that he'll like personally go to bat for. Like. And it's strange because when you watch Pisco argue with these people, it's not like Pisco's capitulating. Like when I watch Pisco debate with Ryan or when I watch Pisco debate with Rob Noor, it's not like Pisco's like cucking out to them, like saying like, oh yeah, you're right about everything. But I wonder if they're having an impact on his argumentation or his like the way that he mind models the world or something. I don't know. It's really weird. His like just the group of people that he's always like doing content with, I feel like are really, really bad outside of the live and learn people.
Her word against socialist LARPing.
Sorry, so that's what you did think that the podcast would be? Is that like we're an alternative?
Like if you can imagine every single conservative podcast ever, what are you doing? You know, here's the evil trans people for the day. Here's what God Emperor Trump said for the day. Here's all of our right-wing fanatics that, oh, you guys like Orban? You guys like Tommy Robinson? You guys like the AFD? Like it's like the daily digest of fucking far-right propaganda every single time on every single right-wing show, all the time, always. And then you have like a show called Live and Learn, and it's like half the time is infighting with tankies that want to destroy the fucking party and cancerously rot it from the inside out. Like, again, I understand that we don't have the same like inoculation against far left terms, but imagine you have a right-wing show and you're bringing on people called like, fuck, I don't know any of the Nazi terminology, the Schwarzenegger, whatever the fuck, whatever fucking buzzword or whatever. Like, it would just be so crazy, although it doesn't sound that crazy because they would probably all still be supporting Trump. But like, you have guys called like the Vanguard, right? Like the Vanguard is a reference to radical socialist movements. The Vanguard is like the radical Marxist party that violently overthrows the government and overthrows the bourgeois. That's who the Vanguard is. Like these are the names of the people that are coming onto your show and are all like radical Marxist leftists. Like, and they're like, oh, maybe the Democrats can be useful idiots for a while. And it's like, God, it's so fucking exhausting. It's so exhausting.
So socialist like, LARPing?
Wait, what did you say?
Nope.
Oh,
I didn't say anything.
Yeah, like where we don't just shit on Democrats for no reason. Where we, I mean, the podcast is called Live and Learn. He was thinking about getting liberal creators who support the American project and who support our candidates when the time comes.
Gotcha.
And instead of having like just shame all the time, for there to be some pride in standing up against the threat of Republicans and fascism.
Okay, all right. So I want to get into your mind, dear Pisco, who I love.
Oh boy.
And you are in fact my boy.
Uh-oh.
My title says that you're the devil. That's just a meme. That's just a meme. No, hey, give me your question.
No, just so we're clear though, I have decided that Hassan versus reanimated Epstein, I would vote third party, is what I decided. I don't know if you saw.
Really?
Yeah, the update, yeah.
Is that like a meme position? Because that's what Hassan said?
No.
Why can't he even... Imagine if Hutch just said the same thing about like a lefty. I feel like Pisco would do his best to steel man together to assemble a reason why that makes sense. And he's like, what? Is that a fucking meme, bro? Jesus.
So I took what they said to heart, and they made a lot of really great points. And so I think it is a valid strategy. And so if it's Hassan versus reanimated Epstein...
They didn't make good points.
Maybe not to you, but to me, I mean, they really got me to look at this differently.
So it's a meme position. It's a meme position.
Oh
it's not a meme, no. Pisco, I don't know if you want the status quo to continue in the Democratic Party. I feel like if you pledge fealty to Hassan in 2028, that, we're only just going to get more of the same. We'll probably get an even worse reanimated Epstein, 4 years after Hassan. And so, I mean, I live in California, so it's like whatever, right?
These arguments, you're talking to an open door, man. These arguments suck.
I don't think they suck. I'm saying I think they're good arguments. And so, like, I feel like I have leverage, and if I just pledge fealty to Hassan, then I'm giving up my leverage, so.
Well, on the leverage point, I think that this is kind of some prestidigitation by the kind of like strategy bros for Hassan. Because presumably if it's...
Did you catch that, Mooten?
No.
He just used the verb, is it a verb here?
Prestidigitation?
Yeah, what the fuck?
Oh yeah, he must be playing D&D.
You D&D pal, Jesus.
That I did. I thought there was
good strategy. It relies on libs being like butthurt. And so, we're just doing our job here. But I don't know, man, like... I get it. Yeah, their arguments suck, but
I'm not saying that. You're saying that. You're saying that their arguments suck. I think they have good arguments. I think that we should use our leverage to push the party in a direction, and if we don't use our leverage against reanimated Epstein, then what? You would just get more reanimated Epsteins down the line. So I think it actually is a really good argument, and I think moving forward, yeah, that's going to be.
We can disagree on that. I don't think it is.
You don't want to move the party forward?
Well, I do, but I would have to grant that it would move the party forward to do that.
Well, I mean, if you pledge fealty to Hassan versus reanimated Epstein, you don't think the party's just going to get complacent?
I don't think that necessarily it would.
Problem is that Josiah suggested a podcast where they don't criticize tankies all the time, with Hutch and Pisco. Wait, was there another podcast they suggested? Is that what they were talking about? It is kind of funny if you think about it that, like, one of the members of the Live and Learn podcast already had to leave after announcing he was basically a socialist. And then you've got, like...
Who had to leave?
Wasn't a Kano boy? Wasn't he on the podcast?
Jesus.
Yeah. Live and learn, I guess.
Yeah, I think that if anything, winning against Epstein is probably going to be a mandate in and of itself, but will caution any kind of like sweeping. It's almost like the election in UK where it's just pretty much because the Tories were horrible that they get in or something, right? So I don't really think that it would necessarily lead to complacency.
Yeah, but if I pledge fealty to Hassan versus reanimated Epstein, and then Hassan wins,
Pledge fealty?
and then yeah, if I pledge fealty, tell you right now, I will support him if he's the nominee for the Democratic Party, and in doing so, I give up all my leverage, and then he just gets in there and continues the status quo. Then
Why are you doing this? I don't know. This is stupid.
it's not a bit. I'm being serious. I'm being serious. All right, no, hang on. All right, let's get to the. I do want to ask you some questions. Okay. All right. This is important. All right. When you say, actually, you know what would be a good starting point? Like, what label would you give yourself? Would you call yourself a progressive liberal? Just a liberal? Would you call yourself Democrat?
Don't say
socialist,
dem
social
sock.
Democrat?
Oh, God. Say sock dem at
I
least.
call myself a liberal.
Okay. All right.
Just a liberal, not a progressive liberal?
I think I would be accurately called a progressive as well, but I kind of view that term as, again, another chameleon-like term. It means different things to different people. So as I understand the word, I'm using it like socially progressive.
Okay. I want to preface all this by saying that I am not a lawyer. I do not have a lawyer brain. All of these questions that I'm asking you, there is no gotcha in any of these questions. I promise you. I'm genuinely curious because I want to get at why you and I fight and scream at each other so much. So that's good. You would call yourself a liberal. I would say the same thing. I mean, I wouldn't shy away from the progressive label, but I think it has more baggage these days. So maybe your strat is right. But when
I don't shy away from it. I think it's not my first inclination. I would say I'm a liberal, proud liberal Democrat. But I'm not offended by the progressive label.
Okay, when you say liberal, like, what do you mean by that?
I mean it in the sense of someone who's committed to liberal values, freedom, to republicanism. I also use it in that sense as well as the sense of American liberal. So both in the political American context and in the sort of structural governmental context. I believe in property rights. I believe in the existence of certain rights like speech, etc. In addition to bog standard liberal Democrat positions.
Okay. Can you go into more detail about like liberalism? Like, why do you like liberalism? Like, why do you think the alternatives are not as good? Do you think that liberalism is worth like fighting for and preserving? Like, give me a more kind of fleshed out, detailed thought process here.
In the structural sense, liberalism? You mean in the political theory sense, or
Yeah.
I take good to be what we ought do, and I take a view that what we ought do, a moral question, relates to.
Oh my God. Dude, Pisco's chat is a fucking battleground.
Oh, I've been watching it. What are they doing?
Hutch is a right-wing Democrat. So you're pro-corporation?
It's a right-wing Dem?
Let's see. Hutch is audience captured. He has to do the Hassan bad crap because only Diddy G watches him.
Diddy G.
Actual liberal purity test. What the fuck are we doing? Kind of feels like a flowchart right now.
I think a good way to see if like a streamer is gonna like go fucking crazy and like, I don't know, blow up their shit with you is to watch their chat rooms actually.
100%.
And watch how the streamer reacts to their chat.
Yep, 1 trillion percent. This is one of the things that like the Soy Pill talked to me about. I won't say he got mad at me about it, but like I was like, if your chat is like universally calling me like a fucking pedophile and shit, and you're just like whatever on it,
back? Yeah,
that's
100%.
like I'm good on that. I'm good on that, Chief. I don't need that. Apparently, this is one of
Pisco's. When I was
Pisco's.
streaming on Twitch, sometimes I'd have people come over and like anti-fan, and I would just fucking like ban them.
Yeah,
or
of
whatever,
course.
because like I
But
mean,
it
you're
also-
my friend, and like
Yeah, not only should you take a more active role in it, it says something if those types of people feel at home there.
Yes.
Yeah. This guy is apparently Pisco's mod. Hutch only exists as a Hassan op, nothing else. Cernas? Is that true? Jesus. Good one.
Preferences.
Thank you, Eliminator, for the 5
certain
gifted.
preferences. And those preferences map on to the existence of certain rights, and the existence, in addition to those rights, of a value of, for lack of a better term, social well-being, and that unfortunately is going to be a composite of a bunch of different, states of mind and states of pleasure, et cetera, advancement that for now we'll just leave it there, social well-being. And given that that's my preferences for the world I would like to see, I see sort of different political systems that in general would tend to maximize the protection of the rights that I value and the outcomes that I value. And in that respect, I think that a liberal system is the best at that, at least from what I've seen.
So I agree. And I look at it through a historical context as well. And I look at it through a comparison between liberal democracies and more autocratic regimes. And when I look at a country like China, where I'm sure you can find people that in their day...
The clipper that Hassan was watching the other day, Substance is a massive Pisco channel donor. That guy's also one of my number one haters. He's also, I'm pretty sure he like runs in all of those Gisticle Discord servers. He's one of the big Brigader guys as well. There's like 5 or 10 different Gisticle people that constantly brigade and monitor like every fucking Discord server in this orbit. And then some of them give big money for it. I think Doobie is one of them. I didn't know Substance was a donor guy as well. Is he actually?
Today lives feel contentment or stimulation or pleasure or satisfaction. And I don't think that the current Chinese state is necessarily like directly comparable to the kind of government that we saw in Orwell's 1984, right? Like there's gradients of bad, but when I look at a state like China and I consider the fact that what the conversation that you and I are having right now, you just can't have that conversation in a public forum in that country, and that is something.
In a free society that I don't like the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I'm against authoritarian regimes, including the communist systems that we have seen emerge, is precisely because they don't protect rights, like in China.
Yes.
If you could truly call it communistic at this point, some aspect of communism for sure, but it seems like following the fall of the Berlin Wall, that
state capitalism.
There's some differences in how
How does Pisco keep these anti-fans around his company? This sounds like an insult, but it's a secret compliment. Like, I think especially before diving into the online politics world full time, I think Pisco was just kind of more normie, and that he had like a good, obviously he knows law, he knows his job and everything really well. And then I think he knows like actual kind of politics kind of well, but I don't think he knew anything about like the online political landscape. Like when I was talking to him a few months ago when he wanted to have that huge screaming show with me or whatever, like he didn't know what a Marxist Leninist was, or he didn't know what like a communist was really. Like in his mind, these people were all still just kind of like, oh, if you're a communist or a socialist, that just means you're like really liberal. You must want a lot of trans rights or something. And I don't know if he'll catch up to that. Remember, one of the psychological things holding Pisco back is that like when he commits to a position, it is almost impossible for him to ever change positions. It's almost impossible. So yeah, who knows if he'll ever be moved off it or not.
Do it, but regardless, I don't like how China does their shit.
Yes, so neither do I. I find it not 1984 dystopian, but like on the path for sure. And I think of the fact that this conversation is just like, I'll just repeat myself, is not possible. We could not have an open, frank, honest discussion about criticisms of our government at a macro level if we lived in China. The pushback that I get a lot of the times is, well, people are allowed to criticize their local governments in China, but that plays into the larger problem that I see with a country like China is because the Chinese Communist Party, like the way that they keep tabs on local governments to make sure that they're, like competent or doing their jobs is through the local population expressing their discontent. But those people are not allowed, straight up not allowed, to criticize the top of the power structure in China. And so to me, like that, whatever fancy bells and whistles they have with their infrastructure, that stuff to me is not worth the price of not being able to have this conversation. So this sort of
I
right,
totally agree with that.
right. So like I didn't think about rights in this kind of way until Trump came along and threatened the liberal kind of government, democratic government that we have in this country. Like I sounded a lot like the kind of lefties that I have a problem with when I was in my 20s and like going into my 30s. Like straight up, I mean, it was very similar kind of rhetoric, and it was Trump coming along that threatened these things that got me to appreciate them in a way that I didn't before. I'm just telling you this to sort of inform you about like why I say the things that I do and why I focus on the things that I do. Because there was a point in the conversation we had on the pod on Monday where you framed it as though the reason I was speaking up was because I had a personal axe to grind with Hassan or like other people. And I think
it's possible.
That's part of
Oh
it.
my God.
That's part of it. I find myself like very. I do have personal issues. I do have personal issues with the way that Hassan conducts himself. But the thing that I'm more focused on when I talk about him a lot is the threat that I think he poses to this system. And I agree with you. I think this is like the best system that the world has ever seen so far. We could have some kind of epical shift at some point, and we move away from liberal democracy, and something better comes along. But so far, the spanning human history, I prefer liberal democracy over like living under a pharaoh or a Caesar or a monarch. And I think that it is like not only worth protecting, but we really need to be like vigilant in the fight right now because it's under threat in a way that it hasn't in decades. But I've been speaking I do have other questions, but I want to let you jump in and.
Yeah, so like I don't know that there's disagreement there. I hope that people haven't gotten the wrong impression. I feel like the majority of my impulse against MAGA has to do with structural liberal concerns, like separation of powers, the elimination of arbitrary power, the imposition of procedural guardrails, upon which all of our rights are premised.
Bro, these fucking Hutch chatters, or I'm sorry, these Pisco chatters. LOL, I wouldn't even know Hassan without DGG. What? And then this guy responds, me too, LOL. I started watching him, and I started watching Hassan and stopped watching Destiny. What? You've never heard? Okay, very real chatters, very real comments for sure.
Everything I said about Mahmoud Khalil, even the defense of Hassan Piker for global entry, even if you don't agree with my factual assessment, though I think it's accurate,
chilling.
That is coming from a liberal perspective, namely that we don't want viewpoint discrimination to exist except in areas of the highest concern and only for narrow purposes, because to allow a broader set of viewpoint discrimination, even for the doling out of privileges that are in no sense entitlements, that is sort of a pathway to continual erosion of the shit that we value most. And so my entire, I think, position in this liberal sphere has been to prioritize the protection of those systems. And so I think in that sense, I've been very clear that I'm a liberal in that sense first, before I'm a liberal in the sense of democratic politics. And I guess I don't understand. Is there a doubt of that? Is there real?
Hassan is trying to push a narrative that you push people to his side recently. Yeah, they do. It's all narrativizing. It's all so cringe. Meanwhile, he's like, Hassan chooses and abandons allies so quickly based on whether or not they'll simp for him or whether or not they will help attack his enemies and promote people that he thinks are promoting him, even if it means retweeting Nazis all the time, which he used to do. Or now when he's giving this explicit cover to fucking Gisticle, who by the way has always hated Hassan, but over the past few months has changed so they can try to get on his good side to shit on me. It's just so cringe. And then meanwhile, while all of them are claiming that I have contrarian politics, that all my political views are defined as the opposite of whatever Hassan believes, which is I mean, again, you can watch my streams, you can watch me research, you can watch me come to conclusions about things. It's so stupid.
That I would support China or Stalinism?
So I'm asking these questions because it's not that I doubt, it's just the pushback that I get from you sometimes, it makes the questions pop up in my mind. And it occurred to me that I had never really just sat down with you and just asked you to get into specifics about these things. And so I think if we have this conversation...
This debate needs to happen. I'm tired of Hutch living in his everyone agrees with me that Hassan is the great Satan bubble. We will literally never build a successful coalition if we fight forever. Hutch trying to rebrand people who already know who they are. Econoboy was slandered by Destiny. Hutch didn't care. How did I slander Econoboy? I was willing to have, we had a whole ass a 2 or 3 hour convo. I loved Econoboy. I platformed him on my stream. I told people not to bully him as hard when they started to because he was saying a lot of crazy shit. I was always the person saying that I don't think Econoboy is mask on. I don't think he's secretly hiding any bad political ideology. I just think he gives too much cover to these other people because he's naive or whatever. I don't think I ever even accused, did I ever accuse Econoboy of even being bad faith? I'm not sure if I don't think I ever even did. I feel I constantly, I don't want to say covered for Econoboy like he was a horrible person, but I think I was always very charitable and pretty nice to Econoboy.
It would help me understand your process a little bit more. That was the point.
100%. Yeah. I'm open to it. Yeah, keep going.
Okay. All right. So then the next question I would want to ask is, you told me how you feel about liberalism. I agree. I think that these rights are relatively new in the scope of human history, and they've been a tremendous positive thing for human beings to have constitutional rights and checks on authority and a rejection of monarchies. These things have led to a lot of really good outcomes, and in fact, on balance, more good outcomes than bad outcomes. And so it is, for me, paramount to continue this project. And if it turns into something better, great. But for now, I think this is...
that's why I did this with you, Josiah, and Econoboy, and now with IRI and Soypill, because I think all of us are committed to that.
The Hutch lovers do not care about politics, clearly.
We have disagreements
oh my
on
God.
the strategies and on some, I don't know, some...
Does Pisco... I wonder sometimes, too... And I think this is one of the reasons why I probably had more success than basically every other large streamer in terms of building a community that I want to interact with and draw people out of. Is because I actually participate in my community. Whereas I feel for a lot of, especially the larger Twitch streamers, you would stream and then you would go backstage away from the unwashed masses and you'd have kind of your own cliquey group of friends, but you would never interact with any of your fans or whatever because they were all kind of just cringe losers. Is what the assumption would be. And I wonder sometimes, because how does Pisco not see his chat? Holy fuck. It's it's unhinged.
What he probably does is the thing.
Does he?
My guess is he does, and he probably agrees with them. That's why they get to fester like
shot.
that.
I can't believe that
why
yet.
Why else would you leave your chat like that?
I think he's naive or doesn't understand community moderation or something. I have to believe that before...
I disagree, because any streamer at this point, if you see something in your chat that you don't like, you address it and you deal with it. So
I don't know. Maybe, yeah.
Online drama and
I
stuff,
think you're being too charitable.
I've never doubted that you, Josiah, IRI, Soypill, Econoboy are committed to that project. Even Econoboy when he came out as a socialist. I viewed him as a socialist that's compatible with that project. And so
I agree.
all of that is a recapitulation of a basic thesis, I think, of our podcast in the first place.
I agree about Econoboy. There was, when he started coming out as more explicitly socialist, there were people, you know, in our communities and in other communities that were, seemed to be eager to like throw him in a camp with every other socialist and say, well, they can't be in the coalition, it's incompatible with liberalism. And that was like why I came up with the black pill lefty term. I think it's easier just to say populist lefty because I think that is just broad enough to encompass the people that I'm talking about. But I never got that sense from,
because I think that encompasses Bernie and Mamdani and these other people. But
it does.
You can use it. And I will understand what you mean by it. Oh, do you mean to include them?
Yeah. So like,
Okay.
there's like the fringe far lefties, and we're talking about like BE and Z Squirrel, and they're like 0.1%. They're like on the fringe of like the.
These are like Assad supporters. These are like
Yes.
tanky supporters of Bashar al-Assad who
is Hassan, by the way. Hassan, by the way, is an Assad lover, by the way. I don't know if Pisco knows that. I don't know if Hutch knows anything about Assad, but absolutely 1 trillion%. Hassan loves Assad.
invasion of Ukraine
Yeah.
and that kind of shit. Yeah, no.
Or like Kaya
Those
Walsh.
people are a small. Like, I don't know who that is, but I know Zay Squirrel and I know like Haas from Infrared. This is
Yeah.
a very small contingent of the left.
Yeah. So yeah, but when I say populist left, it includes, you know, the vanguard just as it includes Hassan. Even though I would say that Hassan's politics
And
are
Bernie.
and Bernie, yeah. Even though I would say
No, you shouldn't include Bernie in that. Listen, God, I disagree with so many of Bernie's policies. Bernie's so much further left than me. But Bernie and AOC and Mamdani, these are like politically minded people who at the end of the day are engaging in politics and in political projects, and they know it. There was a really funny fucking clip. If somebody links it, I'll watch it real fast. Does anybody have the Hassan Bernie Sanders thing?
Oh, the new one where he's talking to him and he's like, about the Gavin Newsom shit?
Yeah, hold on. Like,
Last time, I was supposed to give you a Japanese Communist Party pin that I got in Japan, and I still forgot to bring it today. So I'm instead going to give you. Do you know what this is?
Nope.
An evil eye. And so I'm going to give that to you. We say in Turkey, we say nazar, which means like you know. I'm having a hard time taking this off.
All right. Well, you give it to me later.
Okay. All right.
I
never
don't
mind.
want to use up the whole 5 minutes here
All right.
getting your
You
pin
know
off.
what? You're right.
So
5
what this
minutes,
is about
yeah.
is saying to the billionaire class, you know what? Trump gave you and your friends $1 trillion in tax breaks. And at the same time, they cut health care by $1 trillion. 15 million Americans, including 3 million here in California, are going to lose their health care in order to give tax breaks to people who don't need it. That's why I'm here. Enough is enough.
wow, that's really bad, right? That one big beautiful bill, cuts for Medicaid, Republicans constantly attacking the ACA, Republicans constantly trying to undermine any bit of social welfare we have in the United States, right? ACA premiums going up. What a horrible, horrible, horrible thing, right? What do you think Hassan has to say about this horrible thing that Republicans have done to attacking our healthcare institutions in this country? What do you think? What do you think Hassan has to say about that?
So there is one person, the governor of California, that is actually quite critical of the billionaire's tax. Do you have a message for Gavin Newsom?
No, he does what he does. He and I disagree on the issue. And that's about it.
Okay. All right. Fine. I am a little bit more critical than you are, I guess. At least.
So you're not as
more.
nice a guy as I am. That's
yeah,
about
that's
it.
true. That's true. Exactly.
And that's the difference between Hassan and then like AOC and Mamdani and Bernie Sanders. This is why these people shouldn't be lumped together. Hutch shouldn't lump them together. They're different. It's a different caliber. It's a different quality of class of people. They have different goals in mind, right? Bernie is on a political project. Hassan is on a social media project. It's totally, 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 totally different.
Hassan's politics are definitely probably to the left of the vanguards, but bro, you should look into Kaya Walsh, by the way. Okay, you should look into her because that is a crazy story. All right, because she was like 17 years old, you know, like interning for the Warren campaign in 2020, and then fast forward, and she's filming literal propaganda videos from inside of a fucking drone factory in Iran, wearing a hijab.
Yeah.
It is
Like, I'm not-
wild. I'm just saying, like, it's just
Yeah.
we don't need to focus on her, but I'm just saying, like, this is
No,
like,
I
it is,
get it, but like, I don't spend most of my time worrying about like the Iranian Revolutionary Guard supporters or people who like, because they're just not, in my opinion, like a huge percentage of the online.
No,
like,
I agree,
people
I
who are
agree.
Critical. Yeah.
I agree that you don't hear me talking a lot about like Z Squirrel and BE and Kaya Walsh because they're so fringe that you have to be like really online to be familiar with these people. But nobody takes them seriously. Like nobody. I mean, they get traffic on their shit, but I don't know how much of that is bots. But yeah, nobody takes them seriously. So anyways, back on the topic. Okay, so you described your belief in liberalism. How do you feel about, like, just generally, how do you, and we'd have to unpack, I guess, each one because I guess they mean different things, but like, how do you feel about socialism, democratic socialism, Marxism, social democracies.
I think he's also run the gamut from like systems that don't work and that have been tried and are stupid, and are effectively debunked, to a kind of different style of liberal compatible social insurance. And depending on what variation you're talking about with those different terms, I have different views on it. I'm not ideologically committed to the abolishment of private property. I'm not ideologically committed to worker ownership of the means of production. I'm a pragmatist at heart, and that is with reference to the rights that I think people ought to have and be protected. That includes, in general, the right to own property. But certain government interests can, at times, override rights. Rights are never unlimited. So, in different contexts, you'll find me being more on the side of socialist policy. For example, I could see myself supporting single-payer healthcare in this country and basically getting rid of the market for private health insurance, or at least significantly curtailing it. Mm-hmm. I would view that as fundamentally compatible with liberal values. I don't, just as I don't have a ideological commitment to nationalization projects, I don't have an ideological commitment to rights at any cost all the time, no matter what. So again, I'm a pragmatist at heart, and depending on what version of the word socialist you want to talk about, I'm happy to comment more, specifically.
Well, I think a really pointed way of getting at that question would be, I would just ask you, what do you think of when it comes to specific historical figures that followed Marx and pursued Marx's...
Why is Hutch going down this road?
...prescription. So if I throw some names at you, like Lenin, like Stalin, like Mao, like Che, like Castro.
Bad.
Yeah.
Well,
dive into that.
Yeah. So in general, bad. I don't support the Cuban regime. I think it's important, however, to keep it in context with like what they were overthrowing at the time in Cuba. Like,
or Russia.
I think you make a decent argument. Yeah, true.
Or Russia.
I think you make a decent argument in Cuba. Like the oppression they were suffering under Batista and this like mafia owning all this shit was unconscionable. Same thing with Tsarist Russia. So it's easy enough for me to say like bad. It's kind of uninteresting, but I will say in general, I have a negative attitude towards the political dispositions of these communist leaders, including Lenin, including Trotsky, including Stalin, to the extent I know them. I'm not highly sympathetic to them, but however, everything in its context, right? If I were alive at the time of the Spanish Civil War, I would have supported America sending arms to certain militias, pro-Republican militias in Spain, as opposed to General Franco. So that would be necessarily
Oh, that Dark Door guy is donating now, too. Can we acknowledge Bro got a script from Connor? Exact same questions and history he used.
Alliance with anarchists, with Stalinists, the POUM, which is this kind of like Trotskyist militia that existed, and famously sort of captured in Orwell's Homage to Catalonia. So I'm willing to break bread for...
Oh, nice. We got the Vyvanse jokes. Why does Hutch constantly pull faces? What is his Vyvanse dose? 60 milligrams? Nice, base.
For greater purpose. In general, I have a negative attitude towards most of the famous communist leaders in history.
Yeah, I think that's something that I think is very challenging and tricky. If you believe in liberalism and you feel somewhat alarmed that there seems to be a recent sort of growth in explicitly Marxist ideology in the country, it gets tricky because, to your point, the systems that these people were doing revolution against were brutal and like horrifying. Like Tsarist Russia was fucking brutal. Like when you had millions of Russian soldiers that were forced to go to the fronts of World War I and they weren't taken care of. Many of them didn't even have fucking boots. They were being paid like pennies for their service. Meanwhile, their commanding officers were making like literally 200 times more than they were, and they had fucking access to prostitutes. And
do you think there's a Marxist trend outside of online space in the US? I'm going to be honest, I'm vibing this out a little bit, but I feel like right now the young like socialism in a more true form exists in the United States now more than it does in Europe. Because I truly feel like when I talk to Europeans even, that the European understanding of socialism now is like when the government does stuff. Or at least with younger people that I talk to. Maybe older people don't feel that way. Maybe Eastern Europeans might feel significantly different. But when I talk to like Western European people, it really does feel like they're like, oh yeah, like we like socialism. And they're like they're where the Americans were 20 years ago, where they're like socialism when the government does stuff. And then now young Americans are like, socialism is not when the government does stuff. When the government does stuff, that's just them trying to entrench the capital interest. And what we really need is to overthrow the ruling capital class. And I was like, what the fuck? What happened?
Their lives were not all that bad. And then you had Tsarist Russia.
Why are you talking to young Euros? Isn't the age of consent in France like 14?
Violently cracking down on peaceful protests. 1905, there was this priest that wanted to just
stop.
Ask
Don't
for reforms,
shoot at me. That's me. Don't do it.
A nonviolent protest, and
look, I'll go over here. You can loot the red lockers. I'm not even going to touch them. It's all you, buddy.
Like these people, I think by the hundreds or thousands. And so these things that they were rebelling against, it's like, yeah, of course, and Marx's critique of capitalism at the time, like most of those critiques have held up. But at the time, he was looking at industry that was starting.
Wait. Hold on. I feel like the critiques haven't held up, no? Hold on. Does that mean he's coming over here? Just go loot. Don't shoot me. There was a huge prediction I thought that Marx made. I don't. You're unbelievable. Not nice.
You dead?
No, I'm trying not to have cursed cues. And this guy's not even good. Oh my god. Very rude. Ah! Stop! Oh my god. Fuck! It was wasn't it called the tendency of the rate of the profits to fall or something, right? That like capital would never be able to maintain its profit curves, and eventually as competition came in or whatever, like the rate of profit would fall, and then eventually, I don't know what that would mean, you have to kill every fucking worker or some bullshit or do some crazy shit, but like that was, I thought that was one of like the core predictions that Marx made about capitalism, why capitalism would fall. Like he thought this would happen in his lifetime, and it didn't, obviously. But to say that like all the predictions came true, also like in terms of how to figure out like pricing for an economy or whatever, like nobody uses like the labor theory of value. Nobody uses this. It's not like used in any part of any economic model to make any kind of predictive price thing, right? Like it's just like, it's more, I don't even call it like economic philosophy or something. Oh.
Hello there.
To ramp up, and the conditions for the workers back then were like so unimaginably horrible in the modern context. 12-hour workdays or 14-hour workdays, and the zero like ability to unionize. Anytime they tried to do any kinds of strikes, the police would come in a lot of the times and violently like crack down on those strikes. And so, it's not that his critiques were wrong, or it's not like many of them haven't held up, but
oh my god, the chat's going crazy. But we're like 5 minutes behind, so I don't know what we're talking about.
It does get complicated when you're trying to push liberalism over socialism, because they're not necessarily wrong about like exploitation. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I hear it, just like we have to always remember.
Fuck, sorry. Also, when he says they're not wrong on exploitation, this is a tricky word, guys, okay? There are a couple words that Marxists use that they're not the same words that we use. So like when they say exploitation, okay? In a capitalist economy, the only way that an owner can make money is if they hire a laborer, and the laborer engages with their capital to produce a product that's sold to another person. But for the owner to make money, then necessarily the laborer is producing something, and he's not being compensated 100% for the value of the thing that he's producing, right? That extra amount of money that's generated, that the owner takes, the profit, that's what Marx considered exploitation. We use exploitation in a very broad sense to just mean like you're taking advantage of somebody. But in the Marxist sense, all profit is exploitation. So you have to be careful when Marxists say things like, oh, we just want to get rid of worker exploitation. They want to get rid of all private capital when they say that. They want to get rid of all privately owned businesses. That's what that means.
There are emotional reactions instantly, which I do have a negative one for all these comments. I'll let you in on something. I don't know if I told everybody, but it's not wholly the reason why I was born in this country, but one of the reasons why I was born in this country is the existence of a Maoist insurrection in Peru by the Shining Path. And, that essentially civil war lasted many years. And, so I'm no fan of Maoism. I'm no fan of these kinds of movements. Certainly I would instantly have a negative emotional reaction to, Lenin. Ideologically I would as well. But we have to, I think, always see things in their context. We worship the ground of our patron saints, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, but implicit in what they were doing, the American project, was genocide of the Native Americans, was slavery. Jefferson banned the importation of slavery, but
chattel slavery, a uniquely American evil,
Yeah, so like we can go through these kind of accounting for different systems and understand, I think, that everything must exist in its context. And so I would defend the memory of some of our founding fathers relative to their time. And I just sometimes I feel like the important historical context of these figures, they were trying something different. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Reds, but it's about.
But this is such a bad argument. Oh my God. We defend George Washington despite him being a slaver or a slave supporter. We support old American founding fathers despite their positions on slavery. Leftists will support Stalin and Mao and all these things because of how ruthless they were against the capital class, because of how ruthless they were against political dissidents. It's not the same.
American communist, Jack Reed, he wrote a book, 10 Days That Shook the World. And you have to remember, like, the Russian Empire was the embodiment of the just cruel, authoritarian, absolute monarchy. I mean, it puts to a lie the notion that the Allied powers in World War I were just about defending democracy, because if that were the case, why would you be allied with Russia? There was some other thing there. And so, maybe I would think differently. Maybe I would be more negative towards like modern day communists in some sense than like people who are trying to overthrow.
Is that, I'm going to be honest, did you study World War I in school, Mooten?
Briefly, like we learned about like kind of why it started, and then we moved a little bit into like how bad trench warfare was.
Oh yeah, okay, wait, what the fuck? Yeah, wait. I feel like we focus on the weirdest things in like American school. Yeah, I feel like we had like a week on like trench warfare was so bad. The boots would get swampy, and then their feet would fall off, and there was a lot of disease, and there was a war of inches, and blah blah blah. Yeah, okay, weird.
And it started over like an assassination.
That's it. Yeah.
or
Oh,
whatever.
Franz Ferdinand got killed, and that was the only. That was it. And it's like, oh, and then
That's
what?
it.
3 or 4 great empires deleted from the planet because of that. Geez, that's kind of crazy.
And then we
I don't
immediately
remember.
go to World War II.
Yeah, I don't remember it being taught, and I don't know if people had the opinion. Maybe they do though, and I just don't remember of like World War I being a war for democracy. I feel like that was more World War II theme.
Never heard that.
But I mean, I can
government
That was always
in
too.
post initial revolution in Russia. So I just mean like, yeah, I can give you these answers, but just keep in mind historical context I think is vital here to understand like the entailments of our views in the modern day.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think there's a term for this called presentism, where you judge historical figures or events through a present lens. This happens a lot in political discourse, within Democratic Party political discourse, or kind of broadly left-wing political discourse. The way we talk about Bill Clinton in 2026, for example, like the perfect example of this. Bill Clinton.
Oh, I don't know if I agree. I thought Bill Clinton was a bad president.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
In context.
well, I mean, putting that aside, I mean, I don't even know if I
For what?
feel comfortable debating Bill Clinton
I
because
don't
I haven't
even
spent a
know
ton of
what
time
his-
on him. But the fact is that by the time he won in 1992, the country had been in a.
Did you even learn about the Middle Eastern theater? We didn't learn anything about World War I feel like, in American school. And for World War II, nothing happened in Africa. Nothing happened in the Middle East. It was basically just,
It was Germany versus Allies
yeah.
and Japan.
And Japan eventually,
And
yeah.
you hear about
nothing
a little
about
theory, but
Sino-Japanese,
you don't hear
nothing about
much.
like, yeah, anything going on with the crazy shit with Japan and China, nothing about any of that. Yeah, these countries all just kind of like popped onto the world stage after World War II. We didn't really learn, at least I didn't in school, in the context of any, but I didn't take any AP or honors history. That was a class that I was in the,
Retard class.
yeah, I don't want to say that, I don't want to be mean, but that was like when I would go to history class, I would see a whole bunch of students. I was like, who the fuck are you guys? You're not in my math and physics and chemistry classes. I don't know who any of you motherfuckers are. Holy
motherfuckers?
shit. Yeah, I didn't even know these guys go to my school. They're in my class. Yeah.
rightward kind of stasis that started in 68 with Nixon. The country moved away from LBJ and the Democratic Party because of a combination of the Vietnam War and then also just perceived chaos from the anti-war movement, the various left-wing movements, the civil rights movements, political violence.
Oh, and then we also don't learn like what are defining moments in every South American country's history. I don't think we ever learn anything about South America either. We really don't like. And I went to like Jesuits are considered. I think Catholics consider Jesuits kind of like wokey people, a little bit too woke for the average Catholic's liking.
It's a joke, yeah.
And even though I was part of a Jesuit high school, I can see there's a valid argument for when people are like, we need to have more focus on Black Americans and we need to have more focus on what America did in like South America and all these things. Like there's a legitimate argument to that, Like I was probably 32 or 33. I don't know. Like I never considered the fact even that the United States was very reluctant to enter World War I and II, and I actually think that's kind of sad. Like it took a tax to bring us into I think to bring us into both the wars formally. We were doing like trade embargoes and shit or whatever prior to that, but like it took like huge shit for us to go in because America was very much obsessed with this like idea of isolating ourselves from European problems and just building our own shit and doing our own stuff or whatever, which I think is kind of sad considering how much we represent ourselves to be like the sole victors of World War I and II, and we did do a lot in World War II for sure. I don't know as much about how pivotal we were to World War I, but yeah, I think that's sad, and I think knowing that history would maybe change. I don't actually know if it would change everybody's perspective on anything, but
I think it's
Ramping up.
sad that if the bombing of Pearl Harbor would happen today, that there would be like a billion fucking conspiracy theories about it.
oh yeah, if anything, dude, if 9/11 happened today, whoo,
Yeah.
yeah. I also feel like we didn't learn anything about the U.S. occupying the Philippines. We didn't learn anything about a lot of. I feel like our history with Puerto Rico is pretty bad as well. Although now I'm a Puerto Rico hater, so. But yeah, how we acquired like some of our territories, I think is not the best. But yeah, I don't know. It's I'm not saying we should shit on our country constantly. I don't think that's good. I don't like it that some people try to present America as like uniquely evil. The vibe I have is that America was a better country, especially given our empire and how much we could have engaged in insane amounts of exploitation. Although actually, I don't even know if I would necessarily give America credit for that. I feel like the whole world was moving in that direction during and after World War I even, because there was a reason why Western Europe set up kind of like that mandate system for the Middle East. As much as people are mad about them cutting out countries and shit, like I think they basically recognize that trying to have these indefinite extraction colonies over these other countries is just not working. Like we'll run it for a little bit and then hand it over to the power there and hopefully they'll be friendly towards us, which I think was more respectable than, like Algeria and trying to like have your own government that's like purely extractionary to just exploit the fuck out of a country forever,
Vietnam War, and then also just perceived chaos from the anti-war movement, the various left-wing movements, the civil rights movements. Political violence was ramping up. There were a ton of protests that were happening all over the country at the time, and a lot of people got really frightened by all of that. And so, Nixon came in and promised law and order, and then that kind of like held in terms of the presidency, through 1992, with the exception of Carter, who just, was most feel like he was a failure of a president. And so, when Clinton came in, you had this governor from Arkansas, this deep South, kind of pragmatic but progressive guy who could kind of like speak the language of the constituency that the Democratic Party had lost. And so, whatever your feelings are about his presidency, he was kind of like a necessary leader of the Democratic Party movement at the time. Like that was
This Dark Dur guy is crazy in Pisco's chat. I wonder who he is. I feel like he's probably one of the main haters. These guys always have
shit.
Well, he's just like constantly poisoning the well in Pisco's chat. But all the guys in like Disco's Discord, they always have like 20,000 fucking AKAs. So I have no idea. Yeah.
the kind of Democrat that needed to run in order to take on the monopoly that the Republican Party had on things like law and order and stances against illegal immigration. But in the same context of like when we were talking about Lenin or Mao or whatever, I think you shouldn't just dismiss these people as raving, lunatic, mass murdering psychopaths. You should consider the context of the Russian Revolution or the Chinese Civil War with the nationalists, and that's all well and good. But I guess this kind of dovetails quite nicely into the next question I have for you, which is, what do you think that Hassan's politics are? And I want you to go into like as much detail as you possibly can.
As I understand it, I think he's an avowed Marxist. I think that would entail that he is a communist, even if he doesn't necessarily label himself as such. I think that he has embraced Marxist-Leninism based on a statement I recall him saying, acknowledging that he is as such. And recently I think he said Lenin is base or whatever. And so I view him as somebody who is committed to workers owning the means of production, at least on the face of it. We can question how sincere it is. And the creation of a classless, stateless, moneyless society or whatever.
I don't like that. I don't think anybody, to be honest, uses the term communist ever. I don't know who even, maybe in Europe or whatever, I don't think anybody really uses communist. It's kind of like a nonsense term. Also, this idea of like stateless, moneyless society, like I don't know who even, like I don't even know like the most hardcore Marxist people that like agree with this thing. Although to be fair, I don't even know if the hardcore Marxist people agree with the workers owning shit. I feel like their main obsession is usually the vanguard. It's usually like the revolutionary party that's going to overthrow the capital class, and then they kind of use the worker right now. I'm giving a mean interpretation of that, of course, but yeah, the moneyless, stateless society thing, like the wiki definition of communism, I don't think anybody, even on the far left, ever seriously talks about this.
Let's go to the courtyard entrance.
You want more?
Yeah, if you can give more, yeah.
That's the.
How do you think he views liberalism?
They use liberal as a slur.
Yep.
Liberal is they view as weak compromisers who don't have the gumption to achieve the real change the country needs, and so they are not liberals.
I would go further than that. I think he thinks that liberalism is an evil ideology that needs to be destroyed and replaced.
Yep.
This is based on years of listening to this guy's rhetoric. You can actually find a conversation that's still up on YouTube that he and I had back in 2019 or 2020, talking about like harm reduction in the context of the 2020 Democratic Party primary. And he back then was saying basically the same thing that he's saying now. It's basically the same rhetoric where, at the time I was asking him, Bernie was comfortably in the lead because the field was still very split at that time. And I just wanted to, and at the time, for context, I was confident that Bernie was going to win. In retrospect, I feel a bit naive because we should have all seen it coming, like what happened with like the moderates coalescing around the strongest moderate. Like, of course they did that. I don't know why we didn't all just expect that was going to happen. But I still asked him at the time, like, just in case, and I asked him specifically, just in case.
What's with Puerto Rico? That's where Pixie and her corrupt family are from. That's what's in Puerto Rico.
Case. It's, it ends up being someone like Joe Biden. Would you commit to, for example, like, phone banking for Joe Biden or stumping for him or advising your audience to support Joe Biden? And he said the same thing back then. No. He said just recently, which is like, no, I don't even want to like talk about that. Now, of course, he did eventually come around to endorsing Biden, but he did. Yeah, in 2020, yeah, he did commit to the harm reduction, but that was like extraordinary circumstances. I mean, we were still in the middle of this like.
I also, and I know this is like beyond this conversation, and honestly, I think I would probably kill myself before even trying to have this conversation with Pisco, but like, there's a difference between like half-heartedly, dejectedly, like sighingly, finally, after everything, endorsing Biden, when you've been telling everybody for years that he's like a genocidal apologist, that he's no different than the other party. Like when you're engaged in this rhetoric over and over and over again, and then you like very half-heartedly at the end is like, yeah, guys, you should vote for Biden. It doesn't even matter though if you're in California. It's like that's not real. Come on, that's so stupid.
Pandemic, and we had all these riots going on, and Trump was just so in your face, like chaotic at the time, that I think it was just really untenable to like not endorse, right? But a little bit different now, a little bit more stable now, I guess you could say. But I do, after years of listening to this guy and watching his content, I think it is obvious that we do not have...
Also, there's just a quick thing. I'm sorry. Hutch said, or Pisco said something I really don't like. Pisco was like, "Oh yeah, like I think that Hassan is a Marxist now, or whatever, because I heard him on a stream say he's a Marxist." You never, ever, 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 ever identify somebody's political beliefs, especially radical ones, by waiting for them to self-identify. That's the dumbest thing in the world. That statement implies a lot of weird political analysis going on, where you're like, "Oh yeah, like I know this person is a Nazi because I finally heard them say they're a Nazi." Like you would never assess a person's political beliefs that way.
The same project, like at all. And it's not just him. It's just like there's a lot of other people in the space. You know, I think he's interested in only elevating the candidates that he likes, that he thinks get him closer to his goal, which is basically the complete eradication of what he considers to be the Democratic Party establishment,
Yes.
the liberal order in the United States.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if he thinks that he can do it overnight or even in his lifetime, but I think his larger goal is to replace liberalism entirely
It is.
with an authoritarian kind of leftist, in his mind, utopia.
Undeniable.
How much do you think is LARPing?
Oh my God.
That's a
It
good
doesn't matter. No! Fuck. You shouldn't fall into this.
No, he likes it. Good question, he said.
It doesn't matter if you're LARPing, if you're a political leader, or rather if you're an influential person. Because regardless of whether or not you're LARPing, the people that are listening to you are not LARPing. That's the issue. What about Straighterade? What about Straighterade? Straighterade is radical. I don't mind Straighterade as much, though, because I feel like she was honest about her radical opinions. Every time we debated, like she was obviously clearly further left than me, but I'm pretty sure she was like just open about that. No, like I don't think she ever hid that necessarily.
Question, because like I think human beings can be very complex and nuanced and multifaceted. I think he is driven primarily by ego and status, clout and money, and the perception of being kind of like the leader of a vanguard movement. I think he psychologically very much enjoys that kind of framing. It makes him feel warm and fuzzy on the inside. But I also think that there's a part of him that sort of drank his own Kool-Aid. So I think there's a part of him that genuinely thinks that he's the new leader of a...
I think Pisco has something where his eyes are sensitive sometimes, and I think for some reason they get red, and every time his eyes are red, everybody in chat, including my chat, are spams like, is he high? Is he high? Is he high? And if I was Pisco, I would get fucking annoyed by that question. So that might be why his glasses. He's hiding, whatever, yeah.
Of a vanguard movement in the United States. And so, but that all kind of ties in with ego too. So it's like, it is related. But I do think that he sees the stakes as being that high, and he sees himself as playing a really important part in ending liberalism, right?
And do you think that his support of Mamdani, for example, or Bernie, was a way to achieve that? How do you make sense of that, given our views on those candidates?
I think that if you're someone with his politics, you have really slim pickings. So he's not a democratic socialist. He's a Marxist-Leninist. So like, it's not enough for him to get single-payer healthcare or paid family leave. It's capitalism is destroying the entire planet and will destroy, all of our lives are getting worse.
She was honest in the sense that when talking to you, everyone understood she was a full-on communist, but now that she's in other circles, people are confused. Yeah, but I think they're only confused because of Pisco. That'd be my guess.
Worse and worse. And, there's a moral imperative to end capitalism entirely. And so if you're someone with his politics, then you don't really have like a lot of choices. But the ones that do emerge, like the ones that have found success, like Mamdani and Bernie and AOC, he will tout them as a part of his movement in, one day. And then the next day he'll say that AOC is on a bad path and Mamdani is not a betrayer yet. And, you have someone like Bernie who only recently started using the language of genocide, has never said that Israel does not have a right to exist. And so I think...
What does Israel have to do with it, though?
What do you mean?
What does Israel have to do with... Because it sounds like what you're suggesting has to do with like base values, and I'm just not sure why. I mean, you could be against Israel's actions or their existence without that framing, and so I'm not sure what the Israel position is doing with respect to what we're talking about here.
How it fits in with his worldview?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not... He's principally anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist on paper. That's what he says. He's like anti-capitalism, anti-imperialism. And so
he's really anti-Western, though, because the imperialism from their side is always excused, right? He didn't really care that much about the Ukraine-Russia stuff. He obviously... The reason why MLs and these guys, ML meaning Marxist-Leninists, which are the extreme like socialists, the reason why these guys always shit on like Polish people or Ukrainians sometimes is because they really hate people that were Soviet satellites that are happy to be free of that and then are like proud to be free from that. They hate these motherfuckers more than anybody else in the world. That's why you heard so much talk about like Bandera and everything from people like Hassan and other lefty types. Like, oh, they love Nazis. Oh, they love Nazis. Because in their mind, like, well, you guys are traitors. When the Soviets were trying to take over and rape your people, instead you like worked with the Nazis to try to fight off the Soviets, and so although the Nazis will fuck your people up as well, it just depends on where you're at. But yeah, that's why Hassan has so many slurs for like Polish people and everything when he talks about them.
Use Israel as a ethno-supremacist Western project to colonize the Middle East, and so they're two separate things, like anti-capitalism and anti-imperialism, but they're very much overlapped in his mind. So it's all about like there's like the Western imperialist core. And they have this like...
I mean, but he's pro-Eastern imperialism or something like that, right? Because like, if you're saying he's a Maoist or whatever, or Stalinist, I mean, these were imperialist countries. I mean, it's something of Russia's interventions, or Soviet Union's interventions in Afghanistan, in countries in Eastern Europe, China had at least in terms of spheres of influence, similar stuff. And so he's not. You don't view him as principally against all forms of imperialism, just Western, kind of the Western chauvinism, Western imperialism.
Yes. Yeah. I should be more specific. Yes. He's anti-Western imperialism, but he claims that he's broadly anti-imperialism, but it's really anti-Western imperialism.
Got it. What the fuck does that have to do with me?
I just want, again, I'm not leading to some great point. Okay, so if maybe your lawyer brain's turned on and you feel like I'm walking into a
I'm
trap.
just answering the questions. I'm just like, I don't know. It feels like you haven't gotten answers from me that seem ridiculous.
No,
I have to say,
no,
but
no, you bet.
that like my view of Hassan, he strikes me as like sometimes ideological, sometimes almost I don't know what to say, reveling in capitalist abundance, and very interested in relationships and in effectiveness in terms of his brand, et cetera, et cetera. He's selling products, and so yeah, he seems like a streamer. I think you granted in the counterpoints conversation that he is nowhere close to actual political authority or power, and certainly doesn't have the influence to like turn Mamdani into a Maoist. And so I guess I'm just like, I'm not sure, given those realities,
this is important,
why anything I do is like weird or out of place or surprising.
That's important that you brought this up, because it allows me to clarify my position maybe in a way that will help you understand that my mind is thinking about things that go well beyond any kind of personal grievance I have with Hassan. Like, I do find him to be insufferable and cringe. I do find him to be a sort of like absurd hypocrite on a number of issues. And those things are obviously going to color my perception of him. But when I think about Hassan and the damage and what I'm trying to push back, and it's not just him, it's like a big kind of ecosystem of creators. I do not think that any serious person is afraid that they're going to pull off, I say they, I mean like the Marxists, an actual leftist revolution in this country. They are way too unorganized, way too incompetent.
And they don't care. They don't care. It's not that they're unorganized or disorganized, disorganized, or incompetent. It's that they don't care to. They're not even trying, right? You don't see, like, how often is Hassan sincerely and genuinely trying to get motion towards the DSA, or sincerely trying to support like some like mutual aid national group or whatever? Like, it's not really. He pays lip service to it every now and then, but like, not really. There's no real commitment to this stuff.
Discipline for that. Nobody, like the Fox News machines, they'll spin up their wheels and 24/7, inundate our boomer parents' brains with propaganda that the leftists are on the verge of like a fucking revolution in this country. But they know that that's not true, because they know these people are just kind of unserious. And
this is also why like people like Hassan are never seriously targeted by people on the right, is because he's not a threat. When I say controlled opposition, I'm being hyperbolic. He's not really controlled opposition. But I do think he gets preferential treatment sometimes from people on the right, because they know that people like Hassan only serve to benefit their political movement, because they only serve to shit stir in the political movement of the left, because they're never going to actually be politically viable anywhere, and they know that. And that's why Hassan's not like deplatformed, or people don't push for his demonetization. Like, I could be wrong, but when Fox was covering the shot caller stuff, it was generally just covered from like a humor perspective, right? I think it was that one guy, I always forget his fucking name, who does the shows, this huge virtue signaler, the panel show or whatever.
Jesse Waters?
No. The other guy. He talks with there's the one girl who's a liberal on the show, and there's like two other conservatives. I always forget the guy's name. He's got a weird name. Gutfeld or something. Greg Gutfeld? Yeah, that guy. My recollection, I could be wrong, but my recollection is it was just kind of like funny, and they said it was kind of like a gross person, but that was it. I don't think they were sincerely pushing for him to be deplatformed or anything. Not that I remember. And if this would have been somebody who was like a political threat, I think they would have leaned into that, like the dog torture shit. I think they would have leaned into that way harder.
Oh, big time.
A bit silly and larpy. But that's not the concern that I have. I don't think that Hassan and his movement are going to end liberalism and replace it with, some kind of Marxist structure or whatever. Even though that would be a nightmare for me. I would not want to live in that country. That's not what I'm concerned about. The concern is that they are doing so much damage to the online discourse and to the general discourse, because I feel like at this point online discourse does bleed into the mainstream in ways that it didn't maybe 20 years ago when social media was just starting.
Yeah.
And so the concern is that liberalism will fall, but it will be the fascists who destroy liberalism, and it will have happened in part because there's this entire fucking ecosystem of virtue signaling bullshit that is spinning 24 hours a day, and it's not dissimilar from Fox News, but it's just from a different perspective. And it serves to do the same thing, which is depress voter turnout, convince mainstream normies that the Democratic Party...
Yeah, there is something to be said for the fact that Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk were also willing to debate Hassan. Yes, because he's just not a threat,
Or basically just the same. Are you familiar with?
Also, because even if they lose points to Hassan, like who the fuck cares? They're losing points to somebody who's arguing for a politically unviable thing, right? As opposed to me pushing them on like MAGA or Trump, or pushing them on like actual policy, like law that's been passed. Like if you lose on those points, well, these are things that are like politically relevant to the political success of your movement, right? If you lose some point about some esoteric thing about communism or socialism or something, who the fuck cares? In fact, if anything, you could even argue that it just it just helps them even more because it would only be other liberals that would be convinced by those arguments. It's not like people in the conservative audience are going to be swayed too much by those. So,
Called, oh fuck, shit. What are they called, guys? Dead Domain. They came out with a what are their pronouns, guys? I'm being dead serious. Creator came out with like a video the other day and popped up on my radar, and then all of a sudden they them okay. They popped up on my feed, and they then the Twitter algorithm started pushing their tweets to me. And I just want to show you one thing, and it's like I think a really good example of what I'm talking about. And it's like, and it looks so small, right? It's just, just one tweet with like 600 likes or something like that. But I want you to see it in like the larger context of what I'm talking about. Sorry, I had to scroll back because I just fully relapsed on Twitter in the last week, and I've posted like 250 times every day, and it's like pretty unhealthy, and I need to stop.
I'm terrible Destiny hit piece. I actually appreciate that Dead Domain hit piece because I think it was so bad. They included so much shit. I think that like all my responses were basically included in the clips they had. I appreciated that. That was a funny fucking. That was a funny video.
You should have given me an interview then.
True.
Can you describe it if you can't find it?
Yeah. I can find it if you just give me just a
Okay. Yeah. Take your time. Yeah. So much.
Bro, I have to scroll so much. It's bad. I need to just take the app off my phone for like a week, I think.
Can't let these reply people get to you, man.
They're getting too many likes on Twitter. I gotta fucking do something about it. Okay, here. All right, perfect. This is the exact. I just want to hold on. Wait. First, I'm gonna put it on my screen, and then I'm gonna link you the.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay, let me send it to you here. There you go. Boom.
Okay. Let me read it. You want me to show this to the chat?
You can if you want to. I'm just maybe it would help your chat understand the point that I'm.
Okay.
Because I'm teeing up something here.
Okie dokie. Okay, folks, so this is the tweet. The tweet says, crazy, almost like that's what happens when conservatives spend hundreds of millions to attack a minority and there's no equivalent motion from Democrats. This shouldn't be surprising. Democrats lose the messaging war constantly, even when it should be an easy win. This is a reply to Laksha Jane's tweet about, in almost everything we pulled public is aligned with the conservative view on trans issues.
Right.
Gender surgery for minors, HRT for minors, bathroom bill, K through 12 sports, and gender identity in elementary school.
So what is your just immediate reaction to Dead Domain's post? What's your internal kind of reaction to it?
I think that I don't have evidence that it's Democrats' lack of fight that caused the shift in opinion, but that's my intuition for other issues. For example, immigration. My intuition is that Democrats are far too willing to just wait for polls and stuff and not.
Am I? Oh wait, never mind. Okay.
Counter message. It's intuition. But yeah, I don't really have strong thoughts on the trans version of it.
Yeah, I have very strong thoughts. The Dead Domain's post.
Okay.
Very strong thoughts. And I think this is a really good example of. I'm making the point that this all. I talk about Hassan a lot, but it goes so much further than Hassan. It's like the negative influence that he is having, or the destruction that I think he's causing to the discourse, bleeds out into this kind of lower tier. And I don't mean lower quality. I mean like audience size. It bleeds out into this lower tier of moderately sized content creators who are taking his example. Not just his example. There's a lot of other kind of populist lefties that are on the top that sort of push this flowchart stuff. And so the damage I think is unquantifiable. I think the damage goes so far beyond, Hassan's immediate audience of maybe 30K, 40K. It's so much bigger than that. I think that this is a collective pool of audience size that is in the millions. I don't know what million number it is. Is it 10 million, 20 million? I really don't know. But this particular example.
I got a question.
Flowchart.
I feel like a lot of the times we talk about like leftists and how they have no motion, etc., and how they have like no literal political relevance, etc. So then why do we give a fuck about Hassan?
So when I say, I try to be very careful about this. Other people mince words a little bit too much. Not intentionally, but they're just not being careful. When I say they have no political relevance, what I mean is they're not practicing politics. What I mean is they're not trying to get anybody elected or do anything legislatively. They don't have a policy agenda, and they're not trying to win elections. But, and the worst part about it is, they do hold some of the public discourse hostage. That's the annoying thing. So
I see.
Yeah. So when you say, why do we care about them? I agree with that. That's why I'm telling people, why I've been telling people, and hopefully, I think some other people are starting to realize, and maybe it's happening, why we need to eject all these people from the movement, because we shouldn't allow our discourse to be held hostage, because again, like you said and asked, why do these people matter? They don't. They don't vote.
They're not in any body of Congress, literally.
Yeah, they're not that, and they're not gonna.
The person is AOC, who they disavow.
Yeah, and you're not gonna find any common ground with them in terms of getting them to vote for a candidate that's actually electable. They're only gonna choose the most purity tested people possible who would never win, and the only people that they ever want to run are primarying other Democrats. They want to fight from within. That's it. So it's I don't know how they're.
So if anything, there are fucking enemies, and people need to fucking wake up and realize.
Yeah.
That.
And tell them to go form their own political party. That's what they should do. Go make your own party, and go try to win or do something there. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
But the issue too is not only do they hijack our conversation, so now we have to talk about retarded shit. They're also like good targets for people on the right to make us look crazy, and we don't get to talk about stuff we'd rather talk about and try to hold Republicans accountable because we're too busy warding off fights from the left.
And we're having to fucking clean up our image because of the retarded shit that they've fucking done.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Or they're fighting about.
Yeah.
Logic. I mean, you would agree that they were employing flowchart logic with that post, right?
No.
Okay, so just to recap, they were retweeting Laksha's polling showing that the public had turned on trans issues. And then their quote post was, this is what happens when you basically don't effectively counter-message.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like inherently flowcharty.
To me, when I look at her quote post, that is her saying, that is them saying that the Democrats' failure led to the downward numbers on the trans issues. Even though it was the Republicans spending billions of dollars on pushing anti-trans hysteria for the last 6 or 7 years, they seem to have really, that's when like libs of TikTok, I think, really kind of picked up. And, you know, they had lost the fight about gay marriage, and so I think they moved on to trans stuff. And that's just like easier to attack, I think, because most people, I think, don't really regularly interact with trans people. And so they see the visuals of trans people in public, just being trans in public, and it fucking, their brains go, what is this? It's weird. And, you know, there's a lot of people in the country that live in an area where, you know, they don't really leave like a 20-mile radius for most of their lives. And so like they literally just never see that kind of stuff. And they're right in that the Republican machine spent billions of dollars making this wedge issue something that raised in cultural and political salience. But their ultimate conclusion was, this is what happens when the Democrats don't effectively counter-message. So to me, I take that to mean that this is the Democrats' fault.
They're charting out culpability for the Democrats, no doubt about that. I don't know, but I don't think that saying Democrats are at fault for something is flowchart logic. I think flowchart logic is when, no matter what, Democrats can't win. Where it's like, right, just because you say the Democrats bear culpability for something doesn't mean that you're using flowchart logic, and I blame Democrats for shit, you know? It doesn't mean I'm flowchart logic. If the broader set, like, well, these kinds of people do this kind of thing, and they are the kind of person who, even if they were positive changes and Gavin Newsom's policy or whatever, they wouldn't ever grant it. Now we just need to see that. But like this by itself, I don't think it's flowchart logic.
Question about
so
like the trans stuff, I guess, that's kind of the discourse that's been happening. Do you think that Dems should kind of move away from this position because it's so politically I don't want to say untenable, but like it's not like it. The polling that I've seen, it seems like everybody doesn't like it. Like they don't like the idea of
I think the issue is
mutilating children.
Dems don't have a strong, consistent position that they can defend. I think they need to get a strong, consistent position, and then I think they can defend that one. That position shouldn't include like fucking like trans sports or whatever, but it probably should include even children being able to have conversations with their parents and doctors about trans-related stuff.
Yeah.
Especially because I think that I feel like you can wrap that up very cleanly with the pro-choice argument as well. That there are certain conversations that should be between you and your doctor, and it's a healthcare issue. I feel like you can integrate that really well. But the issue is, for whatever reason, Democrats are very scared to ever fight the left flank. I don't know why, but they're terrified of ever doing that. And then the left flank will start to endlessly purity test and hold us hostage. Remember, these are people that aren't politically effective and don't like put up their own candidates or anything. And then we end up having to defend all the crazy weirdo shit that that they say. Yeah.
So like the quote unquote crazy weirdo stuff that they're saying would be like, well, you should just be able to buy like HRT stuff online, and like anybody should be able to take it at any time.
Yeah, that's probably not. But mainly like the athlete stuff, it was goofy. Any defensive and there was a lot of that, or at least in the online spaces there were, because I remember I debated a lot of that, where people were like, oh no, like a trans woman and cis woman are the exact same thing biologically after the cis woman is on, or after the trans woman is on hormones for 2 years, or like stuff like this. These are goofy arguments that
So was this an argument that was actually being made at like the political level of like people in Senate, etc., or was this just shit that like people were talking about online and then kind of became like a populist like
I think
conversation?
I think it was filtering up into high enough spaces that it was a little bit absurd, with like school administrators and stuff that were going before Congress. I'm trying to remember who got asked that question and who made this point. I think this was in front of a congressional thing, but somebody made the point that like, oh god, this is the worst thing ever. Like abortion wasn't a woman's issue; it was like a birthing person's issue or something. Like these don't ever need to be. This is such a loser argument. Yeah. But you can have a stronger, but if your position is more defined, right? Like I think that if you think that trans people are a real thing, if that's a real phenomenon, and if you think that the only treatment for that stuff seems to be some sort of medical transition, which as far as I'm aware of seems to be the case, if you believe these things, then you should ardently defend that position even for children, as mad as I might make some people. Like, if it's a real thing for adults, it's definitely a real thing for children. But yeah, the Democrats just not taking a strong position on that and constantly having to capitulate to the far left on those issues, I think hurt a lot.
Is this an issue from Democrat leadership, not like, I don't know, like using like, I guess the term like whipping like the committee kind of into shape of like, hey, here's how we should like talk about this issue.
It's more the media on the left just does not synchronize and synergize as hard as the conservative media does. Conservative media is ultra synchronized constantly.
The next day they have fucking talk. Everybody has the talking point.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Go, that flowchart logic is at its core about always reaching the conclusion that Democrats can't win.
Right, no matter what, then never giving credit on a specific course of it. Like when there's areas in which
birthing person is stupid but accurate, birthing person is not accurate. And it's hard to, I'm not going to run through this whole thing in like 2 seconds, but like abortion is uniquely a woman's issue because abortion is a thing that could only ever be a woman's issue. And not even because women are the ones that give birth, because if men could give birth, you could buy abortion infanticide pills at every single 7-Eleven and every single gas station on the block. There is no possible world where a man would allow a society to exist that would subject him to having their body used as an incubator for a 2-week fetus that they don't want. That would just never, ever, ever be the case. So the fight for, women's rights to have an abortion, to be free of children that they don't want, of forced impregnation or whatever, these are uniquely women's issues that affect women in a unique way, and only women would have ever been affected by it in that way. Even if men could give birth, it would be so much different. That's why trying to take that away and to call it just a birthing person's issue is like, it's a very, very, very silly, stupid reframing of that thing. It's such a bad way to reframe that.
the policy has been, totally reversed, or when you've seen them criticize, even when Democrats didn't do the thing, when you put together like a set of beliefs that show a person.
Can we just talk about sex versus gender? As in, like, only the female sex can give birth? It's so annoying to hear these two. I think the gender-sex distinction is it's too academic for normal conversation. It's probably not even worth making, and Republicans have gotten so good at hijacking that retarded fuccking argument. And
female is like a medicalized term, right?
No. These are all normal. These are all categorical. No, it's all just like people use female and male and women and man. I've heard some people argue differently, but I've read papers where I've seen different words used. The idea that, like, oh no, in science they always refer to the female sex and they never use man or I don't. That's not true. No, there's that hardcore distinction doesn't work. It doesn't exist now.
Tendency to always blame Dems, even in the situation in which they do the thing that sort of the same that you set out. So an example of this might be like, didn't Mike from PA do that whole like Tim Walz? If it's Tim Walz as a VP, I'll vote for Kamala situation, where you're constantly moving the goalpost, where even when they like reach, okay, we'll call it a genocide, but now you need to be in favor of military action, and there's like that kind of shit, where no matter what, it's never good enough, and no matter what, we're gonna blame the Dems. That's what I understand flowchart to be. It's a collection of different, but just by one opinion that blames Democrats, I think by definition it can't be flowchart, unless there's a broader context, or this person has a track record of it.
Okay, so I just think you're wrong about this, because I don't think the flowchart is at its core about, quote, the Democrats not being able to win. I think the flowchart is at its core about the Democrats are to blame for everything. The second to last rung of the flowchart before you get to fuck the Democrats, which is always the conclusion. The second to last rung is, did the Democrats do it or did the Democrats fail to stop it from happening? And so the whole premise of that flowchart is you can blame the Democrats for literally everything. And so I don't understand how you could not surmise that or infer that from their post in this particular context.
Hutch, this is not a good argument for Hutch. You need way more examples of those. Because there are positions that Hutch might even make that same argument on. That Pisco has already said he'd make that. I would probably make the argument on that Democrats maybe fuck their messaging on this, and it's we kind of just made that argument for the trans stuff. I don't know why Hutch is he needs way more tweets to lay out this argument, I think. And I would agree with him for this person, but he hasn't established that yet. He hasn't made the argument for that yet with just a single tweet.
Do Dems just not have like a good news organization? And I use good as in like I'm about to say Fox News good here, so that's not what I mean. But like Fox News, it's very much all fucking right. It's very like these are the talking points, etc. A lot of the times right-wingers try to say like, oh, that's CNN, but I feel like
projection.
Dems still try
Here's
to
the
do
issue.
like
You hear Dems
shit.
say, right? Or you hear Republicans say, hold on. If somebody were to say this statement, okay? Imagine this, okay? Somebody were to come out and say this statement, this political leader is really, really bad at messaging, and that's why nobody's getting on board with what he's doing. Who would you imagine would make that statement? A person on the left or a person on the right? Why?
Yeah. I guess my reason would be like because they're kind of like begging the question a little bit of like God, I don't know how to like explain this. I feel like they're saying like they're bad at messaging, but what they really mean is like they just have like the bad fucking opinion. Is kind of how I would feel about it.
Okay, it's interesting you vibe it out that way. But so I would agree with the answer. For a different rationale, though, Republicans will never, ever, ever say in the media, Republicans will never say that a candidate or a lawmaker or whatever is bad at the messaging because they're doing the messaging. On Fox News, they're never going to say Trump has messed his messaging up on this because they are the messaging and they know that. That's their job. Yeah, that's their job. Hannity's not out here talking about how Trump could message better on a particular topic. Hannity's messaging for Trump on the topic. And that's true of the entire conservative media apparatus. So when that's what you're up against, and then keep in mind there's also the imbalance of like Democrats are actually sincerely trying to govern. They're trying to like govern the country and do the work of making sure everything doesn't fucking fall apart and go to shit. You're playing a very tough game against the other side.
Yeah.
Because in order to infer from the post, you need to know that they're like, that no matter what the permutation, they're going to blame the Democrats, or at least something close to a good reason, a good faith reason, a good basis to believe that given even strong messaging from Democrats, they would still do this. Some sort of sufficient basis to think that if the number is reversed, that they would give credit to the Democrats. So like you need to, the flow chart is about unreasonability of the person. It's about some sort of cognitive bias in the head of these people.
I think it's about the unreasonableness of the culture. I think it's bigger than that. I think it goes bigger than just the person.
But any particular person, to the extent that they're exhibiting the argument, needs to fulfill certain criteria, namely that they in fact are acting in conformity with that culture. And just knowing that this person is blaming Democrats for not being strong counter signalers isn't enough to know that they're in conformity with the culture. Any more than it would be enough to know that I criticize Democrats for failing to message strongly enough on immigration.
Okay.
Pisco is correct here. He needs more evidence. That wasn't a good single tweet for Hutch to fight on.
Can I just go to that real quick and I'll be right back?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, yeah. Let me the perfect time.
Turned off his cam to go to the bathroom.
Do some callouts. Ace with $10. Destiny's toxicity is self-defeating. It blackpills his audience and dem space as a whole. This space becomes a breeding ground for the Hassans of the world. I don't know if I disagree with you on that one. I do think that, I think it's getting better these days, but I think there's way too much blackpill in DGG. Ace with $10. Hassan gains more space on the center left and spreads his brand of purity politics, which end up undermining the Democrats. Destiny's tactic to defeat MAGA is only that. I think it's getting better. This space becomes a breeding. Ace with $10. Destiny's toxicity is self-defeating. It blackpills his audience and dem space as a whole. This space becomes a breeding ground for the Hassans of the world. I don't know if I disagree with you on that one. I do think that.
I don't think I'm black. It depends on what you mean by black pilled. I feel like in most of my no, that's not true, not most. But I feel like I've tried to tell people that like you have to have some maybe even irrational optimism about the future of politics because I feel like it's almost required to be participating in any type of political project. I think I say that enough. I feel
like you were dooming for a few weeks, but then you kind of swapped it.
Yeah. I also have a whole bunch of crazy personal life shit going on as well that involve the exercise of my entire friend group and everything else. But I try to hold on. But when I like, it depends on what you mean when you say black pill too. Like, I think if you try to give a warning, like if you do this, you will fucking fail. This needs to stop. I don't think that's a black pill. I think black pill is when you assume it's inevitable. So like the fights that I think the liberals should be having with lefties, otherwise they've like lost. I don't think that's a black pilling fight. I think that's a hope pilled fight. You have to do something to make sure this thing doesn't happen.
I think it's getting better these days, but I think there's way too much black pill in DGG. Ace with $10. Hassan gains more space on the center left and spreads his brand of purity politics, which end up undermining the Democrats. Destiny's tactic to defeat MAGA is only going to empower threats to the Dem. I think in some cases you're correct.
For what tactics?
$20. Folks engaged in punditry complaining about messaging that shows how low human capital we've become. Ooh, I want to think about that. I think I agree with that.
Okay, one second.
I will say it's a bit hard to be fucking
callouts.
hope-pilled right now. Like when we went through 3 weeks of fucking Trump just doing whatever the fuck he wanted into ICE literally murdering people on the streets. Like,
yeah. So what's up with that?
Time, man.
What's going on with that, Moot? Did the federal government just murder 2 U.S. citizens? Are we gonna hear anything about that, or did we?
And now they're
any
saying,
charges?
like, hey, we're not giving our investigation over to like the state. Like, yeah, it is kind of a hard time to be fucking hope-pilled. So excuse us in DGG for having a bit of a difficulty.
For our chat, super chats and whatnot. Yeah. I'm gonna mute my mic and do super chat callouts and stuff. And you can do the same, and you can resume in like 3 to 5 minutes. Vidania with $5. I can agree with this. Piker is not at his maximalist threat, right? But that's the best time to deal with the problem before it's at its apex. Ooh, that's another good point. Yes. Vidania, they view Democrats, liberals as Republican light, and they consider Republicans fascists.
True.
What does that make Dems in their eyes? Fascist light. Yes.
True.
Yes. They're very explicit about that.
Yep.
Basilcopter with 11 once the Democrats would have been the exact same as the Republicans. It would have been 1-1. So I'm going to vote for them anyways. Hassan. Wait, when did he say he was going to vote for him? Brilsey with 65 once. Vidania with $5, but it is the same effect as a lie. They aren't bothering to fact check. Then they are choosing to baselessly accuse course like a lie. Yeah. So like even though I don't know if you can call it like every single time a lie, the the whole the action itself of being so careless. I mean, I think Hassan is lying. To be clear,
Yeah.
when he accuses people of being coerced paid, that is, he's lying. He's just
It's
making.
also annoying, and I don't know if it's the politics brain or the empathy brain, but like people understand these concepts intuitively. Look at how ass paint. You could argue that Pisco's entire hatred and obsession over that. Well, I say obsession, but when he was covering that H3H3 lawsuit, all literally stemmed from that one Ethan tweet where he called him a fake lawyer or whatever. Pisco got incensed at that shit. And he immediately, in that case, like, could you imagine saying to Pisco, like, well, maybe he really genuinely just thought you were a fake lawyer. Maybe he just didn't know, you know? Like, I don't think Pisco would have accepted that answer.
It up. He knows it's a very decent chance that it's not true. Alexis with $5. My issue is the disproportionate influence on young people that are easily blackpilled on voting. I agree. Yes, I agree. I agree. And I think the danger there is you have young people that start believing this populist lie, this like nonsense, and then it kind of calcifies. And the longer somebody, I think, stays in a belief system or stays committed to a belief system, the harder it is to pull them out of that. So I agree. Yes, I agree that it's a really big concern that specifically young people are being whipped into this, nothing matters, everything's the same, nihilist kind of thinking. Which, oddly enough, coincidentally enough, massively benefits Hassan specifically.
True.
Like, he benefits from this nihilism on the order of millions of dollars a year. Like, he is very much profiting from this kind of belief system.
What was that one tweet? I think it was like 2 years old or whatever by that one guy who said that anybody whose entire media presence or whatever, whose entire podcast or show requires you to perpetually hate the Democrats, you should always be questioning their motivations. It's a very good point.
Cheesy Fries with $10. It's frustrating how you have to walk him through all of this like you're talking to Vadim or Ogre Boy.
Yes.
I disagree. I'm actually enjoying this conversation. It's nice not to be screaming at each other.
You'll get
Coalition
there.
with 5 Canadian. Hassan tries to ruin people he calls propagandists, but with Brian, who has a bigger audience, he seems to want to court his favor and leech off of him. That is exactly what he did. Or what he's doing. Dowser Dining with $2. BTC co-founded Chorus. He's not just a supporter. Yep. That's what I've been saying. Whiffer Nubbin with $5. It also puts a target on those Chorus creators' heads for Hassan's insane audience who think violence is acceptable. I mean, there's a lot of unhinged rhetoric going on the internet these days, not just with Hassan's audience. Oh, no, let's not do that. Where am I at? Does Vidani with $5. Wait, how isn't that material harm? Hassan is trying to discredit Chorus and BTC by baselessly smearing them, thereby causing material harm. Did Pisco say that was not material harm? Demi-Urge with $5. Ask him if he thinks Hassan's Chorus lie is non-trivially harmful or harmless. That would have been a good question, but we're kind of past that point in the conversation. Ace with $5. Hassan learned a dude wanted to unalive himself and said he would make fun of the dude harder. Hassan is evil and we should never make bed with him.
Based.
From the Ashes with $2.
I mean,
GGG.
not good.
Extremes with 27 months. No offense, buddy, but you think this because you are deeply low information. You just don't know anything about policy because you're uneducated and unintelligent. You
Jesus.
co-signed everything that is going on with the Trump administration. It's very pathetic. No
And?
offense. I don't know what that's a reference to. It seems like that was a reference to something. Daz Vidani with $5. I think I already got you there. Demi-Urge with the Tier 1 membership. McMitty, did I get you? Indie Inc. with 37 months. I'm not sure if I got you. Mr. CT, I don't know if I thanked you for 51 months at the start of the stream. Thank you. Uno Couch Potato with 41 months. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. All right, I think I am all caught up. Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Ready.
Okay. Back to the topic. We were talking about flowchart logic, and
Yeah.
we seem to fundamentally disagree that their post was an example of flowchart logic. I think it is basically like the perfect example of flowchart logic.
If I were to critique democratic messaging and saying this is partially responsible or even like largely responsible or majorly
sure.
responsible, that would be flowchart logic inherently.
I'm glad you asked, because on this particular topic, I don't know if they could have picked a more ridiculous topic to try to make this point. But the reason why the public turned on these issues and walked back some of the support that they were showing in previous years, assigning blame to the Democrats, I think is like we're beyond absurd. We're
It would just be wrong though.
No,
It would just be wrong.
No, but it's not just wrong. It's absurdly wrong. When you look at a map of the country and color code it by states that have passed anti-discrimination laws and contrast that with a different color code for states that have passed discriminatory laws against trans people, it is basically just a map, like an electoral map of the country. When you do that,
But it doesn't contradict the tweet.
It does. It does.
How does it? How does it?
It contradicts the tweet because the Democratic Party have been pushing back against this rhetoric. This idea that they have not been pushing back, both rhetorically and I would argue more importantly, substantively through legislation. The idea that they have not been pushing back is preposterous, because we can see other left-wing parties around the world right now that are substantively walking back support for trans people. And when you look at the Democratic Party right now, they are holding that line in a way that almost no other political party on the entire planet is doing right now. Do you understand that? Like, you take the least popular issue, right? Like the trans girls in sports. That is the least popular issue. It's like 80-20 issue in this country. And we have a really good example of a Democratic governor publicly picking that fight with Donald Trump to his face with Janet Mills in Maine. Or is it Maine? Yeah, in Maine. She was, she was in a room. I think it was like a meeting of governors or something. I'm not sure. And Donald Trump was standing at a podium and he called her out specifically like, oh, you're crazy. You want to do the trans girls in sports? You're doing trans for everybody. And she told him, that fucking alpha Stacy, told him to his face, we'll see you in court. She did, and they won. So like that was a Democratic governor that a lot of these same creators are, they're probably calling her like a fucking Zionist murderer or whatever. She picked a public fight with the president over a fucking 80-20 issue, and then actually like substantively fought back against the administration through the courts. And there are numerous examples of J.B. Pritzker. He's enormously wealthy. His wife has spent I think tens of millions of dollars, fighting anti-trans stuff. He's passed a number of like really critical pro-trans bills in Illinois. California is like insane. The amount of bills that Gavin Newsom has signed into law since he's been governor is like nuts. I mean, and these are not small bills, Pisco. These are not like we're naming a street after this famous trans person who died. These are bills that are, in California, we mandated, through legislation, mandated that insurance companies have to cover gender-affirming care. We passed a bill to ban teachers from outing trans students. We passed a bill to rigorously protect trans people's privacy. We made it significantly easier to change your government ID. And I mean privacy, like it's not public info that you changed your government ID. So, somebody, if they wanted to try to find out if you were trans, like you have so much more privacy in a state like California because of the laws that we passed here. All this to say, California inspired a slew of a bunch of other blue states who passed very similar bills. And so what do you see in terms of I've been talking for a little bit. I'm trying not to be too long-winded here, but like, what do you see as like the dominant discourse about, both Newsom specifically and just broadly the Democratic Party in terms of the Hassan kind of like populist lefty online space? Like in terms of trans issues, what is the rhetoric that you're hearing endlessly from these people?
I view that as a different question than I'm answering it though, but I just want to sort of know, I view that as a different question than flowchart logic. I think one is sort of presupposing a state of mind, a cultural context in which nothing is ever good enough and there's always a good reason. And the other is sort of like, what is the main narrative of the left? As far as I can ascertain it, some major figures on the left who are highly influential have concluded that like many Democratic politicians have abandoned sort of cowardly abandoned trans people and thrown them to the wolves or something.
Do you think that's true?
No.
Aren't you acknowledging a problem that I think is really big? Because we're just talking about trans people right now. We could go issue by issue by issue, but we could cover
healthcare,
dozens of issues, literally
immigration,
dozens of issues. The same exact thing is going on with these people's rhetoric. Not only are they wrong, they are telling their collective audiences of millions of people, maybe tens of millions of people, that the opposite is true. They're telling people that, in Hassan's own words, Democrats would just as soon murder trans people if they thought it would net them more votes. And then when you look at the reality of the situation, Democrats are holding the line and passing legislation to protect trans people, and the legislation is unpopular.
That's a good point.
They are spending, they're spending political capital to protect trans people when you give in states where the voters gave them the power to do that.
Yep.
I just don't view that as contradiction with the tweet. I mean, you're like, they're spending political capital on 80-20 issues. I thought the tweet was about, like, why is this an 80-20 issue in the first place?
Oh, before he would engage with it, now he doesn't want to engage with that point. Now he just wants to go back to the tweet. Okay.
It feels like the criticism of the tweet is like, why have we gotten to this place where public opinion is such and such, not like taking a complete, now maybe in other places they've continued that narrative. I'm just like reacting to the specific tweet, which, seems to take issue with the very fact that public opinion is that way, not that Democrats are unwilling to use political leverage in those moments, though, probably it's the case that they say that just based on my stereotyping them. But again, I don't have a basis to believe that they're showing that, and certainly not just looking at the tweet by itself.
I even if we want to go down that particular road, I even think that is
unfair. Anything what I just said? Well, what's unfair about what I just said there?
I think the premise is nonsense. I think the idea that we haven't had prominent Democratic Party politicians and prominent liberal pundits going to bat for trans people, like rhetorically on message. I could put together, if you want me to, I'll fucking do it. I can be obsessed and get shit done, but I can easily put a sizzle reel together of really prominent Democrats speaking up very strongly in defense of trans people all over the country. So this idea
was the most trans. Again, they're just wrong. I mean, like, yeah, and maybe you can show me some messages, some stuff where it says that they're saying something delusional, and I don't agree with them, and that's fine.
Okay.
But again, I think it's moving the goalpost. The goalpost was like, is this strictly speaking, flowchart logic? And I haven't seen enough just based on that, and maybe I'm like being too narrow and only addressing that aspect of it. But I'm happy to this is a meme that Democrats don't do enough. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's false. On the trans stuff, I think it's false.
I don't want to get caught up on what is the essential nature of the flowchart. I don't think that's important to the conversation. So we can reframe it in a way where we don't get bogged down in an argument that I think is a distraction from the bigger point, which is, get rid of the flowchart. And what you can still say is that, yes, this person is wrong when they put up that tweet, and this person is one of
I suspect it's my feeling that they're wrong. It's my intuition that they're wrong.
They are
I don't know how much money
they are absurdly wrong.
I wouldn't go to the, because right now I sit here and it feels like people will hear this and think that I'm being like unreasonable. Like, it's my intuition they're wrong. I don't know how much money and time they spent on counter messaging on the trans issues. I don't know on some issues whether or not they ought, like, what the right position in that context ought to be. Like, I'm sure I don't agree that that all competitive sports should allow for trans sex people or transgender people to play in them. So I'm just like not 100% sure on all these different issues what the Democratic effort in fact was. Now, I suspect that they're wrong about how much money, how much effort Democrats put into the messaging war, but I'm not sure. That's okay for me to be unsure.
Even if we wanted to dive into that framework, what would possibly incentivize the Democratic Party apparatus and like the donor base? What would possibly at this point incentivize them to invest, collectively $200 million into pro-trans messaging all over the country? I just don't understand why that would be an investment that they would even consider, because there's no good evidence that they would be given credit for that. There's a lot of evidence that this sort of pundit class on social media wouldn't pay attention, or they wouldn't care. They would say that it wasn't enough. They would still continue to, when you have the largest left-wing framer saying that the Democratic Party would rather murder trans people than if they thought that it would net them votes after everything the Democratic Party has done. Isn't that a really risky investment? Why would they do that?
Well, I don't know if their motivations rise and fall with what Hassan thinks. If that were the case, then you would think the Democrats would do things opposite.
It's not just, that's the point I'm getting at, Pisco. It's not just about him. It's about a larger cultural issue with this particular kind of young more leftist or populist leftist kind of politics, they all talk about the Democratic Party in this way. All of them. It's not just about Hassan. And many of them sort of like take his lead and just sort of repeat what they hear him say. So he's profoundly influential within that space, but this goes so much bigger than him. There's this. Are you familiar with a concept called the illusory truth effect?
Not in those terms, no.
I just learned about it recently, and now I just see it everywhere. I'm having a moment with the illusory truth effect, the same way that I had with the Green Lantern theory of politics, which is like something that I've been speaking to for a really long time, but apparently there's a term for it. This is a term that in psychology, it basically means that human beings are wired to believe things if we hear them repeated all over, like over and over. And if we see a lot of other human beings repeating something that even our intuition or even our own knowledge knows that it is not correct. They've done experiments, psychological experiments, like with groups and then control groups, where, you know, you'll get 10 people in a room and you'll ask them a question that's pretty straightforward, like, is the sky blue? I mean, this wasn't the example, but and you know, in the one group where it's just that's how people are, everybody in there's like, yes, the sky's blue. But then in the other group, they intentionally plant 9 people in that group and say, well, actually, the sky's actually kind of red. What they've observed is like they can reliably get that one person to change their mind and say, well, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, everyone's saying it's red.
Called
So
the
it's red. So,
illusory.
like, that is what I do happening. Is like you have these.
I remember learning about this in psychology. I
They
thought
can
it had a
repeat
different name.
I don't know what the name of the effect is, but the original psych experiment he's talking about was referred to as I think it's the Ask line test. I think the name is like ASCH.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Confidently repeated every fucking day on live streams and on Twitter and on debates and on TV, and after a while people are like, well, yeah, everybody knows that Democrats would murder trans people if they thought it would make them, if they would net them more votes. Like, this is the danger, Pisco, that I'm talking about. Like, this is the really destructive, corrosive, toxic effect of their kind of politics.
I'm confused. Is that showing up in, for example, if you poll trans people, is that their view? If you take a view at like electoral results where, you know, there are major trans advocacy groups that are, you know, in touch with their constituencies, where is the rhetoric, the false rhetoric, having its impact felt in terms of public polling, in terms of overall sentiment? I
don't know why you would jump to that. Wouldn't it be a better question to ask? No, let me just ask you, if you had to guess what percentage of Hassan's regular audience, and we can go beyond Hassan, all of these creators that are engaging in the kind of rhetoric that I'm talking about, which, you know, is on a spectrum of just bad faith.
Hassan, Denims, these lefties.
No, it's so much bigger than that. I'm saying there's like hundreds of creators that are in this ecosystem. Hundreds, you know, including Dead Domain, which is like, they're not a very big account. They have 25,000 viewers, right? Or 25,000 followers on Twitter. You know, I'm not going to like focus my energy and efforts on, you know, debunking this person's feed in the same way that I would Hassan. But my point is there's hundreds, maybe thousands of creators like them. Okay. And so within their collective shared audience, which, here's another useful question, Pisco, like, and then we'll get back to that thing. Like, how big do you think the collective audience is? I mean, there's no way to quantify it, right? But like, if you had to give a range, like, what do you think that number is?
I'm not sure. It's on averages like, what, 30 to 50,000 concurrent viewers. You know, we have right now AOC polling at 8% among Democrats. I think self-identified socialists are something like 20-30% among the Democratic Party. It's, you know, the people in the general left of the Democratic wing, it's probably millions. The audience for these different groups probably overlaps a lot. I'd be surprised if it's more than a million or two. Maybe it is.
I agree with your first answer. It's definitely, I would say probably tens of millions in terms of people that have like anti-establishment / populist kind of leanings within the Democratic Party voter base. But in terms of their collective audience, if I had to guess, I think the range is quite large. It's like anywhere between 8 to 25 million. Like, I think it's that big, right? And so
the audience of these people
collectively, all of them put together.
Of Americans or all across the world?
Americans. But this obviously would include, I mean, like all across the world, you know.
For me, it's napkin math. I'm not sure. Well, I don't know what you believe that.
Okay, I don't want to get bogged down on that because that's not the important point. But like within that pool, how many of them do you think would agree with the Dead Domain post that the you know,
are doing enough on trans messaging?
And more than that, that the reason why the country has backslid a bit in terms of trans support, like when you get down to it, is because the Democrats didn't do enough to.
It's not you can't say that it's an exclusive. They put all the blame on Democrats. I mean, surely implied there is blame for Republicans who are doing the messaging themselves. So I wouldn't grant that the best way to read that is Democrats get all the blame.
I disagree.
But I would accept that. Do you think that they're not blaming Republicans at all?
No, I think they see Republicans as like a fire, you know, and they see the.
Hey, hello.
Democrats as like firefighters. Like the fire doesn't have like sentient consciousness. Now the fire is just going to spread, right? And so, you know, if I craft an analogy with a fire, you know, that is what I think they view the Democrats as like it's their job to put out this fire. And so I think they blame, you know, if you had firefighters that did a really bad job of like defending a home or whatever, then in the same way that you wouldn't necessarily blame the fire, you would blame these firefighters. But I'm saying that their premise is wrong. Like these people, the Republicans are sentient. They are making conscious decisions. They are deliberately propagandizing in this way.
They don't treat Republicans as moral agents or something, right?
Yeah, it's all kind of abstract. Like the Republican threat is like more abstract. Yeah.
I guess maybe that's true for some people. I don't know enough about this person to put them in that camp, so I'm going to read that tweet as suggesting Democrat fault, not to the exclusion of Republican fault, but as you know, as a thing to work on, and something that was a failure. But without more, I'm not comfortable saying that I know this person doesn't ascribe agency to Republicans. Maybe they do. I just don't have the basis to believe that.
Okay, just so you
unreasonable? Just unreasonable? I don't know who this person is, Hutch. If I read that, if I put a critique of Democrats, you're like, what? So you only blame Democrats even though Trump's the president? I'd be like, fuck, I said a whole different thing, dude. I didn't say that.
No,
That's bad faith.
to be clear, I do think it's reasonable for you to say, well, I haven't seen the rest of this person's feed. What I can tell you is that I have spent some time scrolling through the feed, and now I've had a few tweets pop up. This is not an isolated incident, but I do appreciate that you would be more comfortable, seeing that with your own eyes.
If I tweeted them in response to this, I say, do you put any blame on Republicans for this? You think they would say no?
No, I think they would retreat to the mile at that point.
Oh, so you do?
I think that they would be like, well, yeah, of course, but the Republicans are the Republicans, and we're trying to change the left-wing movement. They would kind of retreat to that thing. But I think
What if that does explain why they emphasize Democrats over
because the framing is like we're beyond misleading, and we're kind of approaching a territory of intentionally obfuscating. Like I view this kind of rhetoric to be that irresponsible, and that is what we're talking about at the end of the day. We're talking about irresponsible, lazy rhetoric. Is how I see it. It's lazy. Anybody with the technology that exists now, anybody could look up and find, all the different laws, pro-trans laws that blue states have passed. You should do that if you're going to dive into politics and if you're going to opine on the impact of electing this party versus that party. And if you want to focus on particular issues, you should go state by state. What Ohio, state governor and legislature are Republicans. What kind of bills have they passed pertaining to trans people? Washington, you should go state by state. And with the technologies that exist today, you can get those answers pretty fucking quickly. And that is that's the thing that frustrates me beyond belief, Pisco, is that
is this unfalsifiable though? Because what would it take for me to demonstrate that this person actually does ascribe moral agency to Republicans and blames them for a lot of things? What kind of evidence would convince you that this person does what you say he does not, or they do not?
If they told the truth, if they said, actually, it's the case that while I want them to go further on a number of issues, and while the work is not done yet, the Democratic Party has sacrificed a ton of political capital all over the country for years now. They're still holding the line.
It's a different position, right? So
that's the correct position, Pisco.
Okay, no, I'm just asking what there was this. I thought you were alleging or saying that these people blame Democrats to the exclusion of Republicans, and on that specific claim, I'm like, well, what would it take for you to be convinced that that's not true for this person? What kind of evidence would he show that, regardless of whether or not the true position is that Democrats sacrifice capital in service of trans people, which I think is absolutely true. But regardless of that, what would it take for me, specifically on the point of Republicans not being treated with any kind of agency or any kind of, or like not focusing on them, what would it take for you to be convinced actually it's not true about this person?
Their advocacy would have to completely transform. So, for example, there's nothing stopping. I mean, if you hold my position, and even if we disagree about the numbers, right? I said anywhere between like 5 and 20 million collective audience, either passive or super engaged, viewers. If you took a position that they have significant audience size, they could all tomorrow coordinate with each other and plan and execute demonstrations outside of Republican state legislature politicians, U.S. representatives, Republicans in the Congress. They could organize protests tomorrow at the same time, and they all have the collective audience size to be able to pull off something really impressive to demonstrate their anger and contempt and rage at the appropriate people who should be the targets of that rage. But instead, what they do is, should we just move away from flowchart, because we just very much disagree. Okay, like I think they should be targeting the people that are doing the actual damage instead of going out of their way to treat the Republican Party as though they're this amorphous blob that's not sentient and cannot be swayed one way or the other with political pressure.
Well, that might be true, right? Like, it might be true that we can't sway Republicans.
Wait, what do you mean?
To our side.
How could you believe that? Look at what happened in Minnesota. Look at what happened in Minnesota.
I'm not saying that I think it is true. I'm just like, it could be one justified reason, for example, not to canvass in like Republican-heavy areas is because you get more bang for your buck efficiency-wise going for independents or people who lean your side already. So like, I don't flatly reject
hang on, but that is such a bad analogy. Because an analogy about canvassing, like, yeah, sure, that makes sense that if you were to spend money strategically, maybe you'd spend money in a fucking R+3 district instead of an R+15 district. That makes sense. But in that context, you're talking about advocacy, trying to get out there and help elect Democrats. Like, that's the remedy in that spot. We're talking about them going out of their way to push a completely, just a totally absurd narrative that is not true, is the opposite of true about the Democratic Party. They're doing activism against the Democratic Party, even though the Democratic Party is holding the line in a way that almost no other political party in the entire world is doing right now.
Oh, I get that, but I'm just like on the specific point of, well, we focus our attention on people on our side because that's people who are going to most likely like win hearts and minds. Isn't that like your whole rationale for focusing on these people anyway? Right? Like, isn't the focus on these people to the exclusion of MAGA and Republicans with your criticism? Isn't that premised by the same logic, Hutch, which is that we would rather spend our time, consolidating our own than wasting time in a place where it's not as efficient? I thought that was like your whole thing.
You're gonna have to dumb that way down for me.
Okay. So
my brain is not the best brain. Okay, you got to talk to me like a fucking sixth grader sometimes, Pisco.
I'm trying to. I'm sorry if I'm too like verbose.
Your lawyerly words, like we get it. You have a degree, bro. It's fucking cool. That's great. Can we move on? You passed the bar. Okay, fine, great.
Okay. You spend a lot of time criticizing lefties who are like more, or at least claim some kind of position in quote unquote our coalition, our camp on the left, and you do so. I thought on the rationale that, well, I want to grab their audience, and it's actually like not an inefficient use of my time to spend focusing on these people because it's a huge area where Democrats can get gains is by suppressing this kind of internal, or at least more internal, opposition, which is functionally oppositionary, but like from within our house, right? And isn't that like the same logic of someone who would say, well, I spend all my time criticizing Democrats on Israel or on trans issues because I know that it's like, it's better to get my house in order, similar to how you would say it for the lefties. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, but I don't think it's the same thing because I'm right and they're wrong.
Oh, you might be right and they might be wrong. I just mean like in terms of the incentive structure, like it doesn't mean they're necessarily bad faith and they don't believe what they believe. It could just be like they tactically see it like a waste of their time, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But similar to how you might think, well, it's actually efficient for me. There's plenty of room for people to be self-critical when it comes to lefties. They might think the same thing about like the libs or whatever, or the establishment people. Now we might disagree with them, but it doesn't necessarily speak to their good or bad faith.
Yeah, I like when you introduce the element of bad faith, that's kind of a different conversation because like this person Dead Domain, I watched a couple of their videos. I've seen a few of their tweets that pop up on the feed. I don't assume that this person's bad faith. I assume that this person has been kind of swept up by that illusory truth effect that I was telling you about before. I think the bad faith actors are typically on like the top rung of content creation and audience size. And I think that Dead Domain does these kinds of tweets for a number of reasons, but probably one of the biggest reasons is to signal that they're a part of like the morally correct tribe. And so that's a different kind of incentive. Like I don't assume that this person is bad faith. I assume that this person genuinely believes that the Democrats have abandoned trans people such that the Republicans have carved out a lane and, capitalized on Democratic negligence to move the public away from trans people. That doesn't mean that I think this person is bad faith. And to your other point, the reason why, would you agree? Here's my premise. I think that normies...
Oh shit, did you see that Hassan got a soundboard? Okay, Hooten can just fucking ignore me. Fuck you. Apparently he's a new sound today.
She wants the soundboard. Here, look at this. Kaya, place.
Epic. Super epic.
I now officially have a place button.
When I say normies, I mean people that are not like super engaged in politics, which is a lot of the country. A lot. That's like probably over 50% of the country are not regularly consuming politics. They're thinking about their careers, they're thinking about their mortgage, thinking about their kids, their families, their hobbies. My mom is a super normie, like just does not pay attention to politics really hardly at all. Even though my dad has Fox News on the TV like 12 hours a day, she's doing her fucking Sudoku puzzles and reading and just whatever. The normies and the disaffected left, we might say, would be maybe a better precise term. I think there's more opportunity to claw away people from those positions, like apathy and outward antipathy towards the Democratic Party. I think the case to make is like easy, because I think that the case that the populist left are making is they're so lazy, they're so reckless in the way that they cover things, they make so many errors that I think it's really easy to just annihilate a narrative of, for example, the Democrats have like abandoned trans people. I think it is easy to annihilate that because there are literally like hundreds of bills across all these different states protecting trans people versus hundreds of bills across all these red states that are discriminating against trans people. And so for me, I'm imagining an audience member, and I'll wrap up, listening to someone, their favorite streamer, they rely on this person for information, they trust their information, and then they accept these premises. Yeah, Democrats would probably murder trans people if it got more votes. I imagine bombarding that person with like 100 bills and being like, offering a different kind of take. And I imagine that person maybe going, 'Cause I don't know, have you ever had the experience, Pisco, where you had something in your mind and you treated it like conventional wisdom, and then somebody came along and offered a different kind of take, and it got you to really change? That's what I'm trying to do in these spaces. I'm trying to attack this.
It just feels very like the mirror image of what Hassan says, right? Like Hassan says something to the effect of like, our leaders don't represent the actual base of the Democrats who are hungering for a populist option who supports Medicare for all, and this is why I spend all my time in advocacy, or at least a lot of it, criticizing Democrats. Although I don't think we concede all of it. I think we concede some of it for sure. A big part of it is because they're not properly calibrated. There's not this typicality of the heads of the Democratic Party with respect to their constituency, and therefore I think that they're just waiting for a better narrative, a narrative they already agree with, they just don't know yet, and we're going to sort of like awaken them into a broader class consciousness. I don't say that I agree with that, but what I say is I think that in terms of the argument by way of concentration, that is, we concentrate on putting our house in order first. I don't view that as fundamentally invalid or like bad faith indicating or flowchart indicating. In any particular case, yeah.
You know who I'm channeling right now? My energy when I hear you talk about this? Fucking Andrew Wilson.
What do you mean?
Well, I got roped into doing a debate with him, and it was supposed to be about politics and national, like Christian nationalism. And then he turned it into a conversation that he's like way more practicing than I am, which is about like meta. Like, no, I'm making a point. Like when you talk about them in this kind of way, you're almost treating it as this. You're coming at it from this like really super subjective kind of position. So for me, it's reminiscent of the fucking meta ethics debate of like moral relativism versus just like objective morality. You're saying like, well, they have a different perspective, so that's valid. And I'm saying that their premises are just wrong. Like they are wrong, and they are spreading what I consider to be bad faith lies, which then trickle down to people like this creator here, who sees them as reliable narrators and accepts what they say at face value and then just repeats those lies. This is a systemic problem that is doing very real damage. And if we could activate these people and they're like skew younger, if we could activate them and push them into a direction of a commitment to long-term electoral engagement, to start treating politics like a long-term project instead of shouting demands every 2 years and then sitting it out a lot of the times because those demands were not made. If we can change their perspective on what is a coalition, what is a realistic timeline for the goal that I want to accomplish, maybe it would be easier to focus on accomplishing that goal at the state level first. Instead of this like, well, Gavin Newsom opposes a billionaire tax, therefore he wants to protect billionaires, and therefore I can't consider voting for Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, I think that like a lot of times there are malicious actors who spread narratives that are bad faith and stupid, and I would distinguish them from people who are just like thinking about things unclearly. And so that's why I'm like, I'm trying to carve out a sphere of both political influencer and political content consumer that isn't. It's not like they're evil. It's not like they need to be like killed or destroyed or silenced or whatever. They just have the wrong ideas, or they haven't thought about a thing in a particular way. I hear like IRI talk about this a lot too. And so when I meet with someone, they might take the view, well, I'm going to focus on the Democrats because it's going to have the best effect. And I might say, well, don't you realize that by failing to recognize when they do accomplishments, you are not, doing the other side of it, or like, you could introduce to them, this is the legislation that was passed. Is it really fair to say that we haven't used? And I view that as a fundamentally different discussion than
I agree.
one where it seemed to be, well, these people are all bad faith. They're all part of a network that is designed to depress Democratic turnout, or like they are enemies.
Those two things can be mutually
in a certain way.
true.
Well, I don't think what you said makes a lot of sense. You're talking about speaking to the people who have had their opinions influenced by people that are not giving them good information and taking a different kind of tone with them. And I agree with you. So like if I'm having a conversation with somebody and they're open-minded, they're not rigid and dogmatic, because there's like a difference, right? Like you would agree, right? Like you've had the occasion to speak with someone who was open to your like new information, right? And that's a different kind of conversation. Like I would never, if I'm in a conversation like that with somebody, I would never start being like, you're fucking stupid, you're just like bad faith. I would never take that tone. I would see that as an opportunity to introduce new information to maybe
right. I'm
change the thinking.
This is why, like, okay, maybe it was.
But I'm not saying that domain is bad faith. I think you're missing that.
Okay. Sorry, maybe I totally misunderstood. It sounded like you were trying to get me to agree that this is like the toxic shit that I'm talking about. This is the kind of bad faith shit that I'm talking about.
Well, no, they
like
fell into the trap, is what.
No, I agree. I totally. So like, hold on, let me.
But okay.
On that post,
I'm sorry.
On that post, I replied to that post. And you can see the tone that I take, right? Like I want to show you because I think this is really important and it gets to what we're talking about. Where the fuck is the tweet?
I think it's our DMs, right?
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah. Okay, all right. So if you click on that, right?
You said, wait, you understand that the issue here is that the Democratic Party has continued to adopt policies and pass anti-discrimination legislation that protects trans people's access to gender-affirming care, privacy, despite the fact that the policies are becoming more unpopular, right? I'm sorry, Hutch. It just seems to like not address the critique. Which
Wait, what?
Is that
this is, but I'm trying to get you see, Pisco.
Yeah.
I'm not shouting at this person saying,
No.
fuck you, you're doing all this damage.
Right.
If I thought that they were, if I thought that they were bad, yeah, go ahead.
we're seeing other left-wing parties across the world substantively walk back support for trans people in a way that does not happen with Democrats. Again, I don't think that quite addresses it. The issue is that Republican conservatives have had a massive media, okay, this is better, and social media network that devotes an insane amount of time and energy demonizing trans people. Why would you spend your time doing fuck the Dems flowchart logic? Okay, this is accusing bad faith, blaming them for allowing Republicans to do this, to attack the party that's holding the line. It's when you do flowchart logic, you're kind of accusing them of being
not necessarily. I'm not. No. I'm
okay, sorry.
Like somebody could be
Like, you could argue that Hutch's tweet could have been less aggressive, sure, but bro, compared to what these fucking lefties are tweeting and doing all the time, fucking Hutch's tweet here.
Can you read the tweet?
He just read it. He was just reading it. I feel like this guy's trying to kill me.
No, you're gonna.
Hold on.
I fucking lost my debit card, so I'm looking for it.
Why'd you lose your debit card, bro?
Well, because I have ADHD bad and I just fucking misplace it.
Have you ever thought about just not doing that? Limeo.
I've thought, yeah. But I was too busy fucking your mom and she,
Based? Fuck this thing? Okay.
be doing the fuck the Dems flowchart logic because they genuinely believe in the principle of fuck the Dems flowchart. Or somebody could be like Hassan, who's doing it in a malicious bad faith.
Wait. Fuck, I know this motherfucker's coming to kill me. I'm gonna get annoyed.
It's a dishonest way. When he says something like Gavin Newsom would kill a trans person. I mean, can we just dwell on that for a second, bro? He said that. Yeah, I can forgive a little bit of hyperbole. I can forgive a little bit of hyperbole. Okay, that's fine. All right, listen, we put pepper on things. We're streamers. It is what it is. But that is a really remarkable thing to say. That the Democrats would rather murder you. If they knew that murdering you would get them more votes, they would murder you. That is him saying that the Democratic Party, as an institution, is evil to its core. Right? Would you agree with that though? Would you agree with that? Like he's saying that the Democratic Party is evil and
what is Pisco
dehumanizing,
possibly about
and
to
they
say?
don't
Is he going to
value
defend that?
the lives and safety of vulnerable people.
It.
That's what he's saying. Yes.
He's saying that they're unprincipled and that they follow wherever the wind blows.
But that necessarily means that the Democratic Party don't care about vulnerable people.
As a principled matter, right? Like they value their own, professional ambition and political
it's all
ambition.
A lie. It's all a lie. It's all performative. All they care about is rainbow flags and performative corporate advertising and they don't actually care about the suffering in the way that I do. I, Hassan Piker. And in fact, how dare you accuse me, Hassan Piker, of not caring about trans people? That was the other part of that clip that I left out. But like, that's the other part of it too, which is like very Trumpy, right? That's very Trumpy, right?
Well, wait, Trumpy to say that they don't care about you, the politicians don't care about you?
It's very Trumpy to frame it in a way of they're not coming after me, they're coming after you, and I'm in the way. And so all these people that are coming down on me, Hassan Piker, all these people that are coming down on me, it's because they're chorus paid or they're DC consultants, and they're a part of the machine that would rather murder you if they thought that it would get them votes. I'm the guy. Don't question me. How dare you say that I don't care about trans people? Because I would say I would vote for third party. I'm Hassan Piker. Have you seen me with my media vest when I go on the streets, when I walk amongst the people? Like it's that kind of framing, right? It's very self-serving. It's very Trumpy. Yeah.
To the extent that it's like leaning on notions of the establishment don't care or swamp creature or whatever the fuck. I mean, I guess that's Trumpy. And yeah, but like I just don't know that sentiment. To me, they don't really care about you. Politicians don't care about you. They'd suck the adrenochrome out of your skull if you could get them an extra vote. You remember Hillary Clinton did the about face on gay marriage? Like a lot of politicians are like this, and they see which way the wind is blowing. And
what an unbelievable comparison! Holy shit, kill me! What a waste of time this conversation is.
They changed it on a dime.
Oh my god!
Come on, man.
Do you doubt that?
There is a difference between like politicians shifting with the political winds in ways that
like this is beneath both of them.
Sense.
This explanation.
And, would you argue, for example, that it would be morally good to take let's just take Obama, for example. Obama in 2008. The country had not moved at that point to majority support for gay marriage. And he ran on marriage between a man and a woman. I think he was lying when he said that. I think he did support gay marriage. And then when he eventually switched, it was like kind of like right around the time that the Supreme Court decision came in, and it was right around the time that the public shifted to majority support for gay marriage. Would you argue that it is morally good to lie about a position like that if it helps you win an election and therefore empowers you to, say, for example, appoint a Supreme Court justice who was one of those votes for Obergefell?
I'd have to be convinced. I mean, you're just presenting me the harm reduction trolley problem again, and of course I'll bite the bullet that sometimes lying is justified. I would have to, the particular lie and the context of it matter.
That's what I'm talking about, though.
But that's part of the critique, though. It's not just in terms of signaling; it's in terms of what they're willing to do. And
we've already discussed, though. Hey, hang on. We've already discussed what they're willing to do, bro. I mean, they have basically every single blue state. They are passing laws going to bat for trans people.
In the now context, but again, deal with the. I know that he's a bad faith piece of shit. Fuck Hassan bad. But if we are gonna do the labor of actually like dealing with the point as though he were a good faith, good person, whatever, then we should just like address the point. The point isn't that now Democrats are doing literally nothing. The point is that he's not a reliable ally in that all it would take is a shift in public polling, and all of a sudden, you can't count on them. That's the kind of critique there. And by saying, well, now they're doing stuff, it's not really addressing Hassan's point. And I think that you ought to. I think you ought to take it on its strongest. And the one thing you might say is, well, look, right now it's unpopular to do certain things, and they're still doing it. And so you're wrong, Hassan, because A, B, C, or D. And Gavin Newsom, did this, that, and the third, and that shows you that you're actually wrong about it, about what's going on there. But I don't think that like saying they don't really care about us. In some ways, like you embody that in terms of your ruthless attitude towards electoralism. Like you're willing to say, if it helps win an election, like, all right, sorry, abortion rights. If I knew that it would give us like Medicare for all, you're ruthless in that sense. And so everything's up for negotiation if you're, I guess, a harm reductionist or something. And I think that to some extent, he's calling into question what these politicians really care about. And I don't agree with him, obviously.
No, you are going to extraordinary lengths to sanitize unhinged language.
I'm sanitizing.
Because you're saying that there's validity there. You're saying there's a messaging strategy there. You're saying it's perfectly valid for him to, you're doing a Mott and Bailey. You're giving him a Mott right now. Because you're saying, well, politicians do this all the time, and sometimes they say that they don't support gay marriage back in like fucking 2007 when 44% of the country supported gay marriage, and therefore, it's really not too dissimilar from Hassan saying that Democrats would rather murder you than try to court your vote.
No, but you understand what he's saying there, isn't that? He's saying that they're.
He's saying they don't care about you.
He's saying, but yeah, they don't really care about your rights.
Pisco, why?
You have to address that though.
Why are you treating? Can I ask you? Do you think that Hassan is like largely good faith?
No.
Then what are you doing?
Yeah.
I don't understand the defense. Why would you defend someone who you think is bad faith? Why would you give them a Mott like this in this spot? Why would you not? I already told you the Mott. You compared his rhetoric to politicians shifting their political opinions or support for this or that policy after the public gets on
Which
board
is
with
Hassan's
it.
point, yeah. But no, that's Hassan's point. He might be wrong in the specific instance of trans rights, and I think you have a good case there. I'm just like, whether or not someone's bad faith, I'm like, I think Rob Noor is very bad faith, but I still like try to address his argument.
But you said, oh wait. Okay, I feel very confused right now, Pisco. I don't understand how you operate like
Tell
this.
me why you're confused.
I don't understand how you operate like this. If you tell me that you think Hassan is largely bad faith, why would you go to such extraordinary lengths to reinterpret his insane rhetoric in a way that is sanitized? It is sanitized. You're sanitizing.
I don't. So I'm trying to understand what he's saying in the most reasonable way. And so when someone says like they would shoot you for a vote, I don't take that literally. I take that as to be like they don't care about you, and they are basically willing to throw all their principles to the wind for their personal political ambition. That's how I understand that statement. Now maybe I should interpret that he thinks that Gavin Newsom is a fucking serial killer. I just don't think that's the most reasonable interpretation of what he's saying. Maybe I should take a more unreasonable interpretation of that statement.
But
I'm just trying to.
Surely you know that when I hear him say that the Democrats would rather murder trans people, surely you understand that I'm not taking him literally. I am looking for what he's actually trying to say there.
Yeah, he said they don't really care about him.
Right. Do you think that's good faith?
That.
Do you think that's a good faith critique?
Well, hang on. Good faith critique means it's done honestly. I mean, it could.
Yeah.
It could
do you
be
think
good faith.
do you think he's being honest when he says that?
I'm not sure. I think that they have insane standards, and so they really do think that like they could be honest about their insane standards. You agree that they have genuinely held insane standards, right?
Republicans?
No, fucking lefties. They'll be like, okay, but he said this one thing about trans people in sports, and that's the most important thing, and therefore I do believe they have no principles on the basis of that statement by itself. Or they'll say something like, well, AOC voted for the Iron Dome, therefore she's a pro-Israel shill, therefore she's a Zionist. Like, those are just like some insane standards that some people have, and so in any given context, you're asking me to just be like, they're lying, right? They're lying, right? They're lying, right? Like, I don't know. Like,
but we're looping to my point, which is that the people, we're looping to my broadest point, which is that the people that have the most influence in that space are using that influence in bad faith ways, deliberately to be dishonest to their audiences and manipulate them into holding these views that are frankly absurd. Or let me put this a different way. When Hassan does that, when he uses that rhetoric, let's just focus on that specifically. We could be broader with it, but like, let's just focus on that specifically. What do you think?
Newsom would shoot you for a vote, right?
Yes.
Or for trans people.
What do you think that lie? And don't tell me he doesn't know that it's a lie. I mean, this is like, there's no conceivable way that he doesn't know that blue states and Democrats have been going to bat for trans. There's no way he's not aware of the different conditions for trans people in a red state versus a blue state. You would agree that, right? Like, there's no way he doesn't know that, right?
I think he's ignorant in a lot of things, so I think there is a way that he doesn't know it.
You think that he doesn't know that it's way better for a trans person to live in a blue state than a red state?
Oh, I think he probably knows that, but I thought you're talking about like the full panoply of different things the Democrats have done. I think it's possible he's ignorant about that. I think that he's aware that it's better to be a trans person in a Democrat state, yes.
So then what he said has to be bad faith.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. This feels like a bit of cognitive dissonance to me. I don't know how you could simultaneously think that Hassan is well aware that states run by Democrats are way better for trans people. And that means something. That means like legislation, policy, right? He knows that. I don't know how you could say that and then say it's not bad faith for him to say that Democrats would shoot you if they thought it got them more votes.
Because they're different points. One is about what Democrats are actually implementing. The other is what they would implement if public opinion shifted. They're different things. You understand?
Say it again. Dumb it down for me.
Okay. Hassan's statement is about what Dems would do if polling shift, and your thing is what Dems actually do.
Mm-hmm.
Different things, right?
Okay, hold on. Let me expand on this point. Going beyond the fact that I think it's obvious that Hassan knows that blue states are passing myriad bills to protect trans people. I think he knows very specifically that that is what is going on. And I think he also knows that these efforts have been unpopular with the public. So he's seen the polling, but the polling shows that the voters themselves have moved right on a number of issues. Therefore, he has to know that the Democrats have done this pro-trans stuff despite the fact that they've paid a political price for it.
Well, I'm not.
Which is the
sure
opposite
about-
of
wait.
which is the opposite of they would shoot you if it got them more votes. They're taking steps that they know is unpopular, but they're doing it anyways to protect
Yeah.
trans people. That these are as far away from each other as they could possibly be.
Yeah, so then I think, so first of all, I'm glad that we're moving off of just the mere absolute fact about whether or not it's better in blue versus red isn't enough to know that Hassan is being bad faith. But again, the fact that it's nationally unpopular doesn't necessarily mean that it's like locally unpopular in a way that they would internalize it. And so I think again, just being totally good faith, just because the Democrats are taking some measures, and I don't know if Hassan's take is that those are the measures that he thinks that are unpopular that should be taken, but even assuming that they are, in the context of a blue state where overwhelming sentiment is with them, I think is different than looking at the overall national polls and saying, that they're doing it in that context. I think it would be like where the winds are shifting in such a way that they should be receptive to it. And for someone like Newsom, he is charting a course to try to have a more, someone even say like sane approach to trans issues or whatever, a more moderate approach to trans issues. That's a lane that he's I think, carving for himself. Not to say that he's anti-trans or anything. I would totally disagree with that. But that I think is his critique. Not that Democrats in places where they're safe do things that are nationally unpopular, but in situations in which the polling is shifting in a context in which it would affect their ambitions, then they would shift. That make sense?
It does, but I have to say, Pisco, who is my boy and I love deeply and has a degree from law school, I don't know how to reconcile what you're saying right now, which to me amounts to making an effort to interpret what Hassan said in good faith. Would you agree that that's what you're trying to do?
I'm trying to interpret it in good faith.
I don't know how to reconcile that with you saying 10 minutes ago that you think Hassan is largely bad faith.
What's the contradiction?
Why would you make such an effort for someone who has demonstrated that they will be bad faith at the drop of a hat consistently?
Because I think it's intellectually honest and consistent of me to do so. And otherwise, this just turns into Hassan lies, Hassan bad, and there's like nothing of substance for us to discuss other than he sucks. It's literally a circle jerk. And what is there to discuss?
Well, I think we're talking about something like much bigger than just Hassan sucks. I think I've made that point like clear that I think it goes way bigger than that. But like, say for example, you on Monday like really grilled me. You accused me of bad faith, and so I guess I'm a little confused of like why you would go out of your way to try to interpret what Hassan said in good faith when you say he's largely bad faith. But when I tell you it's difficult for me to justify voting for a Marxist-Leninist, you jump to the conclusion of, well, you're being bad faith because you don't like him. Do you think I'm more bad faith than Hassan?
No.
I don't know how to make sense of this then.
Yeah. So like in the context of our conversation, I don't know that I specifically accused you of bad faith other than dodging. So dodging, I think, is bad faith. I think you did dodge. But putting that aside, like I think that in interpreting Hassan's statement, everything I said so far has been reasonable. Like he's basically saying that Democrats are fair weather friends. I don't agree with that as to every Democrat. Some I do agree. There are some Democrats who I think are definitely fair weather friends. I think that's a reasonable interpretation.
Even right now,
I don't think I've interpreted you ever bad faith. I don't know what interpretation of yours was bad faith. I think that there is some personal animus towards Hassan, and some might even be justified. I think that in some sense you are justified to have personal animus against Hassan. But the question about Epstein, I think, brought out some what I think are contradictions, or at least entailments that you were uncomfortable with and uncomfortable to reconcile. But I do think I was trying to interpret you in good faith.
If there's two things that because how long have we been doing the pod now, man? Like a year and a half. If there's two things about me that like really drive me is number one, the principle of taking the harm reduction seriously, and number two, a principled positive view of liberalism. I mean, beyond positive, I think that liberalism is like, it's essential that we maintain a liberal structure in this country. And so 100%. if I tell you that as a like principled liberal that really values like we could go into the minutia of like liberalism, but basically we're talking about a system that was devised to be a bulwark against a concentration of power, against like the various monarchies. You know, it was a principle of democracy, and all the values that spring from that are things that I think are really important in terms of maintaining this order. Things like the rule of law and free speech and the ability to, you know, form political parties if you want to do that, and criticize the government, and you know, individual rights and free markets and these kinds of things. And when I was telling you that even if you put a preposterous hypothetical in front of me, it's really difficult for me to ever entertain the idea of giving a liberal Marxist-Leninist who believes in a uniparty the presidency. You interpreted that.
Why didn't you grant the Epstein?
You interpreted that to be.
If that's your view, you should have granted it. If that was your view, you should have been like, yeah, of course I'd vote for Epstein over Hassan.
You're doing it right now. Don't you see that? I feel like you're trying to trap me in you're trying to trap me in an Epstein thing, bro. You're distracting it.
You don't have to, no,
it doesn't matter. The particulars don't matter. Whoever his opposition is, it doesn't matter. If you tell me that my choices are a Marxist-Leninist tanky who wants to end liberal democracy and anyone you can think of, do you not think that it's like
it's a layup for you?
Do you not think that it is? No, but you're doing the prime Kais, Pisco. That's what you're doing.
What am I doing this prime Kai?
You're clip farming. That is what you're doing.
I'm not trying to clip farm.
You're missing the point. Is it not reasonable for me, because you know that I'm consistent in these things? Like, you should know that about me by now, that I do consistently value these things. Like, I'm not kidding when I say that, right? So like, why would you jump to the conclusion that I was motivated by personal grievance with Hassan rather than, well, I don't know, I'm very hesitant to give a Marxist-Leninist the presidency? That's like pretty difficult for me. I would even entertain, you know, reanimated Hitler or whoever you might think. Like, it might be a difficult choice. I mean, maybe not Hitler. That's a bad choice. Yeah. Hold on. Let me get some water. Give me like 2 seconds.
Oh yeah. Sure. I have a lot to respond.
Fuck it. We'll go back 7 minutes.
That you seem
I give it to you.
That you seem eager to give to Hassan, who you say is largely bad faith. I would like, at minimum, the same amount of charitability. Is that unreasonable?
No, it's not unreasonable, and I feel that I give it to you. I want to address some of the things you said. So on the personal thing, I said that before, the hypothetical on Epstein specifically, and it's a true statement, Hutch. It is personal between you two. You granted that in the course of this conversation. Me observing that is, I don't think, bad faith at all. It's an accurate description. On the specific hypothetical.
That's a bad statement, because whether or not something is personal doesn't mean that the entirety of he's actually making would you consider this fallacy where somebody, well, no, not technically, where just because somebody might engage in fallacious reasoning means that their conclusion is incorrect. It's not true, but that wouldn't be it here. But like, there could be multiple causes for the reason why a person doesn't like somebody, and one could be partially personal, but like, it's not like Hutch is making a ton of personal attacks at Hassan. He's got attacks that have substance to them, but he also might personally not like him too, which is fair given that Hassan was spreading Hutch's docs. So, I mean,
I thought that was a layup for you. First of all, I didn't bring up Epstein in the first context. That was you, addressing IRI, and you asked IRI that question. Unless you're willing to grant that was unfair clip chipping of IRI, I don't know why asking you a similar question is.
No, you drilled. But you were drilled. You went into a mode. You were like, just say you vote for Epstein. Fucking say it, bro. Just fucking say it. I think you're motivated by it
because that is. Wait, no, but think about it, right? Like, that should be a layup, because it sounds like what you're saying is, I would never consider voting for a Marxist-Leninist and all the things about Stalin. Then why not grant it? And so the only option is you wouldn't grant it because it would look bad. But any more bad than saying you vote for Epstein over Trump?
Dude, come on.
How would that be worse?
That's another thing that you know about me. Is
you said it.
Another thing that you know about me, Pisco, is that I will bite crazy, insane bullets and don't give a fuck. The point of my hesitancy, like, that was the bigger point. Like, the fact that I would have to pause and be like, well, you know, is Epstein committed to ending liberal democracy? That is totally consistent with my principles.
Sorry, it's not. What? It's not, because I'll tell you what's not. Because you didn't consider that when you first said Epstein over Trump. You didn't think, hey, what about Epstein's commitment to liberal democracy? You didn't have to think of.
I mean, I think that was the point. I don't think we've seen any evidence that like Epstein is like a illiberal, commie fascist or whatever, right? Is my understanding. I mean, I'm sure that factored in a bit, but also you're probably having a default assumption that a person probably broadly supports liberalism if they're in the United States as well. Like you probably assume that by default. I think that's a fair assumption to make.
About that, and so you have to explain why you would have to think about it with Hassan, but you wouldn't have to think about it with Trump. Because you already granted that before you even knew the.
Pisco, how are you not connecting the dots? What's the through line between Trump and Hassan?
You think Hassan is worse than Trump?
No. Come on. What's the through line between them that I would have an issue with?
I'm presuming liberalism and
Yes,
authoritarian
they're
systems.
illiberal. Yes.
You didn't need to know Epstein's position when you granted
Because
that.
Epstein is because you wouldn't default assume that Epstein is illiberal. You would assume that most people are liberals, broadly speaking. Is how it goes.
Epstein was preferable to Trump in the election, but you somehow do need to know it for Hassan.
Like the counter question that Hutch should ask here, although this is stupid because this is a waste of time because Pisco is being needlessly obstinate in this conversation. I guess intentionally so. I don't even know at this point. Like Hutch should ask Pisco, hold on, Pisco, let's say that you were able to reveal that Epstein was actually a fascist or Epstein was actually a communist. Do you think that I would still choose Epstein over Trump or Epstein over Hassan or whatever? Well, no. Then the answer would probably change significantly at that point, too. The point of the Epstein comparison wasn't that I would choose a stranger or whatever. It was that I would choose a guy with supreme moral depravity, a guy who is so unbelievably personally disgusting, right? As a defense of the liberal world order over somebody like Donald Trump. That was the point, right?
Listen, I think we would need to flesh out these hypotheticals a little bit more. Do you agree?
I think that's fair, but you already
Because there's a couple different ways that you could unpack, like Epstein v. Can we please, like, is there any other historical figure that you can think of that would be better here? We need to move on from this.
I'm not going to make you answer the question, Hutch, but you can't accuse me of bad faith in the context of this discussion.
No, we're getting sidetracked. You're making me forget. You're making me forget. Don't do it. You know I forget things. Don't do it, okay? I've already forgot what I was saying. Chat, what was I just saying? This is what you do. You get in my head, you do lawyerly tricks. I know what you're doing.
It's not a trick. No, listen, I'm defending myself.
The two different hypotheticals. The two different hypotheticals. That's I remember. There it is. Okay, all right. So one hypothetical. It's Hassan versus Vance, and it's the current system, the current guardrails, all of that. Like you just copy paste, right? And in this hypothetical, Hassan knows that he can't get rid of liberal democracy, so instead he just pushes for like social democratic policies or whatever. Right? Is that you think that's like a fair way to frame the hypothetical? That we can get into more specific details. If that is the case, if that is the case, I'm obviously going to vote for Hassan in that spot over reanimated Jeffrey Epstein, just the same that I would AOC, Ilhan Omar, Bernie Sanders. Obviously.
Yes.
If it's a hypothetical where Vance or that's a better, more appropriate question, by the way, like Hassan or Vance or Hassan or Trump or something like that. But they have built a political movement. They have popular support. They could actually like meaningfully move towards their larger goals. Then that becomes a much more difficult question because in both cases, liberal democracy would be fucking done. And at that point, you have to evaluate, okay, like do I want to die? 20 million Americans die from famine or 20 million fucking concentration camps?
Yeah.
Do you agree that that's like a fair way to unpack it? Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's a fair interpretation of the question. I don't think like when people hear who'd you vote for president, they're like, who'd you vote for to have absolute like fucking Dr. Manhattan powers over all our systems and be able to like manipulate with ease?
No, that is kind of what people are assuming. Yes, bullshit. They're assuming more that than the other one of who would you rather have for president. Well, we're assuming that the person that we ideally elect has absolutely no political power whatsoever, right? Well, I mean, I guess maybe you could argue it depends on the context of the conversation. We're talking in terms of political nominees, but like nobody would assume. Otherwise, what was Pisco's reaction when I said I'd rather have Hitler for president than Trump? Because I assume with the current guardrails and everything, Hitler would be able to do nothing. And he's Hitler. People hate Hitler. Even conservatives, generally speaking, hate Hitler. So, like, yeah, I would always have Hitler be the president because he can't do anything. But nobody would feel that very intuitively. Like, your ideal president right now for the conservatives, who would it be? And you say, oh, Hitler. Like, who's supporting, I'm sorry, when you say Hitler, who's thinking like, oh, really good answer because I know you're choosing Hitler because you know he's not going to be able to get anything done. Like,
I don't think that's a good, like, that's some shit that Steven said when he was trying to, in my opinion, double back on some of the concessions he made on Twitter or whatever. But I don't think there's any good faith reading of the question.
Double back on any of the concessions? I mean, even if there were ever concessions to be made, they would never be made to Pisco because Pisco is not capable of engaging in these arguments like an adult when he's on the other side of them. He just can't do it. It turns into the most debate perverted, like logical. When you say possible, do you mean like in all possible universes? It's logically inconceivable. I was like, Jesus.
Like, who's your president? Like, I'm voting for God Emperor who has complete control of all the people, and I control the police down to every person.
But we would have to flesh out the hypothetical in that way, right?
If you want to flesh it out, I'm not saying you'd be inconsistent having two different answers.
But
what I'm calling out though is you didn't need kind of introspection of the hypothetical for Trump. For Trump, it was easy. Yeah, I'd bite that bullet on Epstein. Yeah, I would. But there's a different treatment that you were doing with Epstein versus Hassan, and that I think is telling. Because somebody needs to explain that, and what explains it? That's my question.
Didn't I say? Hang on. Wasn't I consistent? Because I swear to God, that question came up, Hassan versus Trump. I think that came up like 3 weeks ago. Did I not say the same thing where I said I would Minecraft myself?
I'm not saying that you're inconsistent that you said I would Minecraft myself on that. I'm pointing to something specific. That is to say, your willingness and eagerness to show your consistency, which I think is great, that you're consistent on harm reduction, was so powerful. A way to sort of test those modifieds was to say, I would even go for someone I find morally repugnant, such as Jeffrey Epstein,
Yes.
in the name of societal welfare.
Yes.
We're up against JD Vance.
Yes.
That was your statement.
Yes.
It wasn't accompanied by I would Minecraft myself. It wasn't like I would vote third party. It was just clear. I would vote for Epstein over JD Vance.
But I asked you a
You didn't need
complete...
to.
No. I asked you... I tried to flesh out the hypothetical. You were the one stuck in debate mode. Because I asked you, what's his platform? Which is to say...
You didn't need those answers for Trump.
Oh, if Hutch asked if Hutch really asked it, I don't even remember listening to this. If Hutch asked that makes Pisco's line of argumentation like even more bad faith. It's even worse.
What do you mean?
You didn't need those.
Because at that point... Wait, no. Again, stop doing this, bro. I am consistent. I literally said I would Minecraft myself between Hassan and
No, that's not the inconsistency. Inconsistency isn't that you would Minecraft. Inconsistency is the amount of detail and the nature of the hypothetical that you require for Vance versus for Hassan. That's the inconsistency. Why do you need more information about the nature of the hypothetical?
Why does it matter?
Wait. For Epstein, or what do you mean? For Vance and... I don't know what he's comparing. I don't know versus what he was comparing that to, but...
I'm trying to flesh out a hypothetical, bro. And I just want to circle back to the point, which is that isn't it consistent with someone who thinks that the biggest problem that we face in the country right now probably is, I mean, there's hyperpolarization, but like the threat to liberal democracy. That is the thing that I feel very vigilant about.
Yes,
so when I see
obviously.
apathy and intellectual laziness and disengagement, disillusionment, nihilism, alienation, when I see these problems getting worse and worse and worse, stop it. You cannot get out of this mode, and you're not listening to what I'm saying.
What mode?
You're doing it now.
What mode?
You're in prime Kai's mode is what you're doing right now. Just listen to me.
I don't understand how.
You
You
need
don't talk about that. Okay.
you need to answer my question, okay? If you know this about me, that I think that the threat to liberal democracy is an existential question that needs to be resolved, is it not consistent for me to want qualifiers in that spot? I don't know, is Epstein going to get rid of liberal democracy? Is Hassan going to get rid of liberal democracy? How is that inconsistent?
It's inconsistent with your prior approach to the JD Vance iteration of that question, because when it came to that, you didn't need to inquire as to Epstein's internal political views. You were willing to grant that Epstein would be preferable without that inquiry. That's the inconsistency.
Pisco.
And presumably,
Pisco.
yeah.
I want you to just... I really want you to just like engage in this question without deflecting.
Oh my God, is he going to ask it? Is he going to ask it? Pisco, do you think that I thought that Epstein is going to be a communist or a fascist? Do you think that's even part of my calculation there? Or do you think the default assumption was... I hope these robots fucking kill me. I hate this fucking weapon.
If somebody is principally concerned of the threat to liberal democracy, is it not logical, in the context of asking me that question for a thought experiment, that I would want to flesh out whether or not reanimated Epstein would want to or be capable of ending liberal democracy? Would that not make sense to ask that question?
If by logical you mean reasonable, and in isolation the answer is no, it would not be unreasonable to do that.
Okay.
Not
So
in
what-
and of itself. And the inconsistency doesn't relate to the inquiry in and of itself. It's obviously in comparison to
I don't
some
think I
other
even
question
climb
where
up.
the approach wasn't taken.
This,
So
but
that's
this
what I call out.
this inconsistency, that what you perceive to be an inconsistency, is not relevant. It doesn't matter. Maybe I thought about it slightly differently the second time you asked me the question, and it occurred to me to flesh out the hypothetical in a way that didn't occur to me the first time, but it would still be consistent with me being alarmed at the threat to liberal democracy. But you didn't even want to.
If the
You
answers-
didn't even
if the
want to
answers
give
are
me.
consistent,
But you didn't even want to let me flesh out the hypothetical. You're like your whole premise in that moment was the choice should be obvious. Like obviously you would pick Hassan, right? That's what you were doing, right?
No.
Yes.
Either way, it should be obvious, right? Either way, it should be obvious. Because if you view Hassan fundamentally in such a way that it's essentially indifferent to JD Vance, right? When you say Minecraft myself, you're kind of signaling indifference. If it's a case that, in virtue of their threat to liberalism, they both, or at least you're indifferent as to who you vote for, such that you would Minecraft yourself, then it should be an easy yes, I'd vote for Epstein easily. That should be the answer. You didn't give that answer. That is alarming, right? And on the other view,
Hang on,
which is like,
Pisco.
no,
Hang on, Pisco. What is the difference in terms of potential calculation between forming the hypotheticals Hassan versus like Vance or Trump, or Hassan versus Epstein? Like, what do you think the issue is there for me?
getting clipped, perhaps?
No. I'm saying, why would I ask the question about a calculation between forming the hypotheticals Hassan versus like Vance or Trump, or Hassan versus Epstein? Like, what do you think the issue is there for me?
Getting clipped, perhaps?
No. I'm saying, why would I ask the question about Epstein and not Vance and Trump?
Why would you ask the question about
Yeah,
Epstein?
why would I ask, like, what are his politics? What's his policies?
Presumably you're ignorant about Epstein's political views.
Yes, I know Vance's politics. I know Trump's politics. I don't know Jeffrey Epstein's politics. So in that context, of course I would ask the question, right?
If you're willing to ask it in the context of the JD Vance comparison, then yeah, of course it makes sense.
Did you hear what I just said a moment ago? I know Vance's politics. I know what he's about.
Yeah,
I know Trump's politics. I know what he's about. I don't know Epstein's politics. So why would I not ask that question?
Because you already granted the one, right? That was what the
Because I
question
know
was
their
supposed to-
politics. I'm repeating myself, Pisco. I know their politics. I don't have to question. I don't need to know, like, well, is Vance trying to end democracy? I don't need to know. I don't need to ask the question.
Then were you mistaken when you answered so quickly that you would know that it would be Epstein over Trump or Vance? Is that a mistake to answer so quickly? Without having done the inquiry.
Because at that point, Pisco, is it not
Not at all.
Pisco, is it not a coin flip at that point? Like, if I
Yeah, true. Okay, he's gonna. Yeah, this is just such a stupid. I don't even know how to engage with it. This is just like dumb. This is just a stupid inquiry. It's stupid.
know that if I know that that Trump would try to
He's
be like a
mad
fascist
'cause
takeover,
Hutch couldn't
then it doesn't make sense to just like
What?
Give an answer about like which one he would prefer.
No, it's
He's
just like
mad just 'cause Hutch
it's
didn't give an
obvious
immediate answer.
sometimes what. No, he's. it's all of this is just I'm just explaining like rhetoric and debate strategies. None of this is like this is not a real conversation. But like when Hutch says immediately, I would fucking vote for Epstein over Vance. The point is not that Hutch would be willing to endorse any esoteric system of politics that Epstein had. That's not the point of that question. The point is he would support a guy who's morally deplorable, knowing that he wouldn't drive us away from liberalism like Vance would. So when you do the same thing where you're like, well, what about Hassan or Vance? Well, both of them are driving away from liberalism, so that's kind of weird. So I don't know what to say there. And then when Pisco's like, oh, well, would you support Epstein or Hassan? Then Hutch thinks about it, and then Hutch wants to dive a little bit more into Epstein's politics here. And then I guess Pisco is making it very personal, and he's like, oh, well, you just hate Hassan, and that's why you won't bite the bullet on this. But I'm assuming that if they were to go down the road on that hypothetical, and they're like, well, hold on, would Epstein be a supporter of liberal democracy? Yeah, he probably would be, even if he's a pedophile. So I'd support him over Hassan. But Pisco's acting like he's got him some huge, like, bad faith thing here when the initial inquiry, the initial example that Pisco or that Hutch was giving was just that, like, I would support somebody who's morally deplorable if it meant saving liberal democracy versus endorsing fascism or communism. But Pisco's acting like he's making some grand point here.
Like
The true point, if they were really having a collaborative conversation and it wasn't Pisco constantly just trying to clip farm Hutch, is Pisco would say, oh, well, we probably should have done that inquiry about Epstein's beliefs in the beginning. And then if it was the case that Epstein would have broad support for the liberal world order, then you would answer you would support Epstein over Vance and Epstein over Trump and Epstein over Hassan easily. And I'm sure Hutch would say yes to all of that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you get rid of the name Epstein and then you probably just boil down this guy's politics and remove like the moral like deplority or whatever, then he would probably support fucking the guy who's Epstein.
Yeah, know? But the point is he would support them even with the child rape because he thinks that the threat to liberalism is so bad. But Pisco should be able to work this out in 2 seconds. This is not hard to understand what the point of that hypothetical is. But he's just like,
but
this
is the most. He's just being bad faith. Then
it's just
right?
It's endless debate, pedantry, and just cringe. I don't know what he's even going for. It's just like cringe shit constantly.
Flip a coin on a candidate that you don't know anything about. Now, you can say you should have done that consistently in the hypothetical with Hassan, but this is such a superficial inconsistency. It doesn't matter. Maybe I was in a different mood that day. But you jumped to, I think you're being bad faith, and I think you're motivated by personal grievance towards Hassan. You assumed bad faith. And yet, in our conversation about Hassan right now, you are bending over backwards to interpret his statement about trans people being murdered by Democrats in a good faith way after telling you think he's largely bad faith. Now, that feels like an inconsistency to me.
Well, I don't think that I'm interpreting you with bad faith. I mean, can you point to an example of that? I don't know what's bad faith.
What do you think it means to say, I don't think you're being honest, I think you're motivated by grievance instead of principles? Isn't that the definition of bad faith?
Well, hang on a second. I do think that if
yes, the answer is yes.
Accusing someone of merely being motivated by personal animus opposed to principles, I think is a way of accusing bad faith. But just to be clear, that is different than interpreting someone in bad faith. And I think that you granted that when I said there's something personal here, that was true. I don't think that merely having some personal thing.
Oh my God, Pisco just ate my earlier position, and now he's pretending like that was his initial position. Holy shit! Imagine you say something like, "I really think that we shouldn't do something with this person," and the guy's like, "I think you're motivated by personal grievance." And you're like, and then you kind of fight it because you are. But the answer is, well, it doesn't always. Just because you might have some personal grievance against a person doesn't mean your entire rationale for not wanting to do something with them is all like bad faith, right? So your initial assertion there isn't relevant at all. And now that he got called out on that, now he's like, well, now Pisco's biting that answer was like, oh yeah, well, just because you're motivated by some personal grievance, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily bad faith. This is true, but then if that's the case, then why would you even bring that up in the first place? Why would you ever even initially say you're motivated by personal grievance? You would just never say that if this was actually what you believed. Holy shit.
By itself, bad faith, if you can stand on principle and put aside the personal bias. But I think the bottom answer, and I do think it's a bit of a dodge. I think that's,
my God.
It's for itself. I don't know that I use such fighting rhetoric towards you. And again, like, look at how I was happy to grant that Hassan is bad faith way more than you. I'm happy to grant that, you are consistent on frameworks and principles in general. I don't know what about my interpretation of your comments was bad faith. Maybe you can identify one. That is my interpretation itself.
But I just did. Like, if I give you an answer and you say, well, just say you'd vote for Epstein. Just fucking say. Number one, you were flip farming right there. Number two, I want you to tell me right now, knowing like with the context, if I'm principally concerned with preserving liberal democracy, and you agree that Hassan wants to end liberal democracy, right? Like that's his ideal state. He would want to end liberal democracy. Do you agree with that, right?
Probably. I think that's entailed by
Marxism. Then you can give me any hypothetical candidate that in a contest with him, and it would be a logical, appropriate question for me to ask, what is their position on liberal democracy, right?
Yeah, I mean, that'll be totally fair.
Okay.
So you're describing me bad faith, and as though I'm ignorant of your previous statement on JE, which of course would obviously.
That's such a superficial. That is such a superficial inconsistency. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It informs my state of mind, right?
But wouldn't me asking for qualifiers imply that I intuitively think that Hassan would be slightly better? If I don't need qualifiers for Vance and Trump, I would say, oh no, I would never vote for them. But I need qualifiers for Hassan. Doesn't that mean that I'm thinking more about possibly supporting Hassan?
I'm not sure that it does. I think
what?
Anything, right? Like,
you're not sure? No. Come on. If I said just unequivocally, you don't even need to give me qualifiers, I would support reanimated whoever versus Vance and Trump. And then you give me the same hypothetical with
these conversations are so exhausting. Oh my God.
Hassan, and I'm like, well, I don't know. What's the... That obviously
This
means...
is one of the better
that I would be-
Pisco combos.
Yeah, but it's still an exhaustingly
Yeah, it's rough,
terrible
but yeah.
conversation.
more inclined, if slightly, more inclined to possibly vote for Hassan, right?
Yeah, but you didn't give that answer when Soypil asked you that. You said you would Minecraft yourself.
You-
So I have to take you on good faith, right?
You wouldn't
I have to
give
take you on
me,
good faith.
but you wouldn't
Wait a
give me an
second,
answer. You didn't want to let me flesh out the hypothetical. You were like, no, just answer the question. No, just answer the
I just
question.
gave you a response that shows that I'm good faith, which is I heard you be indifferent towards JD Vance and Hassan, and that obviously informs whether I'm good faith or not. So the fact that I think that you're indifferent as between them, as opposed to slightly and trusting you, that
This is
what you said.
wild. Pisco, this is wild.
What's
to me.
wild about it?
The fact
What's
that the fact that I wanted to flesh that hypothetical out more obviously meant that I would be probably more inclined to vote for Hassan. Obviously, it means
Are you-
that.
Are you more inclined to vote for Hassan than JD Vance?
Why do you think I didn't answer it right away? Just Epstein, right? Like, why do you think I said that, right? Like, I wanted to know. I'm like, well, you need to like flesh it out, right?
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't answer right away.
But you wouldn't.
That's my point.
But you didn't. You didn't even want to flesh.
Why do you think? Ask him to guess.
No, bro, you didn't even want to let me do that, even though it's an appropriate question to ask. Your whole premise was it should be obvious. And to someone who is focused on illiberalism and is worried that liberal democracy might fail in my lifetime, it is of course an appropriate question to ask. But you didn't want to grant me that. I don't understand why you do that in that setting, and then you jump through these hoops to ascribe good faith to Hassan's rhetoric.
Am I crazy for feeling like Pisco is playing with his food to make Hutch and making Hutch sound crazy? I feel like all the intuitions are being twisted. I wouldn't use the term playing with his food because that implies that Pisco has a
he's
much
winning.
stronger position in this combo than I think he does. I don't think he's far ahead, or I don't even know if I would say he's ahead at all in this conversation. But I do think this is all kind of like a perverted debate exercise. I think it's how he treats all these conversations with Hutch, which I don't know why, but maybe that's just the way he is.
Like, you are not treating me with the same amount of shareability as you are Hassan.
It's not true. That's not true. I'm not ascribing good faith to Hassan's rhetoric. I'm just trying to, take the argument, address the argument in good faith. Not saying that Hassan is being good faith about it. There's a difference between those two things.
Well, why would you do that for someone who you say
I do that
largely?
for
But why
Rob
would
Noor. I do that for
you
Trump.
do?
shit,
You
right?
assume good faith with Rob Noor? Do I need to watch your last debate with Rob Noor?
And for Trump, for his arguments, yeah, I address them on the merits, even though I think he's being bad faith. Same thing with Trump, right? Like, I will say afterwards, and don't forget.
The problem with this, like, address the argument on the merits is that it's stupid because Hassan's arguments individually and discreetly are not the things that are being brought up. It's the character and the overall impact that he has on politics. That's the issue. This would be similar to me like addressing would do the Hitler thing. I don't know, like Hitler's arguments on the merits. We're gonna go through all of fucking Hitler's policy platform in the 30s or whatever. We're gonna find out what parts we agree with or don't agree with. Like what parts do you think Hitler was right on? What parts do you think Hitler was wrong? Like you would just never do that because you go, well, I think I would kind of categorically reject a lot of the concepts related to Nazism. And it's like, oh, what? So you can't take on good faith? You can't steelman some of his policy positions at all?
He also looks like a psycho.
Yeah, it's just stupid. But that's what Hassan is like doing, and he's asking Hutch to just pretend it's normal or accept it.
Yeah, guys, Trump is bad faith. But I will address Trump's arguments on the merits of their opinion. I don't just say, oh, Trump doesn't believe this shit. It's all bad faith. And, all right, end stream. Do you do that? Do you think I do that? Yes or no?
There's no way
Yeah, but the problem is you're not saying that Trump's character is not in question because we understand Trump not to be an ally of the Democratic Party. That's not like the massively contentious thing.
No way. You're saying that when you hear Donald Trump do his crazy cabinet meetings or sit down for an interview, you make an effort to treat his answers in good faith?
I address the arguments on their merits as though they were made in good faith at times, yes.
But why didn't you want
Did
to?
you say the unitary executive theory is fascism?
I mean, not necessarily, but it's probably going to be indistinguishable from it. Do you understand the concept of like unitary executive theory?
Yeah, it means everything goes through the president. Like it trickles down, kind of. Like the president is the ruler of all of the fucking not branches, but like of all of his like people under him, right? So like, what's her name? Pam Bondi works for Trump.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah, basically, yeah. The idea is that right now the executive branch has agencies, most of which are established by Congress, and then there are kind of safeguards. They're not supposed to operate necessarily by order of the president. The president doesn't boss around the DOJ and everything else. But like, I think unitary executive theory basically posits that the president in and of himself should be able to do every single job on his own, but simply due to the fact that he's a human being, he can't do that. So he's tasked with other members to carry out his will. And they should only ever be carrying out his will at all points in time. But when you have something set up like that, and you've got a man that desires that much control and power over the executive, you're probably almost always talking to some type of authoritarian-esque figure, you know?
Yeah, that feels like it literally nearly gets you to a dictator.
Almost,
and the only
yeah.
things like stopping that is Congress and the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but the man who would want that much power is probably not listening to Congress or the Supreme Court that much, you know?
Yeah, especially if they have like the whole judiciary behind them.
Sure, yeah.
in our thing on Monday. That was opposite of that.
And was willing to do it. I 100%
If
was.
that was true, you would have let me flesh out the hypothetical. Don't you understand that? If that was actually true, and you were prepared to like allow me to arrive to some kind of answer in good faith, why would you not even want to grant the hypothetical? Why would you want to just drill down? No, just answer. Like that's not trying to be good faith, right?
So I listened to you when you asked, well, I would need to know Epstein's political opinions. And I'm like, why? I say, why would you need to know that? You didn't need it for JD Vance. That's me addressing what you're saying, and maybe there's an explanation there. Maybe you don't like that.
I think it's obvious. Well, I think it's obvious that the reason would be that I think that Hassan is maybe more powerful.
Vance's political opinions?
Yeah,
Is that,
this
like,
is
the distinction.
Yeah, but he's saying, why did you need to know for Hassan or whatever, I think, but not for JD Vance? But again, it was because when Hutch originally made the statement, the assumption is that, well, Epstein is probably some kind of like liberal-esque person, whereas for Hassan, he's not. So he would need more information between like Hassan and Epstein or whatever. And it's being brought up in a second point when initially Hutch just kind of like threw it out of like, I would vote for this guy over I would vote for a fucking child rapist over Trump. And then Pisco later on is like, well, let's test this child rapist theory out. And it's like, well, this wasn't like a super well thought out.
Yeah. But it's also he probably knows Hassan's point of view.
I have no defib.
but he
I'm so
doesn't-
sorry, but I
he
can't
doesn't
manage
know Epstein's, and that is the crux of the issue.
Survivor on it's all right.
I'll be back. I'm getting a track back.
I threw 5 wolf packs at that thing, and I got trapped on what the hell is that enemy called that jumps at you? A leaper. I got trapped. I couldn't.
This guy's just
Couldn't even move, bro.
blog posting like crazy. Well, I'm sorry. Are you trying to get to the extract?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I got 3 bandages left, so crawl away.
I think the obvious implication there is that Hassan is palatable in a way, potentially palatable in a way that Vance and Trump are not, which indicates that I don't actually think that Hassan is like materially worse
How you know
than
I'm
Vance
good
and.
faith? Hutch, how you know I'm good faith is I still don't know your answer to either of those questions. I don't know what your answer is to JD Vance versus Hassan or Hassan v Epstein or whatever permutation that is. I don't know the answer. And so it strikes me a little like, how can I be bad faith if I generally, even now, I don't know what your answer is to those typos.
So if you want to be good faith, then steel man, okay? So I want you to steel man right now. Why do you think I would struggle making a decision between Vance and Hassan?
That's good. Thank you, sir.
Oh, just kidding. You get HP back. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. Okay, good job. Oh, fuck me.
Vance and Hassan, presumably because it's unclear which would be worse, Hassan or Vance.
Why?
For society.
We just talked about it. Why?
Because you have some notion that, like Vance, perhaps Hassan would be pursuing policies or structural reform that you found corrosive to social welfare. And
No, come on. We just said
What?
it. We just
Liberal
said it. I
democracy.
opened up the stream by asking you, what do you?
How can Pisco not repeat that answer back verbatim? That's really concerning. If Pisco, that's like medical attention necessary. If he can't repeat, they just talked about this for so much, or for so long.
When you say liberal, what do you mean? Like, what is the through line between Hassan and Vance?
Yeah, it's obviously grounded out into social consequences and benefits, and so that's all priced in.
Social consequences. Why can't he say liberalism? Is he worried that he's like going to give away his argument or something? Why can't he just say that? Hello?
After that, I said, and our foundational values. So I know
Foundational-
I'm trying to price in everything.
Do you
But,
think-
like, consequences? First, for example, you say USAID. Cutting USAID.
Why are
is
you?
liberal.
Now he's filibustering. Is this guy coming in or not? Oh, he's here. Okay.
That's an example that you use, and I'm trying to be as good faith and as broad as possible to include both things that relate to structural reform and the liberal system, which is consistent with cutting USAID, and also things that are not, so that cut to the heart of the liberal structure. That's why I'm being as comprehensive as possible in good faith by saying things like
Oh my God, I'm being as good faith as possible by yapping and rambling and yapping and rambling. Okay, dude.
social consequences, which grounds out both.
There's like, but there's like first order like fears and concerns, and then there's like second and third or whatever. I've said it 10 times in this conversation that my
Yes.
first order like fear is the end of liberal democracy.
Yes.
And then below that we could get into like policy.
Sure,
like
but
individual
that's-
policy.
I'm trying to address all of it. I'm just trying to address all of it.
You don't have to address all
my
of
concern
it.
is that liberal democracy might end. So is it or is it not reasonable for someone like me with that fear? Could you not, in good faith, grant me that that's a difficult, not obvious question to answer?
As doing this on Vance,
Yes. If you know what, you don't think it's reasonable?
I don't think it's reasonable to struggle on that answer now.
Why? Make him explain that. That's a good question. Oh, make him explain that. That's good.
What are we doing here?
No. You should make him explain that. Don't act incredulous. Make him explain that. Because that's a good bedrock to finally chip away at.
I mean, just like I don't think it's reasonable to struggle on the Trump versus Newsom answer.
Is Vance illiberal?
Yes.
Is Hassan illiberal?
Yes.
Then what are we doing here, Pisco? Why would you say that it's not reasonable, Pisco? What is happening?
Because I have a different view on the level of threat to our liberal system as
But that's not.
well as other things.
But the question is to Hutch, not to you. Why would he give his own personal opinion there?
We can debate that.
Massive between Vance and Hassan.
That's fine. We could debate those particulars.
I'm not committed that it's a reasonable position that one be kind of like, why should I be committed to that reasonability of it? I don't agree that's reasonable. You want me to say something I don't agree with? I don't think it's reasonable.
No. Wait, hang on a minute.
I tricked him there. He almost got him. He's trying to trip
if
him
you're
up
talking
there.
about good faith and being charitable, you should be able to put yourself in my shoes and put yourself into my thinking without necessarily knowing all the things that you know or having all the same exact opinions that you have. But you should be able to imagine me thinking, fuck, that's kind of tough. You know, like Vance, you know, fascism's pretty bad.
Giving your views
Not
and
great,
stuff.
you know.
Yeah,
But like,
maybe giving your view and stuff, but I have a different view. And so my view on reasonability, I'm not just like incorporating your perspective into my view on reasonability. I can be a reasonable person with unreasonable opinions on some things. You know, like I think I'm generally reasonable, but I'm sure there are some things on which I'm unreasonable. And
I'm not incorporating your view into the reasonability of his. Of course you should. What a stupid fucking question. That would be like saying, imagine you were to ask Pisco, would it be reasonable if a person time traveled from the year 0 to the year 2000 and saw an airplane, if they were incredibly afraid of that airplane because they thought it was a monster flying in the sky? Do you think it'd be reasonable for them to have that fear? Like, is that a reasonable fear to have? Pisco would be like, no. It's like, why not? Because I'm not afraid of airplanes. Well, but are we asking for them? Well, I wouldn't agree with them, but that's not the question. Like, what?
so, yeah, like if I were in your head, I would obviously think that your position is reasonable because I would be.
I'm sorry. Last one for a month. No more Pisco for a month, please, God.
You.
Okay, that's what I'm
That's obviously the fucking question. Why would you ever ask? I don't know.
talking. That's good faith. That's charitability.
I wouldn't even call that good faith. That would be like a default assumption. Now, obviously, with a co-host or friend, you should be getting even more than that. But this would be like a default easy assumption. I can't even believe it took that long to figure this one out. But Jesus.
That's you saying, if I was you, that's you. But you did on Monday. But in this moment, you're saying that I can't imagine someone struggling with that answer.
No, I just think it's not reasonable. I can imagine quite a lot.
Oh. What is the difference? Could you imagine not knowing whether or not you should or shouldn't vaccinate your child? And it's like, yes. Okay, so you think there's like reasonable arguments on both sides? No, I didn't say it was reasonable. I just said I could imagine it. Like, what? What are we saying here?
Imagine people struggling with like simple math problems. Like, imagine people struggling with.
Oh my God, with simple math problems? What is he doing? What is his syntactic commitment to like, well, when you ask me imagine, you just mean, is it logically possible that I could, in my mind, imagine a particular thing? Like, could you imagine?
Yeah, Dan's Pisco impression is good, actually.
Could you imagine?
He's right on it.
Could you imagine wanting to rape all black people? And it's like, yes.
Well, I could imagine it.
I could, of course. I could imagine. Oh, I think it's unreasonable. I would never do it. And I would think it's whatever, but I could imagine it. Yeah, like, who answers questions like this?
You know, this kind of question.
Does he have autism? And I'm not trying to be mean.
No,
but like, does he actually,
no. And the reason why is because when he starts getting debate mode-y, or when it comes back on him, all of a sudden he will understand a lot of the subtext really, really, really well. He'll be able to spin it like he did earlier with the whole what was the example that we just ran into? Oh, about like, are you personally motivated by a thing? He brought that up as a way to basically hand wave his entire argument. And then when Hutch pushed back on it later, Peter was like, well, just because you're personally motivated that doesn't mean that I can, I can't hand wave your whole argument for that. But he only brought that up after he got pushed on it. So like, no, this is not an autism thing because it's selective. You can't selectively deploy your autism just to help you in debates.
No,
that's
agreed.
bullshit. Yeah.
Does he try to say he has autism or no?
I don't know if he does. I feel like other people around him make the excuse,
a lot of people
but
in chat have said it.
yeah, other
so
people in chat, yeah, but people in chat think autism is just when you say something dumb. Even in my chat, are fucking retarded.
Then a math problem that's
Because
equal
they
to,
have
but less than what I would call reasonable.
So why is it unreasonable? Like, do you think that Hassan would make any kind of efforts to end liberal democracy, boost our adversaries that he thinks are morally better than us? Like, why do you think it's unreasonable for me to be concerned about Hassan like damaging or ending liberal democracy?
Oh, I didn't say that. I didn't say it's unreasonable for you to be concerned about damaging.
Hey, bro, these are just what a waste of time. Oh my God.
Institutions and democracy. I said it's unreasonable to think that it's a tough question as between him and Vance. That's what I think is unreasonable. Not whether or not Hassan poses a threat. Like, I would obviously grant that. I mean, notwithstanding our it's funny people send me this message as though it would be a tough question. Notwithstanding like the personal conflict or whatever,
technically
I would vote for
everybody
Destiny over Hassan. I would pick Schumer over Hassan. I would pick maybe not. I wouldn't pick Fetterman over Hassan. But like this is all just way of me saying that like.
But I might
pick
pick
Fetterman over Hassan?
I might. In fact,
I
that's my
think
intuition.
I would pick
But, like,
Fetterman over Hassan.
the reason
Unfortunately,
why
yeah.
should be obvious to you.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're saying a lot of irreconcilable things during this conversation because
What's irreconcilable?
because you're telling me that it is reasonable for someone who is afraid of liberal democracy ending. Well, actually, no. You said it wasn't. I don't even, it's hard to keep track, man. I gotta be honest with you because I feel like you're a little all over the place here, bro. Is it unreasonable? So if it's not unreasonable, then I would be concerned that Hassan would really damage or end liberal democracy. If that's not unreasonable for me to think, then it has to be reasonable that for me this would be a difficult choice between him and Vance. It has to be.
No, because the magnitude of concern could be hugely different, and it is. Make sense?
I think the reasonable position for you in this spot is to say, yeah, I can understand why that would be a difficult choice. Now maybe we can have a debate, and that can be like a fun exercise of like, here's why I think the magnitude would be worse over here. Here's why.
Like this again. I hate these conversations because like Hutch is explaining stuff that Pisco already knows, and it's just like the most reasonable. Like any human being should instantly be able to know this ever, and Pisco already does know this. It's just stupid. What do you got for us, Hussein? Real fast. What do you got?
What's up? I'm just want to like reinforce one of your points you've been talking about with these left-wing liberal debates. I read a really interesting journal article recently about specifically about Ethiopia and the Derg, and how in the Derg, when they rose to power after they overthrew the monarchy, they kind of they just murdered and destroyed all even social democratic, liberal, even left-wing people who are less radical than them.
Okay.
They absolutely just murdered all of them it was called the Red Terror in Ethiopia. So I just want to say if you want me to link you that, I feel like a lot of people are really fucking weaselly when they talk about these issues and be like, oh, do Marxist-Leninists actually do violence when they get into power? Yes, they do. There's a historical process which this occurs in. It really happens. It happened in Russia. It happened in Ethiopia, which I'm more familiar with. So I just want to add that. And I think it's the debate pedophiles who say, oh, it never happens. Can you point to can you point to an example? Can you point to an example? Can you point to an example? I can give you those examples if you need me to DM you it.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Okay, that's all I wanted to add.
Be careful.
Much love.
Magnitude would be not as bad over here. That's fine. I would be down to have that conversation because I feel like there's enough of Hassan's rhetoric for me to say that I think that this guy was Daenerys Targaryen, basically. Okay, but you can have a different view of that or whatever. That's fine. We could dive into the minutia of that debate without you saying that it's unfathomable that this would be a difficult choice for me.
I didn't say unfathomable. I said unreasonable.
Unreasonable for me.
I can't fathom it. Well, no, on my view.
Bro.
No, that's awesome. I love that.
This is like
I can fathom it.
He's like male Kelly Jean, unironically.
That's awesome.
I'm not saying it's unreasonable for you. I'm saying I think it's unreasonable.
Pisco,
For you, it's very reasonable.
Listen, you are my boy. You are my boy.
What
I
is
do
it
love you, but sometimes I wonder if I'm your boy.
What the fuck?
Do you know what I mean?
Of course you
Sometimes,
are.
no, but I don't know.
I'm trying
Sometimes
to be as honest as possible and answer everything. I let you drive the conversation.
Do you think it's reasonable that I sometimes question if I'm your boy?
No.
There you go. See, that's better. That's making an effort to meet you in the middle and maybe repairing.
Oh, sorry.
I say I'm
it's
your
reasonable.
I say you're my boy all the time.
Reasonable, yes. Why would I want to hurt you?
I don't know. I don't know what drives. What's in your heart? You tell me. I don't know. Is it because I'm bald? Is it because I'm bald? Do you think I can choose what God gave me?
Whispering in your ear that I want to hurt you. I don't know.
Oh, the white blood cell accusation. When was my last DM to Hutch? The last message that I sent to Hutch was on October 30th of 2024. I whispered everything into his ear then. I predicted the future, by the way.
That would be the case.
No, but you did a switch up. You did a switch up on Monday, and you got into a mode where it was I think you kind of seamlessly segued where you were talking about how what Hassan said was bad when he said he would vote third party, and then you were like, but I want to focus on you, Hutch. And then you got into a mode, and it was I felt like I was not your boy in that moment. I felt like I was your
in front of a guest too.
Your man enemy. I was your woman in that moment. That's what I felt like.
So I have this long-standing view, and Josiah shares it with me. And so on any score like this, Josiah and I are going to be equally situated. That it's folly to spend most of our time, or an inordinate amount, what we feel to be an inordinate amount of time, focused on the doings of Hassan Piker and people like him. Now, you could disagree with that for sure, but it isn't, I think, unsurprising that I would raise this long-standing concern, which has been, amply discussed in our show. Again, I mean, there's nothing that's new about that.
Why do you think I do that? Why do you think I do that? Why do you think I focus on that? Why do you think I focus on love thesis?
You think it's worth? Yeah, you think it's worth the time. I think it's more efficient. It's a way. It's because it's under talked about. There's a niche for it. That these people are finally.
Notice how much you could trace so many different through lines between the bad faith argumentation that Pisco engages in. But notice how much now Hutch's motivation has changed. When Pisco first brought it up, it was, oh, you're personally motivated. Then the second time it was, well, you might be personally motivated, but there could be other motivations as well that are more important. And now when Pisco is asked, why do you think I talk about Hassan, as much as I do? Why do you think I'm so fixated on this particular thing? Now all of the reasons come out. And this is why I said in the beginning, this is why I said, no, it's bullshit to pretend like he didn't understand or didn't know. He knows all of these things and he knew them right at the beginning. Now all of the rationalizations, or I shouldn't say rationalizations, all of the good reasons that Hutch might have or being concerned about this thing, all of them pour out of Pisco's mouth now. So he knew this the entire time. It just took this much conversation to get there.
He discussed in our show. Again, I mean, there's nothing that's new about that.
Why do you think I do that? Why do you think I do that? Why do you think I focus on that? Why do you think I focus on love thesis?
You think it's worth? Yeah, you think it's worth the time. I think it's more efficient. It's a way. It's because it's under talked about. There's a niche for it. That these people are fundamentally liberal. That they are enemies. I understand your view 100%. I mean,
there it is.
But,
cool.
It's me raising the point about, well, I don't think that this should. Why between this and Piers Morgan? I'm offended by both. I'm offended by fucking both. Whenever I see these enlightened centrists start fucking talking about Trump and sucking his dick, it makes me want to vomit. And so
can I try to explain myself a little bit?
Yeah, 100%.
To help you understand.
Sure.
the way that I see it is
Hutch should have okayed that because it was a good explanation that Pisco gave, and for that was like the first time that Pisco was able to mirror a thing that Hutch had actually said to show that he had some level of understanding there.
you have a collective pool of political content creators, and they all kind of specialize in different things. You know, like you, like I would go to you and ask you a question about the newest Supreme Court decision. Well, what does that mean? What is this other case they're referencing? What's the implications of that? Is this just at the state level? Like I trust you with a lot of that information because I have not been to law school. I really know very little about the law. Just the same as you might have YouTubers that are exclusively focused on, say, gun rights issues or issues of tax policy, economics, anything you can think of. There's like different specializations that liberal pundits that they fulfill, that they are qualified to opine on. I am not. I don't have a degree. I did not study economics. I did not study the law like you did. I don't know what kind of degree that Josiah has, but whatever. What I can tell you is that I have been on the internet for 17 years now, and I've been kind of politically engaged for about 10 years now. And as that time went on, I got more and more engaged, and eventually I just abandoned gaming altogether. And so I have had, like, ask my chat, thousands of conversations with different types of people, MAGA, centristy type people, far lefties. Okay, and so I'm like a lore master when it comes to like these arguments and fallacies that I have picked up on over time. And I think that this movement that they've built is very corrosive. And so if you want to focus your time talking about MAGA and the law, we are actually working towards the same goal, I thought, which is netting more votes for Democrats, like sounding the alarm about the danger that MAGA and Trump pose, the potential danger that JD Vance poses. That is what motivates me. It is not spite. It's not personal animus. It's not spite. I feel like they are a threat to the country, literally. And I mean like the people with the highest levels of influence that are bad faith, that are malicious actors who will not hesitate to make something up and smear you. I'm watching that cult of personality, and to me, when I look at it, and you can say this is not reasonable, it looks like MAGA. It looks like MAGA inversed. There's a lot of connective tissue between this cult of personality.
Oh my God. Bro, just again, Pisco's chat. Now, this is 10 minutes in the future, but Hutch says PV didn't pay him well. You got $2,000 for doing nothing, dude. Behind right now, but Hutch is really, really concerned for poor baby Israel. We get it. Hassan bad. Yep. What? You can't even get your story straight. I'm not taking Hutch's word for it or accepting his evidence. Hassan can't do hyperbole. That means he's a Chinese agent. Hutch frames everything in a lie. Hutch has got to stop dodging, answer the question. LOL, Pisco's getting tired of this. What happened to vote blue no matter who? Guess you're not part of the coalition. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Hutch could barely handle Vadim. Hassan would own Hutch. Hutch would get blown the fuck out. Oh my God. Hutch, you don't believe socialists deserve to have their own party. That would terrify you. You don't want them to have a voice. You want them to do what the Dems say. If that would terrify us, then go make one.
Now over here and Trump.
God.
Interesting. I think we are going to the same place. And if what you would like is for me not to like raise my views on the concentration thing, and just like let it go.
The concentration thing? Oh, you mean like focus?
Do you want me not to? Do you want me not to like be like, oh, you know what? I just don't know what like was gained by us spending our time going over what Hassan said about this or that. Unless there's something like truly offensive and truly whatever, right? Like obviously there's always opportunities to do that when it's relevant to do it, and sometimes it is. Sometimes I don't think it is as much. But if you would like me not.
I would have to see how this comes up on Live and Learn, obviously, because I only watch when these types of debates are happening. Oh, not true. I watch others too. But like, if the show was like just focused on here's what liberals are saying, here's the current fight against MAGA, and like here's what's going on, and Hutch was constantly trying to bring up Hassan or whatever, I would say like, okay, well, this is kind of cringe. But I feel like when the people that are visiting your show are people like the fucking Vanguard or like these other like Hassan Dick Sucks or these like tankies that are coming to your show all the time, I feel like the conversation is much more likely to veer in that direction. And I think it's fair to say that like deservedly so, you know? But I don't know, I guess, what the root is or the source of these types of conversations coming up all the time. If Hutch is provoking all the time, then I'd say maybe this is more legitimate. But, if, you know, if they're just having these tankies everywhere, then, you know, maybe that's not a legitimate criticism. Maybe Hutch is right to bring it up, you know?
I don't know. To like speak up and be like, I don't know if I like, what do you want me? Do you want me like not to, like to disagree?
No, so for me, I don't know. I think those arguments are like fun. They're fun until.
Do you want me to just agree? Bruh, he's a master. When your partner brings up a genuine issue that you have and you realize that you're wrong on it, then you catastrophize and hyperbolize the entire thing, right? I don't think it's fair that when I come home every day, you call me a stupid fucking bitch cunt. And you're like, fuck. That's probably a good argument. And then you turn it into like, okay, fine. So you just don't want me to talk to you ever. It's like, I didn't say that. Oh, so you don't want me to tell you when I'm annoyed? Well, no, I didn't say that. Okay, so I can never say a cuss word at you ever. No, obviously I'm not saying that. Okay, so I can never say a mean thing to you? Like, what is the fucking argument, right? It's like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck are we doing here, guys?
Head home at the warehouse air shaft.
intellectual exercises.
It's exhausting.
And they force me to think about, like, they force me to reflect, like, why am I doing this? Because if I haven't thought about it, I haven't reflected, I'm not gonna have a good answer. And so, like, I appreciate these kinds of exercises because it forces me to be sharper and more intentional. Like, I should be able to articulate very clearly what motivates me. And I think at this point in my career, I am. I could go into so much more detail and cite you like so many thousand, like probably hundreds of examples of this kind of destructive things off the top of my head. That's not the issue.
To the point of unitary executive theory, the Constitution is pretty clear that the executive authority lies in the president, not the branch. I get what you're saying about it seeming authoritarian. You're completely and totally fucking wrong, and I don't know what single quote from the Constitution you got from whatever retarded fucking politician or pundit you listen to, but the Constitution clearly states that Congress is allowed to create offices and then vest particular responsibilities and powers into said offices, and there are a ton of norms that have governed the behavior of the executive branch and the relationship to those offices for centuries at this point. So to pretend that, like, oh, well, actually, I read the Constitution and all those people were wrong, and all the president was wrong, and all the norms were wrong, and all the prior rulings were wrong, is fucking retarded, but thank you.
The issue is that I don't feel like I'm your boy. Like, I just want you to grant me good faith. At minimum, like, don't assume that the thing that drives me is like personal spite instead of, holy fuck, you know, the Trump administration has been an absolute fucking disaster. The Republican Party have lost their minds. If we continue to go down this path, we will have a new kind of American neo-fascist movement in this country with the world's most powerful military and a fucking stockpile of nuclear weapons, and it horrifies me. Which says nothing of all the other cultural, like, unravelings that are happening right now and the ways that that impacts, like, disproportionately impact people like trans people. And so these are the things that I'm thinking about first and foremost. But sometimes I feel like you don't think that that's what's driving me.
Well, I think that I think you granted that there's a personal aspect about it, and maybe even one that's justified. I think that there's a reflexive, I don't know, intuition that people have that personal means bad or something. I would agree that, like, personal in the context of political conversation, when there's, like, principles at play that go beyond oneself, that's like probably improper. But I don't think that it's wrong to say that there's a personal aspect to you. Like, the whole what was the progressive victory stuff, lying about the nature of the Epstein hypothetical, which I do think is a lie and mischaracterizing your position. I'm happy to say that. I think it's mischaracterizing your position to say that you actively like Jeffrey Epstein, that you actively like sexual assaults.
He did the PV thing. He did the PV thing like 2 weeks ago, bro. Like, didn't come out and say, like, hinted, you had to infer what he meant, but it was obvious. He said, like, PV was paying me to, and not very well, to do Israeli propaganda. But he can't. Yes, specifically to do Israeli propaganda. That's what he said about me. It's crazy. And so, there's like a personal element there, but I have been talking about, like, this destructive thing before Hassan. Like, I've been talking about, like, the crazy burn your bus people that
the sincerity of that. I don't think that I ever said that you're bad faith or personal to the exclusion of a sincere belief that these people are. And if I said that, then I'm sorry. I don't think I did. But
you did say that on Monday. You did say that. I didn't feel like I was your boy.
I said it feels personal. This shit feels fucking personal.
The implication being that I was primarily driven.
Wait.
If I said that, then I'm sorry. It's the sincerity of that.
This destructive thing.
Wait, hold on. No, wait, I missed that. No, wait, I missed that. Hold on. Wait. Pisco's not implying that when he said, oh, this seems personal to you, he's not implying that when he said that he meant, like, oh, like, you're personally motivated by all of the social harms that could come from, another Trump. That's not what Pisco is implying here, right? What?
And not very well to do Israeli propaganda. What he can't. Yes, specifically to do Israeli propaganda. Yeah. That's what he said about me. It's crazy. And so, there's like a personal element there, but I have been talking about, like, this destructive thing before Hassan. Like, I've been talking about, like, the crazy burn your bus people that
the sincerity of that. I don't think that I ever said that you're bad faith or personal to the exclusion of a sincere belief that these people are. And if I said that, then I'm sorry. I don't think I did. But
you did say that on Monday. You did say that. I didn't feel like I was your boy.
I said it feels personal. This shit feels fucking personal.
The implication being that I was primarily
motivated by
that, like, personal spite. And instead, I wanted this conversation to be an opportunity for me to lay out.
Like, again, you shouldn't have to explain this. Like, if you find yourself explaining stuff like this to somebody, like, they're probably just worth moving on from. It's not worth keeping this person around as a friend.
I think it is totally reasonable for a, like, principled liberal to hesitate at the prospect of giving someone who is vehemently, militantly, violently illiberal the presidency.
I hear you. Okay, let me try to explain why I behaved the way I did. So, we're criticizing Hassan for weaselness. And for not,
then you weaseled.
Although he didn't answer, he just did it in an inadequate way. But there are other instances where he does this kind of shit. Where, like, this is such a ridiculous hypothetical. I'm not even going to stomach this hypothetical, that kind of shit. And that stuff often is, like, anathema to me. The kind of, like, dodgy shit. When we're trying to get to brass tacks. And so I'm like a dog with a bone sometimes, where I see a flaw and I'm like, all right, put yourself in my shoes for that. See, the other day, you're happy to say Epstein over Vance or whatever. And there's some hesitation here, either because you think that Hassan is better than Vance and you don't want to say it, or because you think Epstein is better than Hassan and you don't want to say it. Mm-hmm. And so in that context, I'm like, come on, like, this is so, like, if we're going to be here talking shit about not answering questions adequately, it feels like this is an area where it should be easy. Maybe that was a wrong because you like rethought your methodology in between, or that this caused you to think differently about how you would approach the Epstein question again. But I'm gonna be honest with you, Hutch, I still don't know the answer to those hypos. The two hypos, which are Epstein or Hassan over Vance. I still, as I sit here, we are now hours into our conversation. I don't know the answer to those.
That's your fault.
And I think that
is... like, you should, even if you don't know the answer, you should directionally know, like, like where Hutch is, right?
It's telling. I mean, maybe you're still mulling over.
It is telling, but it is not telling in the way that I think you think it's telling. Like, okay. I don't even know the answers to those questions. That's the point. The fact that I don't know should tell you that I view Hassan, if you would give him, like, ultimate power, to be extremely dangerous. So, like, for example, what do you think? Like, would you feel confident that Hassan gets sworn in on January 20th, 2029? Would you feel confident that he would not call Xi Jinping and summon him to the White House and share really valuable, sensitive nation secrets with Xi Jinping?
Am I confident that he wouldn't do that?
Yeah.
I'm not confident that he wouldn't do that. I don't have a view on how likely that is. I'm not sure.
That.
Oh, hold on. I feel like we're about to play another little tricky trick. I feel like, well, I don't know. We'll see. It sounds like Hutch is about to interpret that as saying Pisco is saying he's not confident of that, but actually Pisco's saying I just don't have any view at all of that. I'm actually neutral on it because I don't know. Not I have a negative view of it, but we'll see what I don't know.
Alone, I think, should move you.
But that is pretty crazy, right? That like if Pisco's saying he's not sure if Hassan would on day one sell us out to foreign enemies, but you're saying it should be obvious whether we would choose Hassan or Vance or Hassan or Epstein or whatever. That's kind of crazy that you think that that's such an obvious answer at that point. But
confident that he wouldn't do that. I don't have a view on how likely that is. I'm not sure.
That alone, I think, should move you to my side of things where it's like, well, I don't know if it's an easy call. Because I think if he did that, the consequences of that would be catastrophic for the world, would be catastrophic.
Yeah.
Potentially existential.
Yeah.
I don't think that's unreasonable. So, like, if you agree with me that you don't know that he wouldn't do that, then you should understand my hesitancy.
What are the secrets we're talking about? Like unilaterally nuclear...
Oh my God! What are the secrets we're talking about? Like, wow, what's in Area 51? How is this relevant at all? Oh my God! 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 And what are we saying? Like, I will donate my entire life savings and everything I own and everything I have. This is a verbally binding contract to Pisco. If Pisco follows this up, and it's already happened now, so I can't. It's too late. He either had to have done it. If Pisco says, well, actually, I wouldn't be worried about Hassan doing that at all because I don't think Hassan can even speak Chinese.
Agree with me that you don't know that he wouldn't do that, then you should understand my hesitancy.
What are the secrets we're talking about? Like unilaterally nuclear secrets and give over information of our spies in different places?
Yep.
Basically, that he's a Chinese agent working as a Xi Jinping.
Do you dispute the fact that, I don't know how many Hassan clips you've seen. I think I've probably seen a lot more Hassan stuff than you have, but...
One tactic that Pisco has, this is a tactic of a good interviewer or an evil debater, is how Hutch is uncomfortable waiting for the answer for a question sometimes. I have this issue too. And Pisco is not answering the question. Notice how Pisco like answered his question with a question and kind of threw up some irrelevant bullshit. And now Hutch is rambling again instead of holding him to actually answer that. Pisco does this quite a bit. It's how he's able to get out of answering questions so much sometimes.
You aware that, or do you agree with the premise that he thinks that China is morally better and morally better suited to be a superpower than America? Have you seen enough clips to know that about him?
No. I know that he was super symbiote to China on his, and is like an apologist for the DCP, but I don't know enough to know that he comparatively views China as superior to America.
But I do. You know, like I know, for example, that he thinks that China was the more moral actor in the Korean War. You know, like that was like proxy, right? Like he thinks that the China and North Korea were like the morally better kind of group in that conflict. I mean, there's like so many other examples. But, like he talks about there was an incident where there was a, I think a dam, like some kind of central position that was surrounded by high ground, and it was like 200,000 UN soldiers, I think, that were killed by the forces in the north. And he talks about that very like, yeah, that was based. Like he thinks that China is the more like morally better country, and he thinks that he also thinks that the two most evil institutions in the world are the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee. He told me that directly when we had a conversation. But when I say that he thinks that America is the most evil country,
oh, I didn't see that. That's the first time I'm hearing of it.
On the face of the planet. I mean it literally. Like that is his stated beliefs. You know, did you see, for example, his? I
basically think that he'll be less likely to institute authoritarianism because I think that the sort of military, the courts, the sort of states are much less tolerant given Trump-like constraints. Those institutions are much more like him than they are Vance or Trump.
You might be right, maybe. And if you could, you know, listen, I think Hassan has to earn my.
But like, you can argue that on the other side. I don't know if Hutch will or not. I don't know if the states would acquiesce to Vance because I don't think, despite how depraved the Republican Party has become, I don't think that they would have gone this way on their own. They needed somebody like Trump and the popularity that Trump has to push them in that direction. Like I've said this multiple times. People are like, if Trump dies, it's going to be Vance, or Vance is going to run for re-election. I'm not really that concerned about Vance. I think Vance has a much, much, much worse ideology than Trump. Well, Trump has no ideology. He's just narcissistic. But I don't think that Vance would ever be able to muster the same level of popular support that Trump does for insane shit. Like he might be able to do some standard, you know, annoying fucking conservative shit, but I don't think he could muster enough for like authoritarian. I think people would look at Vance as like an authoritarian leader and just laugh and just move on. Including Republicans.
Vote. I don't know why I would give up leverage. We haven't even had a primary yet. So, like, he could persuade me to vote for him versus reanimated whoever, Pol Pot or whatever the fuck. He could persuade me. And if he did persuade me that he wouldn't give up our nation's secrets, that he wouldn't try to end liberalism, you know, maybe there's a pragmatic side of him where he thinks, you know what, I don't think I can do that.
Why don't you have a conversation with him? I mean,
listen, I would be down, but he does not have these kind of conversations very often. I know. I think you mentioned that he's having a conversation with Mockler later. We'll see how that.
Why not just have a conversation with Hassan Piker, a challenging conversation about his ideology? Like, yeah, Hassan loves those. Why did he just close the door on us? Whew, spooky.
But he's pretty insulated from these kinds of things. But I'm telling you, like,
Well, do you want a constructive dialogue with him, or do you want like a debate?
I don't know.
Oh my god. And he even goes cover for on that. Well, it's not fair if you do debate. It's got to be constructive. What does that even mean? Like, it would probably be a debate, but like, you know that like debates can be nice, right? You can have a friendly debate. Like these guys are having a debate right now, way more than a dialogue. And if you were to show this conversation to 100 people and say, does this sound like they're having a debate on things, or does this sound like they're just having like a friendly dialogue? They would say it's a debate. Obviously, it can be a friendly debate.
Possible with Hassan. I'm not sure that there's like a constructive conversation to be had, because I agree with you that he is largely bad faith. I don't think that he's an honest actor. You know, like, pay attention to his tone in his conversation with Mockler, okay? Because I predict that he is going to, he's a bit of a chameleon. So, like,
wait, what is Hutch predicting? Because I think he's going to be incredibly nice to Mockler. He's going to try to stay away from contentious topics at all. Mockler is like his huge in right now that he sees to like the... fuck, I keep asking this question. I really, is Mockler part of like the Midas Touch people? Like, I think if he can get like a good conversation with Mockler, he's going to point to that conversation for like the next like 2 years as him being nice to liberals. What?
That?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay, cool.
Thanks for the offer, though.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, that convo's in like an hour. But yeah, Hassan will point to this conversation. It'll be like my fucking conversation with fucking conservatives, although mine will be more contentious, or probably than the one that's coming today. But yeah, Hassan's going to use this as like liberal credit forever, showing that he can talk to liberals and talk to people with dramatically opposing views. But he's going to be such a little soft femboy, twink fuck, conciliatory bottom bitch for the whole conversation.
He'll hide his power level. So if he's having a conversation with like a center-left person, he'll describe himself as like a progressive.
Yep. I just want healthcare. I just want single-payer healthcare.
And then he goes on a podcast. Are you familiar with
the deep program?
Yeah. So like So they're like two kind of like radical Marxist people, right? Which I'm not even using that as a pejorative. Like they are just like radical Marxist types, right? He'll go on there and he'll talk about social democratic policies as a temporary necessary evil. That's how he'll frame it in that kind of setting. And so I think he is like Littlefinger. You know, like I think he sees chaos as a ladder, which is why, frankly, I think he prefers.
And you even have proof of that of the beginning of the show that Pisco pretended not to understand when he's talking about how like, oh well, we need to get in good with Brian Tyler Cohen guys, so we need to be nice, you know, right? That was literally the start of this whole conversation, basically.
Trump won in 2024 because I think for him it seeds ground, or it makes the ground kind of more fertile for like a left-wing populist, maybe even revolutionary movement. That's what I think motivates him. And so,
interesting. Well, listen, I hope that one day you guys are able to talk. I mean, I would talk to him, and I think that it's important to use these platforms, these different people, to try to convince as many folk about the need to fight this administration. And I think that, for better or worse, and there are people in his audience who are willing to hear that message. I want you to be aware that, like, I just behave on that podcast the way I do in any of these discussions. Like when I say, I want you to say da-da-da-da, that's just a formulation that I will often put in any kind of like debate situation that I'm in. It's not like I don't want to give lefties more opportunities to farm you for clips. It's not my motivation. And on the personal thing, I think that that's, the implication was you're not sincerely motivated by the threat that they pose. I withdraw that, and I'm sorry. My whole point of it was to more argue that, like, I think it's not the most efficient, and I would prefer if we spend more time on MAGA. But I'm not trying to like fuck with you or anything. I'm just like, I like to argue, and when I see someone kind of like weaseling on some shit, and remember, Soy Pill started that. Soy Pill was the one who asked you, hey, Epstein or Vance, and I just noticed your answer. I'm like, what the fuck is bullshit? Get the answer. And so,
oh my god, he's so good at also like rallying support. He really is. He's like a male Kelly Jean. I think that's a good descriptor. Because like notice before he's like, me and Josiah are aligned on this. And also Soy Pill, he's the one that started this fight. It's like the problem wasn't Soy Pill asking the question. It was you drilling on it like crazy.
That's my instant reaction to it. It's not like I'm preparing to ambush you or anything. It's just like me reacting in real time. And if that offended him,
he never said you were ambushing him.
No, listen. It may be difficult to believe in this moment, but I mean this with all sincerity. I fucking like that about you. I like tangoing with you. I think it's fun. Like, I don't know if you've ever hurt my feelings. Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit on Monday. Maybe you hurt my feelings a little bit on Monday. But like generally, I genuinely like that. And I fucking empathize that the idea of like, somebody says something to me and it doesn't make sense. And I think it's inconsistent. It's like a splinter in my mind that I can't remove. And so I can get singularly focused. I think that's on full display this last week. I can get singularly focused on, oh my God, this is a really stupid, bad idea. And hella people think the thing. Like, it's the same kind of morbid fascination that I have with MAGA. Oh my God, they're saying cannibals are eating cats and dogs and rapists are going to come in and fucking eat your children. This is crazy. And so I have a similar kind of draw to that. But your experience of, I just get into a mode and I just kind of, I like to argue about these things. Like, I'm the same way.
Just notice, I don't Ogre and I, like, I know that he's a deranged lefty or whatever. But I think that he's, I'm friendly with people who I find are insane on politics a lot, and I can even have like a good time joking around with them sometimes, whatever. And I think he's been unfairly harsh to you. But just like know that behind all of these lefties or whatever, they're people too. And I'm sure it doesn't feel great when I do that kind of like questioning to all that.
I don't like this political disagreement thing. There's a difference between political disagreement versus being I shouldn't say interpersonally, being like rhetorically a piece of shit, I guess. That even goes beyond just being friendly or not friendly with somebody. Like there are people that I know that are politically similar to me and that are politically different that I could have good conversations or debates with and really bad conversations or debates with. I don't think that has to do with how different their politics are. It's just some people are just geared more towards it or not. And it doesn't matter what their politics are.
And I know this sounds super soy as fuck for me to say to an audience of like probably mostly liberal people, but it is also the case that when I do that to conservatives, there's a person behind there, they feel bad about it, and lefties as well. And I know that there's like a difference between a fellow lib and a lefty and a conservative and all that stuff in terms of the friend-enemy distinction. But sometimes it's like, I'll acknowledge it. Just like, I will just want to say what I feel is on my mind. And that
my God. I don't want to ascribe too many I don't want to go into the full Kiwi Farm psychoanalysis route, but like, there's so many like red flag things. I just want to say what's on my mind. There's a way of like framing. I don't want to do this analysis. This will be the only one I do this one because it feels weird to get into this. But like, there's a way of framing disagreements such that you're only doing a particular thing, and that thing has been like stated so broadly and generally that for you to oppose it would be basically abusive, or it would be unreasonable. And people that can consistently do that are very mind-fucking to deal with, right? It goes back to that example I gave earlier, where like somebody calls you a stupid bitch cunt coming in. And you're like, can you not do that? And they're like, oh, well, I'm sorry, but like, sometimes I just really want to express my feelings. And it's like, fuck me. Like, okay. Well, I'm not trying to, I guess I don't want to tell you not to express your feeling. Right now you feel like it. Now you somehow, they take the complaint that you've given to them and they've flipped it on you. Now you actually feel like the asshole somehow, You're like, fuck. Am I telling him not to express his feelings? Maybe that is unreasonable for me to make that ask, Ugh.
Actually, sometimes cause people to be uncomfortable in terms of the nature of a conversation, which is more combative than they expected. I can try to tone it down a bit.
Like all of this, like, and then these like bullshit. Fuck me, dude. I'm sorry. All these bullshit concessions, like, oh, like there could be a conversation that makes them feel more uncomfortable and blah blah blah. Like, I don't like it too because it makes Hutch seem like a bitch boy, right? And he's not really. Like for whatever reason or whatever. I don't know where he got his fucking black belt in fucking conversational whatever at. But Hutch has done a very 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 good job at engaging very well in these conversations. And for Pisco to be like, I guess it's just too combative, bro. Like, I guess your like shiny bald ass head just can't really hack it. And I'll try to tone it down for you, I guess, And it's like, excuse me. No, the issue isn't how combative you're being. It's that you're basically ascribing malice to his arguments. You could be not combative much at all and still do that. My guess, no, I don't know this. I do know this actually. I would say with 100% certainty. Hutch would prefer somebody screaming at him like, you're so fucking stupid. Obviously the choice is Hassan over Vance. This is such a dumb fucking opinion. I can't believe it, blah, blah, blah. And going back and forth like that versus like the calmer being like, I understand why you'd say that. I think you're just personally motivated though. I think it's just spite-based, And I don't really want to get into it more, but like, I think you're just spite-based, right? Like the first one is more quote unquote combative, but like the second one hurts more, especially when it's coming from somebody who's supposed to be your friend or knows you, right? Ugh.
But yeah, that's just my nature, man. And I think it's good content for some people who, maybe when they went too far. But yeah, what was the thing about Monday?
Okay.
Like at the start there, it got off on the wrong foot because I heard Jose, who seems like a chill dude, say something I found like more offensive than the dead ending Gaza voters, which was like, even if it would hurt Democrats, we should have stayed with Biden. And I'm just like, that is worse than being the dead ender on Gaza and on genocide. Like that is such a stupid line to draw. And so when that happens, you're like, oh my God, why'd you start so combative? Not you necessarily, but people, like, you have to understand, I'm hearing that, I'm like, what the fuck? Even if Democrats would lose down the line, like you would stick with Biden just because that's what strong is, like, that's so stupid. And so I felt that you were like kind of...
Was that his whole argument? I don't think I heard that part of it, so I don't know.
I made this wrong, not letting me put that out in front of the audience so they can understand how evil that is.
No, as soon as he said that, I knew you were going to jump in and like really push back. And I had a similar reaction, I guess, with Jose. Jose is like very, very normal. He's like a very, very normal person. He was like too normal. Like, anyways, I've been following him for a long time. So if I'm having a conversation with a normal person, I'm going to change my tone a bit. Like, I'm not going to necessarily, I'll phrase it like, well, don't you think maybe that's right? So like,
that was worse than anything that like,
no, I was going to jump in and say that. I was going to be a bit more calm about it. But like, I was starting to say it and then you were like, why don't you say something? Like, I was like going to do it. I was going to phrase it in a more kind of like normie coded kind of way because he's just like this normal person who's, like, if anything, the juxtaposition of him being there for that episode was fucking hilarious because I just like, that's just not his like normal thing. But, touching back on what you were talking about a moment ago, to give you maybe like more insight into how my brain works and why I react the way that I do, I am fully aware. Listen, I am 42 years old. I've done a lot of years of therapy. I should probably start making sessions with my therapist again. You know, like I'm doing like a lot better these days, but like I am fully aware that the people that I get mad at the most, like these lefty types, that was fucking literally me when I was 21 years old.
I don't know if therapists do this in general, but I feel like it is really important. Maybe some therapists are really good at teasing it out, I guess. Dr. K could, because that guy's a genius, okay? But you really need to see the fights that people have with their significant others, or whether that's like a recording, or whether that's like having them both come in, although the circumstances might change the way they interact, but like you really need to see how people are engaging with others. Because like there's a lot of times where I'll hear somebody say something, and if you had enough experience seeing toxic relationships or not toxic relationships, or just seeing different communication styles, a person can describe a thing that seems completely reasonable, and then once you actually get the context of it, it's like, okay, well, hold on. Actually, maybe this is like a completely different thing, you know? Where
your therapist like susses it out though over time.
Hopefully.
Yeah, if they're good.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because I've heard, like Anna was a great example. It's the Anna Frills or Anna War or whatever. Sometimes people weaponize the fuck out of their therapist, which is super toxic. But I don't know if that's just them doing things that their therapist would advise them against, or that they're just like making up or inventing. It's hard to tell, obviously, because I'm not at their therapy sessions. Yeah.
Was the guy that was just like Democrats and Republicans are two sides of the same coin. It's not left or right. It's the billionaires. It's capitalists. Like I was fully Noam Chomsky coded and Howard Zinn coded for years. I mean, I had a picture of Noam Chomsky up on my wall until just recently with all the Epstein stuff. And I fucking took it down. But I think that's like one of the things that motivates me.
Epstein's friend, right?
Is like it's like I'm yelling at my younger self, and I'm fully aware of it. It doesn't always produce like the best conversations, and there are ways that I can be more effective in my rhetoric. And like I know that about myself. And it's like the same thing with like MAGA types. Like MAGA is like my dad is like a prototypical MAGA person, and we get along really good these days. We're like bonding over guns and stuff like that. But you know, we didn't always get along. And so like when I was yelling at MAGA people before, you know, that's like proxy shit for like I firmly believe it just all goes back to your family. And so like, we're all kind of like working through our family shit. And so I'm aware of these things. I could be more productive in many ways. I will continue to work on that, and that's fine. But like I just want you to know, I really like that you're very argumentative, and I do generally, like 99.9% of the time, like sparring with you. It is fun. I don't think that you're this like bad person. I've never thought that. So I just want to put that out there.
No, I appreciate it, man. Like, honestly, I also, like, everyone has their fucking shit. Like, I know that I will come across as, like, arrogant, obnoxious, whatever, and shit sometimes. And, like, I think sometimes it's about time and place and whatever. But yeah, no, I can totally get that. It can be looking back at who you are in a previous life and be like, no, don't do that. I mean, frankly, that's how I felt in the 2024 election generally. I'm like, guys, we can't make this mistake again. It almost sometimes feels like we're doomed to have these cyclical little, you know, fucking moments in resolving similar questions. Even sometimes questions about, like,
Pisco's like trying to
all
find
this shit
an
comes back
answer
again.
though,
And it
or
can be
like suss out what is like the correct. Hold on. God damn it.
Haha, debit card.
I'm still on hold. Yeah. Or suss out what is like the quote unquote correct opinion. I think he's literally just trying to win.
I think so, yeah, because now they've rooted it down into this like kind of personal argument. Hello?
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, there's like this kid in the game. Sounds like he's like 8 years old. Okay. Yeah, like now you're in some like personal area where it feels bad to even push on a debate topic. Like my guess is, I don't know, I could be wrong. Maybe they'll find a way back to it, but I feel like the actual substantive debate is probably over, and now it's just going to be this like this weird
jerk sesh. We're like, are we both good?
I'm using a lot of fucking abuser language. Fuck, but like. This is unironically like some fucking like cycle of abuse shit where it's like you do a thing that you shouldn't really be doing, and it's not just being combative or being argumentative. It's like ascribing malice or bad faith to somebody, especially in front of like a guest or whatever, like all of that. And now we're in some form of like almost like performative aftercare where we're going to explain these things happening. Oh, it's in his house. We're going to explain the things that are happening and then just say it's like, well, we chalk it up to some random differences, but it's not going to change. The same thing is going to come up over and over again going forward. And I think it's worth asking the question, like, why does this issue keep coming up? And why doesn't it seem like there's much or any progress being made on it? Maybe, I don't know, but maybe they would feel like there is. I mean, technically I'm an outsider here, so maybe they do feel like they've advanced something, but it feels like this keeps popping up over and over again. And it's not just... And I don't like how it all got framed back to like, oh, you know, sometimes I'm just argumentative, bro. And it's like, well, no, that's not really what's going on, you know?
Yeah, it like the argument started over like the Epstein versus Hassan kind of thing, but like they never broke down at all into that.
No,
like,
nothing of substance.
Like, okay, what are the Hassan issues you have?
Yeah,
like,
Pisco is like getting closer and closer, I feel like, to kind of like Andrew Wilson, to where all of it becomes like meta or philosophy informed, like argument structure informed debates, and you don't actually really talk about the substance of almost anything, which is funny because
but that's the most
Pisco,
important part.
Yeah, I know, but Pisco found a way to throw that back to Hutch earlier, which was funny when Pisco was like, I feel like it's 2 hours in and I don't even know your position on this thing or whatever. It's like, that's, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. That's every conversation everybody seems to have with you. Why do you think that's
Yeah,
happening?
that's because it's like we're always having a meta conversation about the next thing
Or something
down
about
the
our
line,
feelings,
like
or
defining something. Like, and then it moves and moves and moves and moves to where we're not even talking about what we called about.
Yeah. And like I said, I'd be surprised if they found their way back to the original conversation. But who knows? We'll see.
And sometimes to see people fall into similar mistakes. I don't doubt that. I do think that sometimes though, you get a lot of hate, and it's tough. I mean, that is something that I think oftentimes is very unfair, and I hope that sometimes you unplug because it can be not healthy. I think always to be in the. I've been in the reply sometimes, but no, I value our podcast. I value inputs and stuff, and I don't take it personally when we disagree like that. And maybe I wasn't as charitable as I should be in that moment. I'll think about that. I was definitely having my response definitely like affected by your answer to the JD Vance versus Epstein question, which was like unequivocal and without any kind of further thing. So that was like very much coloring why I was doing what I was doing, because it felt like such an easy thing. And also, I'm very like hypocrisy aware. Like I don't want us to be like caught up. Like I want to be like better than the lefties who don't answer questions. And so that's something I try to enforce in the conversation. So all that being said, like no hard feelings, and I appreciate that. We could have been a little bit more, or I could have been more like tolerant of your view there.
Well, now I'm curious about your past. Are you trying to get out of here?
Yeah.
Are you trying to get out of here?
I have like 30 minutes.
Okay. We don't need to take up the whole time. First, I want to say that sometimes I like hardcore relapse on social media. Because there were especially in the peaks kind of during the pandemic lockdown stuff, where I would spend like 14 hours on Twitter, like not even kidding. Like I wouldn't even stream because I would just be straight up. Like it was just and I would do that sometimes like for days and days and days. And sometimes I wouldn't even stream because I was like too busy arguing on Twitter. And so there are some times where I go back to that, and it's like it's not great when I do that. It feels like a relapse, and then but unbalanced things are better. But I do want to say that I feel so unwavering about my perspective on things. So if there are dog piles that these communities do, that shit does not really faze me all that much. Like I'm not gonna say it never affects me, but for the most part, I don't question my ideas or thoughts or beliefs or whatever. If anything, I get more resolved when they do that. And you should also know that they do it's like systematic brigading. It's like systematic brigading. They will pull up your tweets like on stream.
Sorry, keep talking.
And almost all of the people involved in this are active in Pisco's community as well. But that's neither here nor there. And in his chat right now
I'm curious
too.
about like you're like 18 to 22, like what was going on for Pisco in those years. I'm just curious now.
I bet.
Oh, there you go.
Go for it.
Yeah, no, I was asking what was 18 to 22 Pisco like? Like what was your political like awakening, genesis, whatever?
I've always been a Democrat. I've always been left wing. My influences were Jon Stewart, Christopher Hitchens.
Hitchens. That is the least surprising thing you've ever told me.
Yeah. People like.
Did you read the?
Who else?
Did you read the God Delusion, Dawkins?
I did, yeah. And God is not great. I was also influenced by like people more local to me, teachers and stuff, who were liberal and Democrat. But in college, I took like an active stance against identity politics. I never fell into that like Sargon of Akkad, Milo Yiannopoulos sort of cycle. But I remember feeling a little bit excited, but also sometimes a little sad at the following. I published, I think, some articles. I know some articles that like upset certain like left-wing identity politics sensibilities on campus, and I found that exciting. I found that being I don't know, contrarian in that moment. Most of these are opinions that still hold, which is like you should let white people wear sombreros and stuff like that. But it also had its like effects in terms of people being like, oh, you're an Uncle Jose, you're not like a real Hispanic, which isn't true. I'm a first generation. My family's from Peru. But so in that context, I was like very much I don't know. I disliked this totalizing framework of identity politics. I really didn't like it at all. But over time, and especially through law school, I think I always viewed Trump as a humongous threat. I voted for Hillary. I voted for Biden. And then obviously Kamala. But through law school, I felt that, I reasserted my priorities in that, to be honest, I don't spend much time at all worrying about CRT or safe spaces and stuff like that, because even though I think that a lot of my positions on that were right, I thought that it wasn't worth my time. I joined an affinity group, and it was a lot of fun. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And I think affinity group, like a Latin organization.
Can I expo with you?
I'm not extracting, but you can extract. Go for it.
Okay.
This motherfucker try to fucking kill me. Does this count as inside? No clue. Stop.
for my law school, and it was it felt really good to be able to, notwithstanding my massive disagreement on some of these issues and whatever, and they did still rear their head from time to time. It felt good to know that we're all in it against this this tyrant, and he was a tyrant in his first administration too. So yeah, that influenced a lot of what happened, which is like maybe that experience of having certain ideas that were, again, I'm not gonna lie and say it was all like negative. Like I definitely got a thrill out of knowing that I would trigger some people, right? But maybe that experience like put into perspective the relative harms. I don't think I ever had it so out of whack that I was gonna vote for Donald Trump, but it did, I think, impact me.
Oh, that's interesting. Didn't know that about you. ¿Tú sabes que yo hablo español, más o menos?
Oh, no sabía, no.
Yeah, a little bit.
¿Dónde eres?
Yo nací en el Bay Area de California. Pero yo estudiaba español en la escuela secundaria por 4 años y 2 más años en la universidad. Era mi minor. Oh, how do you say it, like my minor? I don't speak very much anymore, so I can understand like most Spanish, but like I can't necessarily like speak everything.
No, your Spanish is really good. I think it's good.
Practiced a lot.
Raised beef.
I worked at a lot of restaurants, and so like there were a ton of people back of the house that spoke Spanish, so I would just practice every fucking day. So yeah.
I was in between college and for 1 year as I studied for LSAT, I bartended. One of the reasons my name is Pisco is it's obviously like Peruvian heritage. The drink Pisco is like a liquor from Peru. There's some dispute, Peru, Chile, but I think it's Peru. I think that's evidence. That said, also I was a bartender, and honestly, there were so many debates that we had at the bar I worked with like the kitchen staff and shit. Sometimes they even go all the way to in front of the patrons where they would participate. And so really like this has just always been my personality. It's like obsessed with these arguments, whether it's at college where the argument's supposed to happen, or whether it's at a bar when I'm supposed to be like, not having those. I think one time we had to have like a manager talk. It's like no more political debates. We did it anyway. So yeah, I mean that's. I think everyone should do some food service or some retail work. I think it really rounds you. It makes you nicer. I think.
I don't know if it makes you nicer. It's a bond. It's like when you see someone that you worked at a restaurant with years later, there's like a feeling like you're 2 survivors of the Titanic reuniting like 20 years later. There's like a bond that you make, I think. But I had the same like. I was the same way like my whole life. Like I would argue with my sisters a lot, and then with my friends in grade school, especially in high school. Did you ever see that one TikTok where it's like the 2
This is the
guys
rest of the
that look
combo,
like they're like 25
I'm
years
guessing.
old? It looks like it's like a like a bachelor pad, and they're arguing about the wicked witch of the West. Did you ever see that one?
No.
God, chat, help me find that one.
Yeah,
they're like
Pisco for
screaming
cheese
at each
on his
other.
burger, and he's like, yeah,
It's a
but
debate
what
about the
is
Wizard of
cheese
Oz,
really?
and they're diving into.
It sounds familiar.
It is a classic, but that was like me and my friends every day. It was like it wasn't enough to win the argument. You had to humiliate the person that you were fighting with, and so that was like just.
There's like a kind of flow state that I got from bartending, where if you had a good crew on a given day and you're just like banging out cocktails and draft beers and like you have a good shift, there is a kind of like you just turn your brain off and you're just like operating with like great efficiency and
When's
just like moving
the
kind of takes over.
Hassan Mockler debate?
30 minutes.
Felt very valuable. I mean, at one point I was like, I think juggling. I still wanted to work at the bar. I think my 1L summer, I tried to juggle my summer associateship from 1L with bartending. I can do it. But
Did you
you know,
say what you
there's
think
something
can
I think rewarding about doing it for some amount of time.
I feel like it'll be too friendly, but we'll see.
Reaction, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
Just watch that video.
All right, let me do it.
I hope Mogler works in a shrimple as.
All right, Pisco. Listen, enjoy your weekend.
Thanks, brother. Hey, so I want you to think about this hypothetical because it's really important. No, I'm just kidding.
I thought you were serious. I was like, no.
No. I don't think we need to like to relitigate all that shit, but just keep in mind, I'm not coming from a place of like I want to fucking destroy you. It's counter to my interest. And if I was just trying to grip for lefties, I would be doing a better job at it and saying anything. I could get them to fucking share my name.
I have genuinely never thought about you. Like I've always had the thought that you like arguing. That's always been my position. Chat will back me up on this. I've told Chat 1,000 times. I think Pisco really likes arguing. But yeah, anyways, enjoy your weekend. We're gonna have Rashad Crenshaw on Monday, and we're gonna be so normal. Right? We're gonna be so normal.
So
segregation examples.
Zoom not. If you bring up.
Did we get anywhere with all this?
I don't think so.
Did anything change?
Nope.
Nothing?
Nope. Just like every other Pisco conversation. Didn't really. Yeah. Nope. What are you going to do?
Okay. Nothing ever happens. Chud wins again.
True.
Holy shit, there he is.
It's a king.
Back up with $10. Ooh, I feel. Listen, I'm just gonna read these, okay? But we ended on a positive note, so it feels like
debating Mockler. It feels very counterintuitive to what Hassan usually does of go after people with more clout.
Why do I feel like he's going after Mockler?
Why do you feel like he's even debating him?
Oh, because he's gonna go mask on progressive, and he's gonna try to build a big bridge so that he can insulate himself from a little bit of the mainstream shit he's getting right now for not willing to endorse Newsom over Vance in a hypothetical race. So he's just trying to.
It's basically the Brian Tyler Cohen like grift that we were talking about earlier.
What do you mean?
Where he's trying to have a talk
yeah.
with BTC.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, makes sense.
I shouldn't let him weasel away with, I feel it's personally driven. Pisco explicitly said, you only critique AOC or progressives because you have personal vendetta with Hassan. Ace with $5. Hutch, thanks for being a good, thanks for being a good dude. The internet sucks, but you don't. Still down to talk to Sitch and Adam, even though the last combo was tense. Actually, the last combo was not tense. I don't know if you guys recall, but the last time I went on their platform, it was pretty chill. Like we did not, we disagreed, but we were not screaming at each other. It was more the first time.
Go to the departure building.
And I think me and Josiah went on Stitch and Adam together, and I think that one was pretty tense. Or I might be remembering it wrong, but the last one I think was fine because I did make a concerted effort, like a conscious effort, to be kind of more normal. That lawyer dude with 8 months, Pisco isn't dumb. He knows how to speak with specificity when he asks you about Epstein's policy. You're clearly thinking electorally, him wanting to ignore that and yelling, just say Epstein's better.
Yeah.
Using only moral framing.
Yes.
Only makes sense if he's clip farming.
Yes.
Slave King with $2. You need to watch Sitch v Pisco, convo for tips. Silent Assassin with 102 months. JV's box with $5. Pisco's not Hassan, supposedly, but he's extremely skeptical of anti-Hassan rhetoric. Why? What is his objective? Please ask him as such. I think it's not even just about me, guys, just so you know. I think it's about bigger than me. I think, for whatever reason, he is, I think sensitive has a negative connotation, like vigilant about anti-lefty rhetoric. And I can't really tell you where that comes from. I don't really know, but I think it's about like more than just like me. Travakia with $10. The whole point of hypotheticals is to see if at the end of the day will these lefties go online and vote against MAGA/fascism.
Will you make a bingo card for Mogler?
And toss their vote away.
No, but if I were to make one, mentions Israel would be the free spot in the middle.
It took us a minute to get there.
I just think Destiny's emotionally motivated to hate Pisco and vice versa. Both these people have valid reasons, but it's clouding their judgment, and Pisco is surrounded by fucking losers who are trying to manipulate. Can you give me one unfair criticism that you think I made of Pisco in that conversation? I think that he's very clearly always been like this, and you go hypercritical on him and say he's using abuser tactics, which I know is going to hurt Pisco, and then he will be more reactive. I don't know what you just said that was that I made an unfair criticism or whatever. I think Pisco has always been very kind of like hardcore debate brain. Yeah, sure. But like, I enjoy those conversations, and I feel like I don't mind handling those conversations. If I feel like somebody's being unfair or whatever, I can scream at somebody or shout at somebody. I don't mind that. But I'm like very much attuned to that. If I see somebody else like going super hard on somebody, and I don't want to make it sound like Hutch can't handle that. I just think it's like really mean, or I don't think Hutch like necessarily gears himself up for those types of conversations much. That's usually where my big criticism comes from. And then when you say he's using abuser tactics, I mean, like, I'm trying to hedge. I know that like I'm still saying it anyway, but like, I mean, am I incorrect on anything that I mentioned? Like, if you think I am, feel free to say so. But I feel like sometimes you give too much credit to the anti-fans and influencing his opinions. If he always had this debate bro brain. I don't understand. Like, me and Pisco were known for having like massive, hugely obnoxious arguments. Like, I think even when I think we liked him more because he was more essentially on our team or wasn't supporting our extreme enemies or whatever as much, that might influence people a little bit. But I think even back then, like, there was kind of mixed opinion on Pisco. Generally, people would favor it, but people always view those conversations being insanely pedantic or running around in circles a lot. Like, even when we all liked Pisco, I think we all kind of felt that. I don't think it's like our opinion severely changed on it. But I think that there were a couple things. Well, like, here, this would be a good way to test. Can you think of a worse opinion that that Pisco has ever had than the defending Hassan on the fucking on the TSA thing that Hassan very clearly and obviously lied about? Because I think that was one of the first big like, ooh, damn moments. Because me and Pisco were not communicating for a long time after the lawsuit or Substack thing and everything. But it's not like I started shitting on Pisco immediately or something. I think it was after that take, I was like,